You find yourself in a decrepit space. A layer of dust coats the room. The walls are standing, barely. Through the dim light, you are able to make out 4 microphones on a wobbling table. Amongst a bundle of cables lays a cracked parchment. As you pick up the parchment, a trapdoor slams shut behind you. You have no choice but to read the words scribbled on the page. Woe be to ye who enters here, for you may not be freed from this prison until ye record a podcast. If release is what ye seek, about 2 movies ye must speak. One of them, the quality must be purer than a paladin's soul, and the other must be more wretched than a troll's corn horn. For ye have entered the realm of high and low. Welcome back to the High and Low podcast. If we're ever going to free ourselves from this prison, we're going to need to discuss 2 movies. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves from 2023 and Dungeons & Dragons from 2000. I'm Vonn Gonziola, joined by Mitchell MacIsaac.
Happy to be here.
And Luke Slowbod.
Hello.
And with us today is special guest Ryan MacIsaac. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, everyone. I was coming to get something out of my bedroom, and my brother has converted it into a podcast studio, and now I'm forced to perform with them. Thanks for letting me be here today.
Yeah. Sounds like you rolled a critical fail coming in here.
Should have never come this way. That door's locked pretty good. I don't think there's any way you're going to be able to leave.
Well, I think you heard from the intro that we have to pacify this demon thing in order to get out of the podcast
Take
studio.
it easy, Mitchell. That's your brother.
And I wonder how many times Ryan pounded off in this room.
Yeah, if these walls could talk, it would be a pretty sleazy tale.
They would be screaming in terror.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that in my bedroom. I did it in the bathtub.
Now I do it in here.
That's
Coming to the podcast studio and just go to town.
I like listening to us.
This is how I stay sharp. This is how I win.
I'm intimately familiar with my surroundings here. Suffice to say.
Critical hit. I came in my own mouth.
Boom.
Was that projectile damage?
I have regrets.
Yeah, Ryan, welcome to the Sausage Factory. You get to kind of see what goes on behind closed doors here.
Happy to be here. Big fan of the podcast. I've listened to pretty much all the episodes, I think, now.
Our biggest fan.
Probably your number 1 fan.
Greatest
Maybe your only fan.
Maybe we should start an OnlyFans.
And
Just for Ryan.
he's
Just for Ryan.
like a super fitting guest for this episode because he was our dungeon master in our relatively short-lived Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
I feel like it went for almost a year. Is that short-lived?
Yeah, but there was like 6 sessions.
It was sporadically done. It was during COVID, so it was a way for us to still play games during over Zoom during COVID, and it was a lot of fun. Ryan had not to toot his horn too much because that's not what this is about, but he has very descriptive deaths and things like that, so maybe he'll throw some of those out.
I actually made a note
as he
of that
bludgeons us all to death.
in my notes here because there was so little blood for so long in the 2000 Dungeons and Dragons movie that it just reminded me of how gory and goopy Ryan's death descriptions
What are you talking
were.
about, buddy? There was a whole bucket of dragon blood.
Oh, that's true. CGI
The worst
dragon
looking
blood,
blood I've ever seen in
Just
my life.
oozing and pooling.
That's what happens when you have a MacIsaac at the helm.
Well,
I mean, we know about Mitchell's
Yeah.
sordid past, but Ryan is actually the BTK killer.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I was thinking when I was watching the second, or I guess the one from the 2000s, was like the opening scene. Someone gets like set on fire, and I was like, you know what? That guy being burned alive actually looks kind of good. Like I think they might have actually lit someone on fire for that. It wasn't CGI.
That's always an impressive stunt when they pull it off.
That was
a man
the best
on fire.
thing in that movie.
It's my favorite. It's people on fire in movies is my favorite
Yeah.
trope.
That's true.
This is well known. I know that's an automatic half star onto the rating.
Yeah.
Whenever I watch a
Unfortunately,
movie,
it's still so it brings that Dungeons and Dragons up to a half star.
Yeah.
I always make a mental note when I'm watching a movie and a guy gets lit on fire. Oh, I should tell Vonn about that movie because he loves watching that.
Yeah, same. He's a real sick bastard.
Yeah. That's his favorite way to watch a man die.
The first movie we're talking about is Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. It came out in 2023, written and directed by Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Francis Daly. You all might know John Francis Daly from Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, he's the kid from Freaks and Geeks. He's the protagonist in that. He was also in Waiting. I don't know if you guys watched that movie with your moron friends as much as I did.
Back in the day.
Oh, that's the server one?
With Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah,
but that kid's pretty funny. And what is he, like 29 or something now? Like, he is fucking doing well for himself. He did Spider-Man, or him and Goldstein, they're kind of directing partners, producing partners as well. But they did Spider-Man Homecoming, I think.
Interesting.
It's interesting that you should say that because I have it up right here. He was born in 1985, so he's actually older than me. So he's almost 40 now.
Okay,
he's
I
an
was
old
wrong.
bastard.
I was wrong about 29. He's the same age as me. You're saying I'm an old bastard.
Yeah, you're an old bastard. Also, he was Dr. Sweets in Bones, for those of you who watched Bones like I did.
All of our Bones heads.
Oh, actually, Bones was on all the time when I would come over here. Well, after it was over.
Constantly.
We loved David Boreanaz, or whatever that guy's
Is
name.
that
Angel?
show?
That's Angel, yeah.
Yeah, Angel, and who's the
I kind of
Zoe
thought
Deschanel's
only
sibling?
you, like your moms were watching that show.
Yeah,
Licking the bean to
it was like 50-year-old women and Ryan. I was keeping NCIS alive too.
Yeah.
So
I wonder where that Venn diagram overlaps in other areas too.
Well, Ryan's into all the police procedural shows, all those serial killer stuffs, the Law and Orders and all that stuff.
It tells him what to do and what to not do if he wants to avoid getting caught.
when I was a teenager, I was into all that.
Wow, weird confession.
Yeah. He's on the straight and narrow now, folks.
Times
No
have
need to worry.
You can let your daughters back outside.
He's reformed. The MacIsaac brothers have reformed.
I don't know that I go that far.
So, yeah, Jonathan Goldstein, John Francis Daly, good for him. Like, he's doing great. There aren't a lot of directors under 40 that are making hits. And I mean, this movie was kind of a hit. It kind of barely broke even. It was a critical success. Audiences really liked it, but I think it went up against the Super Mario Brothers movie, and it got
That's a tough weekend.
got its lunch eaten by that. And filming had finished like in 2019 or something, and it was delayed for a couple years because of COVID. Then they're like, we'll release it in the summer of 2021 along with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. That stuff got delayed for several years, even longer after that. And then by the time it came out, there was like a big fan boycott toward Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro.
Oh, that's right.
Who own Dungeons and Dragons. Because from what I can understand, it's something to do with them cracking down on third-party content with it. And also they're like, oh, well, so we're not super happy with Wizards of the Coast's new books for D&D and
Yeah, they were trying to squeeze an extra dime out of their fan base in some way. I don't know the specifics of it, but the fan community got in an uproar. And so much of Dungeons & Dragons is generated by fan content, and you know, fans make the campaigns. I mean, you can play predetermined campaigns, but all the fans in their own group make the stories and everything happen. So.
My basic understanding of it was that anyone else who was trying to use their product, like third-party campaigns that were being produced, Wizards suddenly wanted like a cut out of it when they never had before, and it was kind of like, well, the only reason your game is really succeeding is because we've been doing half the legwork. So it's kind of a dick move to just out of the blue be like, all right, it's time for things to change. Let's be an eviler corporation than we were before.
It's kind of a dick move, but also, I mean, they're owned by Hasbro. That's a publicly traded company, one of the biggest game and toy companies in the world.
They've turned into Red Wizards.
Yeah. I mean, what can you do?
They're saying
such a hate.
That being said, I did not boycott this movie. I think this was like the first movie I saw once the pandemic had lifted, and I loved it. I loved going to the theaters again for the first time in, like 3 years, seeing something on the big screen. It was a nice soul cleanser for me when I actually went to see it in theaters.
This would be a good movie to see in the theaters because it's funny. It's funny, and if people are on the wavelength of the comedy, and I think this movie has a lot of strong comedy, then that's an awesome theater experience. Yeah. Laughing with other people after you haven't done it for a few years, that's something special.
Me and Ryan were chatting earlier, and we were saying there's definitely a Marvel influence felt throughout this movie, and it's definitely got that sort of quip-a-minute style thing going on. But in Marvel, that's become so tired, and you see the formula so much now that it's sort of old hat. But in this, it was actually kind of refreshing with a new setting and everything. It's like, okay, this is a very quippy movie, but I can kind of get behind it with these fresh new characters and this new scenario.
I think the biggest difference between it and Marvel, and you're right, it is very Marvel movie-y. The biggest difference is the comedy doesn't undermine the action of what's going on. It doesn't take the heart away from the movie, because there is a bit of heart in this movie, and it works for me anyway.
Yeah.
But they're not going like, oh, well, that happened. Oh my God, can you believe an orc? Like, what an ugly freak, or that's
it's
so
not
stupid or
self-referential
whatever.
at all. They're
so
good,
weird.
they're well-written jokes, and also, like, as far as the plot goes, it subverts a lot of things too by just doing things like heel turns early, and just kind of like a lot of quests that don't actually matter. Like they go and try to do something, and it turns out that it's broken, or it's the wrong thing, or it's not going to help them. So it was fun that way. It didn't just like follow a straight ahead, through line.
Feels like a real D&D campaign in that way.
Totally.
But also, like, the humor style is very kind of Simpsons-esque, early Simpsons-esque. Which
That was
I got that too.
that was one of the things that I was thinking of when I watched the movie, is that it does have the D&D feel to it. And it does, you can almost feel like there is like a dungeon master kind of controlling things.
Yes.
And part of the quips, why they worked for me, is because I could see something happening. Like we could be playing a game together, something happens that's like serious, and then out of nowhere, Luke just makes some weird off the cuff remark that like makes everyone in the room laugh. And it's like, yeah, that's what would happen in a D&D game. That's what would work. And there are just a few scenes throughout this where I'm like, this is like the translation from the game into a movie that I don't really feel like we get a lot in the other movie.
Yeah, and like the talking corpses bit, which we'll get to, but like that's it, when we play D&D, that's the kind of shit taking and piss taking that you were giving us as a DM at every turn. Like we do something and it would never be as simple as it seems. You would lead us and guide us kind of in that direction, but then we would be completely clueless and just be fucking clowns about it.
We'd be like picking up rocks and talking to them, thinking that's going to open up some secret door or something like that. Just no idea what to
It
do.
really
Man.
captures it.
What's that walkie-talkie rock called?
Oh, the sending stones.
A sending stone. It's a sending stone. that appears in Dungeons and Dragons 2000.
There was one point when we were playing where there was a bunch of rocks along the roof that lit the place up, and Luke was like, "These rocks must be important.
These rocks are evil."
He sent a character to grab them, and I'm like, I put them there because there's someone in the group who doesn't have dark vision, and I don't want to have to deal with that right now.
How does the movie start there, Vonn?
So it's wintertime. This horse cart comes up to a prison, and this gigantic, big-ass, ogre-looking thing gets out. He gets brought into a prison cell, and who's there but Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez. And I kind of forgot how much I like Chris Pine. He doesn't show up that often.
Best Chris.
He is the best Chris. And I really like him when he pops up. He's got a good rat-a-tat.
Oh, Ryan's shaking his head.
Oh.
We got a Pratt guy over
Yeah,
here.
you prefer
Evans.
another Chris.
I love Chris Evans. What can I say?
We like
He's pretty
Evans.
good.
I like it when he's
I like
playing.
Hemsworth too.
I like them all. They're all good. I like Chris Evans when he's playing like a sleazy guy or Captain America.
What about like a Christoph Waltz or something? Does that count as a Chris? or is it just Christopher?
Only to his friends.
That's unfair to
I'm
compare the
Chris Tin Stewart.
the heartthrobs to Christoph Waltz.
Chris
Who is the biggest
Christopher
heartthrob?
I'm
Walken.
a Chris Christopherson guy. He's the best Chris. Chris Pratt, he's playing Edgin. He's a bard, and Michelle Rodriguez is a warrior. They're in a prison cell, and this
Barbarian.
She's a barbarian. This orc thing comes in, or
I think he's a hobgoblin.
This hobgoblin comes in, and basically
The Hobgoblin.
We set Vonn up and just correct him like crazy. He's a hobgoblin, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Go on. Please do go on.
Actually. And he didn't even mention the snake person that they walk past. But I'm not going to get into
Oh,
it.
yeah,
If you just
there's
want
a
to
snake
ignore the
person.
world building, Vaughn.
There's a lot of animal people in this movie.
so, yeah, there's a lot going on, and also I think Chris Pine is actually a thief bard. He's probably a dual class.
I got the
Yeah.
vibes he was more of a rogue.
Oh.
But
He's part of the Harper
bard.
clan. He plays a harp, I guess that means. I don't know.
No, Harpers don't just play harps. Now the Harpers
He actually plays a lute throughout this movie,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Harpers are kind of like a secret society in the Forgotten Realms world. Like,
Okay.
think like the Freemasons, but they have a better reputation than that. They're more for Law and
They're like
Order.
the League of Shadows.
But they do
better.
pull the strings of power a little bit behind the scenes, and everybody knows they're very secretive, but most people, they have lots of enemies, but most people generally believe they have benevolent motivations.
They sound like they'd be lawful good to me,
They are.
if I remember my D&D alignment chart.
I wouldn't say they're lawful good. They're more in the neutral sphere.
Neutral
Like, they
good.
have druids and stuff in there.
They just keep everything on an even keel.
Yeah. Neutral,
Maintain the balance.
Neutral good.
Anyway, Vaughn, continue. We won't interrupt again.
No
Well,
road
it's a
can be lawful.
it's a
Yeah.
discussion, right? I mean, we could have a conversation, or I could just narrate the entire plot.
Please point by point go by the
You didn't mention that he was knitting gloves.
I didn't get a
Oh,
chance
yeah.
to mention anything.
We'll shut
guys
off all
kept
our
interrupting
microphones.
I have a note. He says, "I think I'm going to do this without fingers and make it a mitten." Who am I trying to impress?
So, so first, that's when the guy comes in and they're like, another soulmate. Just joking, pal. You seem lovely. And then this guy's immediately creeping on Michelle Rodriguez.
She's eating her potato. It's her favorite part of the day.
We almost got the high and low rape counter in this scene, it seemed like, because this hobgoblin seemed to have some kind of sexual interest in Michelle Rodriguez.
Jeez, I can't
Who
imagine why.
yeah. Yeah.
And when she's beating guys up, it's doing a lot for me.
Yeah, it's even more.
She smashes his kneecap backwards and then like pulls his face into the bench and just turns it to mush.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, and
Good barbarian move.
The
just
way
like
all
curb
rapists should be
stomps
done.
him.
yeah.
yeah, and Chris Pine's just knitting away the whole time, and then right away you get this dynamic. She's not to be trifled with, and he's just kind of the happy-go-lucky guy.
He's kind of the Han Solo of this movie, you know, the charming, roguish character.
Yeah.
He's that guy.
Good at motivational speeches. So they've been imprisoned and they are up for parole, and they have a plan. They're going to go and kind of speak their case. So then they go into this room, and then Chris Pine just starts recounting his backstory. And the whole time he's wanting to know, where's Jonathan? Where's Jonathan at? Are we going to start this with Jonathan?
Yeah, this would all go better. I think Counselor Jonathan would be particularly receptive to my story here. And where's Counselor Jonathan? And they're like, oh, he's coming. Just relax.
The
Just tell
weather's
us your
been
story."
he's been delayed because of the weather. Tell your story. And
Jonathan is not here. Yeah, there's like a lizard man on the council, and there's like a plump, wizardy looking man and a severe looking woman.
is she like a bird of some sort? Or no, she's like a
Jonathan's the Arakocra.
yeah.
Vaughn, you should be familiar with
Oh
this
no,
race.
no. Well, she had a weird face, anyways, didn't she?
I think she was like a gnome or a
Okay.
halfling.
Okay.
But the one thing I was thinking is when he's going on through his story, that's like very much someone narrating their character's backstory to the group of people.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yes.
he's trying to play for time. So he's just telling his whole backstory, which is very useful when you want to get to know somebody really quickly.
Yeah, filling in the blanks.
But it's elegantly and funnily done
Yeah.
in this movie.
He was a bard. He worked for this. What was that guild?
Harpers.
He
The
was a harper
Harper.
for a bit, and then he made some enemies, and then his family, his wife was murdered by enemies, and so he was left to raise his daughter alone until Michelle Rodriguez shows up. She is Holga, a barbarian.
Yeah, she's part of the Elk clan of barbarians, and
Now tell us all about them.
many of her people died in a fierce battle at one point, and she decided to shack up with Chris Pine, and they all formed a big happy family with a
Platonic family.
Yeah,
Chris
yeah.
Pine and her aren't getting intimate.
yeah.
A lot of platonic chemistry in this movie. I love it.
They're just good
Yeah.
pals.
They kind of like co-parent Chris Pine's daughter.
I have it.
so
Kira.
Kira, yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
touching. Yeah. He has a daughter named Kira.
Also, they make a point of mentioning that the blade used to kill his wife was a red wizard's blade, and a cleric can't revive from that. For you nerds at home who are nitpicking.
Red Wizards of Thay are kind of a lawful evil group.
Yeah, they're the baddies kind
They're-
of throughout this
They're
movie.
bad fucks. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
ever played the original Baldur's Gate games. Edwin was a Red Wizard of Thay. He's one of the best
Okay.
characters in that series.
They
But
seem
they're-
like
they're-
bad news.
They're bad.
Well, they're walking around. They're all in red cloaks, and they've got shaved heads. And
Yeah, sometimes they look a little corpsey, and they've got like weird stuff carved into their skulls, and yeah, they just have a kind of a
they would corner you at a party to talk about their record collection, probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
horrible.
Holga left her tribe because she fell in love with an outsider. They talk about a so-so sorcerer, Simon, who is played by Justice Smith. I only know him from a Jurassic Park movie. They talk about their con man, Forge, the incomparable Hugh Grant from Bridget Jones's Diary.
Yeah, he's so good in this movie.
Just Hugh Grant. You think he's good?
I do. I think
I
he's
think
got
he's.
some awesome
I think he's
line
great
readings.
in almost everything. I think he's fine in this movie.
I liked him a lot in this. He has that kind of charm. It's great for a horrible con man guy, you know?
I'm here for late period Hugh Grant.
Yes, it's that Family Guy joke. Oh, I'm so charmingly befuddled. that's young Hugh Grant. He's changed since then.
Yeah, now he can play a little more range.
Bit of a slime ball.
I'm a bit of a two-faced asshole. Arsehole, as we might say in England.
I'm just so terribly untrustworthy.
He was good in that Guy Ritchie movie too, the Gentleman, I think it was.
Yeah.
He's like a kind of a sleazy journalist in that. He's good as an elder statesman playing these sleazy roles.
In Paddington too, it's basically the same role.
Yeah.
Actually.
Haven't seen that one.
Oh,
Or The Gentleman.
you're
Paddington 2
in for
is
a treat
excellent.
with Paddington 2.
The Gentleman is okay.
I haven't seen
Do
it.
I have to watch Paddington 1?
No, you need to watch
No.
Paddington 2 before you can watch Gentleman. Otherwise, it won't make any sense.
Fair enough.
Doesn't add up.
Is Paddington in the Guy Ritchie universe?
Yeah. He's just
The
calling
Ritchie-verse.
people twats while making marmalade
I
sandwiches.
met some bear, and I fed him to me fucking pigs. They're a hungry bunch of pigs. They eat old fucking bear and his raincoat.
What's the matter with this bear? He's just sitting eating marmalade like a twat.
Sitting here with his slicker on.
Bullet Tooth Bear.
What do you take
But
me
Boris
for?
the Bear. His name's Boris the
Why
Bear.
do they call him Boris the Bear? Because he's a bear.
And his name is Boris.
He's as crooked as a honeycomb.
And as sticky as one, too. So, Hugh Grant has suggested a heist.
Yes. And they hook up with a wizard named Safina.
Safina the Red Wizard.
They don't know she's a red wizard of Thay. I
Not
don't think
yet.
At this
But
point.
but she looks majorly creepy from the start. She's got like this gaunt look to her face.
She doesn't really
She
blink
looks just
much.
like an
No.
ex-girlfriend of mine. I should have just picked up on those vibes on day one.
Should have known. Yeah.
A gaunt, bald, white person. The most terrifying thing imaginable.
She's got no eyebrows and no hair, and she's got like alopecia thing going on, which is fine, but it just gives an otherworldly look.
Take
you
it
know?
easy on the 90% of our listeners who have alopecia.
Oh God.
Oh no, here comes Will Smith.
So she hatches a plan to do a heist job on Corin's Keep, and that's a Harper stronghold.
Yeah.
And there's
you need a Harper to break into it. So Edgin, as an ex-Harper, can get them access.
But he doesn't want to do it. He kind of wants to be free and clear from it all because he just wants to be with his daughter. But there's this valuable treasure inside, some tablet, the Tablet of Resurrection or something like that, and it can bring back
Tablet of Reawakening.
the Tablet of Reawakening, and it can bring back somebody from the dead. So he wants to bring back his wife.
His wife is dead.
Yeah.
And then he's breaking in because the Tablet of Reawakening is the only thing that can...
He's
Reawakening. The Tablet of Reawakening is the only thing that can wing and whack. It's the only thing that can bring her back, so that's why he
But
agrees
how
to
did
do
she
the job.
die?
She got knifed by the Wizards of Thay. The
Yeah.
other Wizards of Thay that he
back
doesn't
when he
do.
was still a Harper because he had
Yes.
renounced it at this point.
But it wasn't Safina that killed his wife.
It wasn't Safina
no.
that killed his wife.
right.
Well,
But
we don't know that. It might
well,
have been.
who knows? Yeah.
She's in that group.
Yeah. So she's
That's
guilty.
the clique
She
she
stands with them.
claimed.
She's guilty.
Yes.
Does it
Hang them all!
like at this point? Does it reveal
Faye.
that it's red wizards that have killed his wife, or is that like a secret plot twist?
It reveals that it's Red Wizards,
Oh, okay.
but he reveals a bit of a twist later on,
Yeah.
which I don't know if we want to talk about now or
No.
want to talk about
no,
then.
no, that's a
Well,
secret.
yeah, it's a secret. You gotta.
Twist, guys.
That's top secret.
Okay, so they're doing this. They're doing this heist, and then some alarm goes off.
They're
and
ambushed.
They're ambushed. Safina betrays them and puts them all in a stasis spell, or just Helga and Edgin in a stasis spell.
It's called Time Stop.
Time stop.
It's a high-level D&D spell, and that's one thing I love about this fucking movie is it actually uses
Lots.
spells from D&D.
Oh yeah,
And it's specific about which ones they are.
I've made notes of all the spells. She also uses chain lightning, but I don't remember when.
it's totally loaded to the brim with all kinds of like fun Easter eggs and lore and.
I appreciate
everything.
that. Like that prison, I'm like, oh wow, they're in a wintry place, and then you zoom out to the map when you get the title card, and it's like they're in Icewind Dale. And it's like, okay, Icewind Dale. Okay, I understand it. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Famous
not a
setting of
lot.
the game.
They
The
don't.
movie's accessible to people who aren't familiar with the world, but for people like me and for Ryan or whatever, it is like, cool, we're in that
Yeah.
world. I'm drawn in a little bit more. That's all.
It's such a rich world that's already been created for it, so
Right.
they can just put they don't
Use
need to
it.
explain everything.
And
yeah,
that's what they're doing.
And they don't do it throughout the movie. There's a few things they explain, like if it's like some spell or some artifact they need, it's like we need this to do that. But for the most part, there's just all this stuff going on in the background that just all works together because it's all been fleshed out beforehand. It's great.
Yeah.
Time stop.
Time stop.
They say time stop. You know it's time stop. D&D fans are like, oh, hey, it's time stop. Cool.
Recognize it anywhere.
It's like a Rush song. Time stands still.
Yeah. Even with just like a medium amount of Dungeons and Dragons knowledge, I was still clapping my hands and squealing with delight when they mentioned Baldur's Gate.
You're a real harbor seal over there.
I love it.
I know. Huge D&D guy, but still, you're right. Like,
Baldur's
when I went
Gate.
and saw Spider-Man No Way Home, and like people are just like, it's Daredevil. I'm like, shut up, you fucking nerds. And then
know,
I'm
I was
watching this,
pretty
and
happy to
it's
see
like,
Daredevil.
we're going to Neverwinter. Like,
Waterdeep. Waterdeep.
I'm a lizard brain moron too.
It's okay to like stuff.
No, it's not, Vonn. You stop that.
No, it is okay to like stuff, but it's more okay when the movie is good.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Thoughts on Spider-Man aside. So they are locked up. The last thing Edgin says to Forge is that basically take care of Kira. And so they get sent to prison. That's how they go to prison. And so we know that Kira is with...
Forge.
So we know
Kira's
that
with Forge.
Kira's with Forge. So we
Forge
know
is
that
Hugo.
Kira's with Forge. And then we cut back to the present. And we're back
A
in
lot
the
of
parole
moving
hearing.
parts. Yeah, the whole thing has been unfolding.
Still no Jonathan?
Still. That's the ultimate name, like a made up on the spot D&D character name too. Like, what am I gonna call him? I'll call my character Jonathan.
Just take a regular name and add a consonant in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, Mitchell and I,
Add some R's and S's.
we were talking about that. What's the director of the movie's name? Jonathan. He
Yeah.
has to make a D&D character? Jonathan.
Jonathan. No.
Jonathan and John. It's the two.
Actually, a good point.
You ask me.
And then
A couple of toilets. I got nothing.
and then there's another good part right after this because he's like, still nothing on Jonathan. And then he turns over to Holga and he's like, Holga, you want to say anything? And she's just like, no. So it's like he has his elaborate backstory and she's just like, no, I'm just here to play the game, guys.
She's along for the ride.
Yeah, totally.
Jonathan comes in, and there's like a dragon man in this scene too, who's sitting at the council table. And I love the way all these like weird creatures look, all the human animal hybrids and everything. They look kind of goofy looking, kind of old school Star Wars looking, not like fully CGI looking.
No, I think there's a lot of practical stuff in this movie. And there's a lot of CGI, sure, but they built a lot. They made a lot of costumes. And
And they're a little
CGI is
awkward.
fine. Like, they don't lean on it.
yeah.
Yeah, the bird, like the
It's good
Birdman,
enough. Good as it needs
looks
to be.
goofy. Like he's goofy looking. It's funny looking too, which I like. Like they're not making a cool or a sexy looking
I
Birdman.
know you're not saying Jonathan's goofy looking. I know you're not dissing Eric Cochran.
It's the
I mean,
idea
fucking
of like a
Aaron Caucus.
half man, well,
You
mostly
know-
Birdman. A Birdman. It's funny looking.
Yeah.
His fucking bird eyes looking around.
He's like Big Bird,
it
he's
should
goofy
be
looking.
funny
Yeah.
looking.
but you know, there's like probably a million pieces of fan art online of like a sexy Eric Cochran with wearing like a bikini with mammary glands.
Yeah, Mitch,
You
like,
know
put,
that,
your,
Mitchell.
put your computer away. We get it.
I'll show you if you don't believe me.
Exhibit A.
Exhibits A through.
And I bet you
which
didn't
alphabet
know-
has the most letters?
You probably didn't realize that Eric Crockwell has human genitalia as well.
Tell me how they fuck.
I'm pretty sure they lay eggs.
Yeah.
Oh,
What do birds have? A
Is
cloaca?
laying eggs how they
Cloaca,
fuck?
yeah.
No fucking no. Actually, I do know that how they were created, but let's not get into that, guys.
So
this is about a movie,
Yeah,
not
they-
about D&D.
They don't go there in the movie.
This goofy big bird Jonathan dude walks in, and immediately Chris Pine just jumps on him and grabs him. Olga grabs a potato, and someone's like, "She's got a potato!" And then they just jump onto Jonathan and jump out of the window with him, and there's a Jonathan!
Their plan worked, and then the ultimate twist, right after they jump out the window, the council's like, "But we were going to grant you a pardon."
It's so good. It's just like, "We approved your pardon."
I told you he'd get us out. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's when we cut to the map of the realms and we finally get the title card.
I like that they give it to us up top because it's kind of 50-50 whether it comes at the beginning or the end of a movie these days. And I'm for putting the title at the beginning.
I have a big epic score going along with this, too. I liked the score. It sounded good and old school.
Nice scenic shots of the frozen tundras and the plains as they make their way back
This
to
movie
civilization.
actually goes places to shoot its shots. Like they do on-location shooting, and I don't know where they went.
One thing
in that other
I
one.
think is a pretty great little. I think
A
it's
garage
a subtle
in
comedy
Vancouver,
bit.
Canada. I'll tell you.
There's a lot of just scenic vistas of them like on horseback going in front of a giant volcano or on horseback going across a big field. Every time they go from village to village or town to town, that happens. So I think it's a bit of a subtle comedy bit. Like every time they go to the market, they're passing some amazing waterfall with rainbows coming out of it or something like that. Like a super magical, epic location.
But that makes sense. That's how the game should be. It's like we're not just passing by boring shit. It should be everything turned up to 11. We're in a fantasy world where it's dialed up as much as possible to be fun.
Yeah,
That's the point of
exactly.
D&D.
This movie's fun.
There's no muddy path going by a stinky cow pasture. That's never going to happen in this D&D world.
That is one
but-
fault with this movie, I guess. But
Yeah, exactly. I wanted the ridiculous 6 level of barnyard diarrhea.
We needed Tom Green coming out there being like, "Oh, a horsey, a horsey," and jerk off the horse. Or
Playing with the horse's member. Yeah. Is there centaurs in
Look,
D&D
Daddy,
world?
I'm a horsey man now.
nay. He's jerked off a lot of things.
Jesus. Well, who hasn't?
He's a master of it.
So, Elgin and Holga have busted out of prison, and they find out that Forge has swindled his way into Lord of Neverwinter. So they're going to go there, meet up with him, kind of get the gang back together, get Elgin's daughter back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Edgin. It's
You could have told me at the beginning.
similar to Ed Gein. Just think about Ed Gein.
Just call him
Your
Chris
hero.
Pine.
No. In this podcast, we use character names.
Well, just so you know, I will not be calling Jeremy Irons anything other than Jeremy Irons.
Fine.
That's fine. I
I am the great wizard Paraffin. Or whatever.
Profian.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy
It's-
Irons.
Yeah, Jeremy Irons is better than Profian, which sounds like, I don't know, some sort of birth control drug that was banned.
I come from a family of prophylactic crafters.
Either Profian.
I will prophylactic you.
Either call him Irons or
Prevent your
Skull.
pregnancy.
So
Let
evil.
me take your measurements.
Jesus.
Let me block your cum.
Empress.
Sounds painful.
I'll create new ways to block cum and new ways for you to come with.
Just in his weird dungeon with all those skulls. Someone's chained to the wall. Try this.
He's using that wild magic. That's that good shit. Using all kinds of green fire and gemstones and shit.
We do get wild magic in this movie, which I appreciated as well.
Yep. There is reference to wild magic.
So they start their look for Forge, and Holga mentions she has a husband named Marlamin that she wants to pay a visit to if they can at some point. And now, so they learn Forge is Lord of Neverwinter. And they see flyers and stuff. Before long, they're seeing his face posted up everywhere like he's Mussolini or something.
Yeah, he's a pretty big deal.
He's got a big face on a balloon. The balloon just floats around.
Yeah,
a
so
friendly
they're planning
Mussolini.
this big games ceremony, and they make their way to go see Forge, and Hugh Grant has a great line reading here. It's like, there they are. Ha ha! friends. He's just like really putting English on all sorts of words in different ways, and throughout the movie, and I just love him.
He's great. Could have been Matt Berry in this role. It would have been even better.
Oh yeah, he would have been perfect for something like that.
So they find Kira, and she says Uncle Forge has been good to her, and she has an invisibility pendant. We learn that she uses to sometimes sneak around the castles.
She's a little bit of a scam. She used to do
naughty.
Yeah, she's what, like 13, 14,
yeah,
maybe?
and she used to go on their thieving raids or like do their heists with Edgin and Holga.
Yeah, their whole little thing they had going on there. She would participate. She's no good scamp, just like the rest of them.
But she runs right past Edgin to hug Holga first. She's not happy to see Edgin.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Well, it's because he left her. He left her.
So Forge is welcoming at first, and he's like, well, the gains from our heist really helped finance my campaign. And oh, this tea is so bloody hot.
Oh, he can't stand a hot cup of tea. It doesn't have to be so hot.
Why does it have to be so hot?
Fire that chef.
Yeah, and then he calls in Safina, and he's like, Safina, my tea is too hot. And they're all like, oh my God, he's still fucking hanging with Safina? We hate that bitch. She's the one that got us caught.
He's like,
would you
"Safina,
mind?"
She's my top advisor
Yes.
nowadays.
She makes her finger all icy and dips it
Yeah.
into his tea, and he's like, oh, I didn't think you'd be putting your finger in my tea. I'll just save that for later.
Finish this later.
She does the Iceman from X-Men 2.
Totally. Except she doesn't make a sweet little rose.
Yeah.
She ruins a man's beverage. So that's how you know she's bad news. That and the betrayal earlier.
She's probably got the grubbiest, dirtiest little hands, too. You could tell. She looks like a grubby little person, doesn't she?
She's a grubby little person. We don't like Safina
Yeah.
or the Fays.
Best
She's not a
people.
clean, good wizard. She's one of those dark Thayan wizards.
I don't know. She's like shaved perfectly everywhere. I feel like she takes a lot of attention to detail, so she probably washes her hands very regularly.
Prefer
She's
the
probably
more
just
natural look.
I'm sure she's like covered in hand sanitizer at any given time. So we get Forge's immediate heel turn, and I really appreciated this. So basically, he just says that Edgin's been lying to them the whole time. He knows that they're on the lam, and he's going to send them back to prison and collect the bounty. And he pretty much tells them that he betrayed them. And
Yeah, he's got the tablet, too.
yeah.
They demand it. Kira's like, you guys are liars. And she takes off.
Little crybaby.
Yeah, she doesn't believe her dad.
I'm going to my room.
She's been poisoned against her dad, Edgin.
Yeah, for 2 years.
Or maybe she'd just rather live in a castle than a shitty cabin. Yeah, little column A,
I don't
little
know,
column
man.
B.
Edgin's house looks fucking sweet,
Yeah.
if you ask me. That's a beautiful looking cabin.
It kind of
It
reminds
has
me
high
of
ceilings even. It has a nice fireplace, a beautiful
cozy
yard.
as hell.
Yeah. Forge sets the whole thing up really good, though, to poison Kira's mind against Chris Pine there. He's like, this is actually a tablet of riches. It'll, your greedy dad went to jail because he was trying to get the tablet of riches, and he just wants me to give him the tablet of riches, then he'll be on his way again. He doesn't love you.
And
You're
she-
basically an orphan.
And Kira's starting to think, I think that might be some sort of tablet of riches over there.
It's this thing. You think it's a tablet of awakening or a tablet of resurrection? Nope.
Wait, so there wasn't a tablet of riches?
No.
Okay, I
wish.
misunderstood that a little bit.
No, it was all Forge's cunning plot to poison Kira
Oh, okay.
against Chris Pine.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so they get shackled up and they're going to be taken back to prison. And here's where we get a really sweet action sequence. So
Yeah, Safina's like, Forge is like, oh, lock them up. And then Safina's like, goes to the guards. She's like, kill them.
make sure they don't leave alive.
Yeah. So they just take them to a back alley.
Slit their throats.
Yeah, straight to the back alley. And Holga's stalling them. Oh, they're about to cut her head off. Well, what kind of axe you got there?
Yeah.
She's admiring the fine craftsmanship of the axe and like talking shop with the guard who's about to behead her. And she's
Chastising him for not oiling it, not maintaining it well enough. That's why it's all rusty.
What kind of
what
oil?
kind of steel is that? Oh, is that dark steel? Oh, you got to use pine seed oil.
Yeah, that's why it's got the rust.
All the while, she's kind of playing with the dirt with her hands, and you find out that she's been loosening a brick. Just as the guard's about to take her head off, she blocks the axe with a brick, and then proceeds to just kick the shit out of like 10 people. All the while, Chris Pine is, flapping around on the ground,
struggling to cut the ropes off on
He ain't doing much.
on the step.
And this is true to D&D as well. If you have like a barbarian or a heavy fighter class like this in the early levels, and when all else fails, especially when you're fighting lower level goons like this,
Send in
nothing
the tank.
fucking beats them. Like they will get their asses kicked by a barbarian.
Get in
If you're
there.
a bard or a fucking wizard, forget about
me
it till
sing
you're
you a
like
just
11.
get out of the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Find something to hide behind.
Michelle Rodriguez does action pretty good. She's got a few scenes throughout the movie where she just beats up a group of people, and she's pretty adept at it.
She's done it plenty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And she's convincing at it. She's a good actor.
She's got a long history of action chops at this point.
She
She's
was
an
a
ass
real
kicker.
coup for this movie to actually get, in my opinion, an inspired casting choice. She's
Yeah.
fucking great.
Yeah.
Everybody loves her, but nobody really talks about her. I think she's really good in this movie.
So they're free. They make it out of the city, and then they decide that they're going to get the gang back together. They want to go find their old buddy Simon, and they find him doing some cruddy stage magic where he's just kind of lighting his finger on fire, and everybody's just kind of, everybody's heckling him and booing him, and
Yeah, he's like, how about this? An illusion. And he makes himself blurry. He casts the spell blur,
Yeah.
which is a real spell.
yeah.
The spells I
Gives
have
you
written
some
down
resistance to missile weapons.
are
and stuff.
produce flame, prestidigitation, blur, and then mage hand. That's the real one. He's-
Prestidigitation is
Yeah.
like the sparkles or something.
Well,
at
what's
one
the
point.
grass? What's
Doesn't
the
he have
grass
one where he
smelling
throws his voice or
Oh,
something?
that's the grass smelling one.
Yeah.
Prestidigitation.
Oh, okay.
I also have a note in here.
There is a throw your voice spell.
Yeah,
that-
that is a cantrip.
At one point when they're leaving, like Holga says something like, "Oh, we've abandoned her again," and he's like, "We haven't abandoned her. Well, we have, but we abandoned her for the right reasons because they're going to get help." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a pretty good line."
Well, he kind of realizes that Forge he holds a lot of power. He's surrounded by a very powerful wizard. He has a kind of a city's worth of soldiers at his disposal. They can't just go in willy-nilly. They need help.
Man, he's the Lord of Neverwinter, baby.
Yeah, man.
His whole thing is he's got an important meeting coming up with the Lords of Waterdeep and the Lord of Baldur's Gate, and they want to invest in this big arena plot he's got going on. It's kind of like a gladiator. It's the Colosseum, man.
The High Sun Games.
The big
they call
games
it.
are going on.
Yeah, everybody's getting ready. There's going to be a huge party in town for the High Sun Games.
Gladiatorial.
He can't have Chris
Thing.
Pine and Michelle Rodriguez messing around during the gladiatorial games.
Yeah.
So yes, they go and they get Simon.
While he's doing all this cruddy magic, we see that he's picking everybody's pockets. And
It's
he's-
all sleight of hand.
Yeah, exactly. So he knows that he's not doing anything to impress people, so he's robbing everybody. And Edgin and Holga come in, and this kind of distracts him for a second, and he drops his big ball of booty, and the one guy's like, "He's nicking up bits and bobs, he is!" Like the most English town, like peasant person ever.
Very much what a non-English dungeon master would say, doing like an English peasant. He's nicking all bits and bobs.
Yeah,
What's this then?
he's chitsing all weasels.
Yeah, you could definitely tell the writers probably had their own Dungeons and Dragons campaign going on. I'm sure they cribbed a lot just from playing the game.
Yeah. So then, they rush the stage, and Simon does the upside down gravity thing, and then they're on their way. Then they're kind of filling Simon in on the whole thing.
Simon says he knows a druid. They're like, we need a druid who can wild shape to infiltrate. Mm-hmm. And so Simon says he knows one named Doric, and he's romantically interested in her. So that's when they find a druid tied up against a tree, and she's like, the Emerald Enclave will never relent. And they're like, oh, wow, she's a radical. And then he's like, oh, that's not Doric. And then
She's the horse.
yeah, she's the horse. The horse turns into an owl bear.
Yeah, can that happen? Can you
No,
turn from
no, it can't.
I-
Owl bears are monstrosities. They are not animals. I will die. You cannot transform into an owl bear. I don't care what Baldur's Gate
Doesn't
3
matter.
tells
There's-
you shut up, Luke. It
I was-
does
I
matter.
was-
There's unique characters who have unique abilities
No.
throughout the realm.
It-
I was going to ask if you can just go from one form to another. I thought you needed to transform into a
that's
human
the bigger
first.
one. I mean, that's for fun, right? Like you
They
you,
spread
you
out.
color it to make the game more fun, but it'd be boring to have to
And this
transform
is to
back
make
and
the
forth.
movie more fun.
It's a
Exactly.
homebrew campaign.
The point is they're cheating. That would never work in real D&D. This
Yeah.
movie is fake.
So
Fake
he goes,
movie.
that's Doric. There's a like a grizzly bear-sized owl that attacks
Yeah.
these guys.
This is one of Dungeons and Dragons' more unique and interesting creations, I think. The owl bear. Just a weird half owl. As far as I know, there's no equivalent in real mythology. I mean, I'm sure there must be somewhere, but
Do they fly?
No, I don't think so. Anyway,
So what's the point? What's
No, he says authoritatively.
I don't know. Maybe they do.
well, some
what's
say
the
they
point
might.
of the owl part then? Why not just have it be a bear?
Maybe
'Cause
just
it's
because they can
cooler?
see so good at night.
Okay.
This guy over here.
And maybe at some point,
So they're
in their-
perverts.
Well, in their evolutionary tree, maybe they could fly in the past. So.
Who's a pervert?
Owl bears. What do they want to see so good at night for?
Is it so perverted to see at night? As I walk around the neighborhood with night vision goggles on.
Does this shock you? Do you see? Do you see
you
the
see?
owl bears?
The owl bear rampant. Do you see?
Yeah, so Doric. They're like, that's Doric. And we learn she's a tiefling. Tiefling?
Tiefling. I
A
pronounce it
tiefling.
tiefling.
Is it
I think
tiefling?
it's tiefling.
Okay. And
Yeah, what's her thing? Both her parents are human, right? And they rejected her because she came out with horns on her head. Is that how?
Yeah, so I don't know
work?
if both her parents were human, then, if you know
tiefling.
what I mean.
Well, they. Oh, yeah.
Do they
she's
have
an
mailmen
extra-
in Dungeons and Dragons?
Couriers.
your mailman is a tiefling. He just comes from another dimension, be like, here's your extra planar mail.
Here's your baby.
Don't mind the horns.
Heard you ordered some extra planar pizza. Oh, why don't you come in?
I don't have any copper.
Cooked in a brimstone oven.
Yes, and she's been alienated because she is a tiefling. So the druids have accepted her. So she likes the druids and she gets along with them. But she doesn't care for Forge because Forge is burning the forest down
Yeah, he
because
cut
he's an
down
asshole.
trees, yeah.
I don't remember if it's like he needs it for
Didn't
a reason.
He like personally victimized her group or something in some way, didn't he?
Well,
Oh,
they're,
and fuck you most of all.
we're
Yeah.
seeing that his, what are they, red cloaks or whatever? There's all of his goons are hassling the Emerald Enclave, who are trying to protect the
But
forest.
I can't remember if there's a reason for it. Like he's not like a Sauron who's like, I need this for industry. Like I'm sure there is a reason, but he never like actually says it. So it just seems like he's literally just being like, oh, I'm an asshole. Let's ruin this forest because why not?
Because picking a fight with druids over a forest is always a good idea.
He's never really been shown to be too wise.
No.
He's cunning, but he.
Yeah, he's basically in the pocket.
High
of-
intelligence, low wisdom.
Yeah.
Like the red wizards are controlling him in a roundabout way, but I'm not sure what that has to do with the druids exactly. But
It seems like it doesn't really seem like they're controlling him. I mean, they hold most of the power, but he realizes that they need him, so he's like fine to.
am I just
he's-
imagining this, or did he have to cut down some kind of special tree?
I
think
think
he
you're
has-
just imagining.
Mitchell, I think that's Avatar. I think
Wait,
you're thinking about
that was from
Avatar.
our D&D
They have to.
campaign.
Forge has to go cut down the
Yeah.
world tree, and all
a
the
common
Navi are
thing.
getting.
Yeah.
So this is when we see Safina talking to her master, who's a Lish.
Oh, he's an awful looking thing. You
his
thought
name
she
is-
was grubby looking.
Yeah.
Now this guy, he doesn't wash his hands.
He's
You can
cadaver.
tell.
A Lish is like a undead necromancer. They're very, very powerful wizards.
But he's like seems to be confined into his realm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can't leave Thayen.
Who is it? Zaz or something? Is that his
Something
name?
like
Oh, yeah.
that. I don't know if he's
Mr.
someone
Zad.
from the
This
books.
is somebody from
It
the
is.
canon, from what I read. He's like one of the most powerful liches in the mythology, right next to like Vecna.
And I
Vecna
do-
is number one.
I do kind of love the pivot in like the tone because like they're all kind of like they're doing their whimsical adventuring stuff, and then it cuts to her and just this terrifying dark figure just like looming in the shadows is like, and now I'm here to completely change the tone of this movie for 30 seconds. I'm gonna be all menacing and back to fun times.
Yeah, and she's like, I can't stand another minute with Forge. And he's like, just be patient. Just be patient. We'll get our means to the end.
soon.
It's just like,
grand
I hate
plan.
that fucking Forge guy. He is so fucking annoying.
He's insufferable.
Which makes sense.
He's a prat.
So the vault of the High Sun games. This is when we see that, right?
Yeah, that's right. So Forge is showing around some of his guests his highly secure vault so that they can put all of their treasures and riches in there, and it'll be safe during the games.
It's an amazing red wizard vault.
It has
He
the
calls them-
arcane seal of Mordenkainen, who is another famous character in D&D lore. There's a couple books that are like the Tome of Mordenkainen, which has like a list of a bunch of stuff in it.
Yeah, there are many spells named after Mordenkainen that he created and stuff.
That guy means business.
It's pretty funny. Forge gets Safina to explain how good the lock is, and she just says it's unopenable or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's
It's
like,
Arcane Seal of Mordenkainen, and they're like, oh, and he's like, oh, that means that nobody can take the treasure from all you rich bastards like us. And they're like,
I do
delightful.
impenetrable, you say?
I'll put my doubloons in there, I think.
We truly are a bunch of rich bastards, aren't we? They just kind of delight in it.
So while this is happening, what's her name?
Doric. She's like a mouse now, right? They sent her to infiltrate and like find out the whole lowdown on this red door.
Yeah, Doric's kind of sneaking around, and
But Sophina like sniffs her out instantly and just kind of turns on a
Wild
dime.
shape is present.
yeah, she just like brings a really different energy to the party because they were really exactly.
Yeah, like
They were
those
just sitting and
aliens
having a
from that
laugh,
one
and then
movie.
Oh yeah.
It's
that Donald
terrifying.
Sutherland movie.
And
This
then
is such a fun scene.
Then we get a druid chase. Like Doric is running through the city, and Safina's being chased, and it's fun.
she transforms 7 times. I can't remember what all the creatures were, but I made a note 7 times.
First she's a
mouse to
rat,
deer to-
yeah, then a hawk.
She ends as a deer, though.
Yeah,
'cause
she
they-
becomes a house cat and then a deer.
that was
and
the
something
joke,
else.
that-
There was like another one that was like an emu or something. It was some sort of mythical creature.
Yeah,
Because there was a group of them and she like goes in. It's all inventively staged. All the action in this movie is.
it's laying out like geography of the city and showing you all different areas of the city, and it just fleshes out the world seamlessly in a very fun and inventive way.
She jumps into a suit of armor as the mouse and becomes human and starts walking away with it. Real sneaky
That a
like.
guard realizes. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Did you guys see that the Oscar best animated feature movie Nimona this year?
No,
They have a chase scene that's kind of similar to this because Nimona
see it.
in that movie, her power is that she can turn into different animals too, and it's sort of cyberpunky fantasy world, and she's running through a castle, transforming into a whale and crashing through the floor. Sort of similar to this.
Nice.
Always fun when there's a person who can turn into a lot of different creatures.
It's a fun thing.
Yeah.
Imagine
you could fly.
what's his name? Maui in Moana. He does that a bunch too.
Mm-hmm,
You become a whale and like splash you, and then become a lizard.
One of the Teen Titans can do that. He can turn into animals.
I mean,
That's
transforming
such
or
a
not,
good power. I
Yeah.
would love that.
I'd
power.
be down with that one.
I just like seeing people who have different powers on these inventive chase scenes, like a Nightcrawler thing, where just people who move differently or like the regular rules of moving through a city don't apply to them.
Traversing walls. What would your guys' number one all-time power be?
Invisibility.
That's a
Pervert.
good one.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm a pervert. I'll own it.
My power would be to see at night.
You guys aren't going creepy enough. My power would be stopping time, because then I can do way worse things.
Oh, that's even creepier
That's the
than
ultimate
I'm in
pervert
rob
power.
people.
invisibility.
What's
You
your
can
pervert
touch.
power, Vaughn?
Why does my ass hurt?
God, time stops an incredible power.
Yeah. There's horrifying implications.
I'd like to teleport.
Oh, wait.
That's a great one.
That's the only way to escape all the other
But how?
pervert
Oh, I
powers.
guess you could like teleport into a locker room, take a picture, and then teleport out like really fast.
Yeah, Ryan tried to think of the practical applications for a teleport.
Can you teleport people's clothes away? Like, is that what you're doing?
You can
like-
teleport in the bathroom with someone.
If we're talking D&D, I mean, teleports only do so much. There's spells like Dimension Door and stuff. But,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what you'd probably want is like a simulacrum of you.
A simulacrum will get you where you're going. Good, reliable.
So you can fuck it? Is that what you're saying? No, like an exact copy of you that you can magically create and it'll suck your dick. Or more so it can go to work for you. And it can also cast spells.
I think if it's an exact copy of me, it's probably not going to want to suck my dick. And it's probably not going to want to go to work.
I've seen enough movies about people cloning themselves and seen how that goes wrong to not want to do that.
I mean,
someone's gonna drop me in a dive tank and like drown me to death. Like,
if it's just about getting rich, there's like a spell that's just like feast, which makes a feast appear, which is completely useless in any application of the actual game. But if you ran a restaurant and you could just be like food every night, I feel like that would be a good way to make money.
Every tavern owner should know that spell.
Everyone knows that's the easiest way to make money. Own a restaurant.
Well,
you don't have to pay for any
You can't
food.
lose.
If you can materialize your food with a magic feast spell.
well, exactly. Like you don't have to pay for any overhead, or like there's like good berry, which is like this. It's like lembas bread in berry form, where it's like this one berry will give you the rest of 7 days. It's like here, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You need to work out. Have one of my good berries.
No.
That's like bar peanuts in Dungeons and Dragons. You're like, have some good berry while you drink your ale.
You don't want to keep people full for longer. You want to give them something that's going to make them hungry, like tapeworm berries or something like that.
Yeah.
So that way they keep coming back and buying more.
Yeah.
Also, let's be realistic. If I
By
get
the
like
way,
one
Vonn,
spell,
you
do
got
like fireball. Fuck this. Just start blowing shit up.
I mean, fireballs are nice, but I mean,
You know,
we have flamethrowers and
Yeah.
all kinds of guns.
Dungeons and Dragons is a polite society because all the people have magic. It's like America, man. Everyone's armed, so everyone's polite there. It's a very polite society.
I've heard that.
You never know who's going to freeze time and do something terrible.
Jesus.
Yeah. But it's mutually assured destruction. You freeze time and molest me, I get you with a fireball next time. So let's not do it.
Yeah, I don't know who in this tavern molested me. Fireball. Now everyone's dead.
None of this is that far off. I mean, the President Biden
Yeah.
is a lish.
Yeah, that's true.
Come on, man.
Explains a lot.
Trump is forged.
I've got a simulacrum of me sucking my own cock, man.
Is that your Biden?
Give me a
America.
man.
Oh, they escaped. Man, gotta have the games.
These are really bad Biden impressions, but I don't know that I can do better.
Biden's kind of a beatnik. Hey, man.
No,
Hey, it's me, Biden, man.
no, not a simulacrum. A dimension door, man. Come on.
Phonogram.
A hither-tither stick, man.
Oh, so you're saying I can get all this money, but I just have to let a bunch of people die? Oh, that's good economics.
Are you doing Biden or a stoner? 'Cause I
Or
can't-
a little bit of Napoleon Dynamite in the mix, I think.
He's senile. He doesn't know.
I feel like that would be even more terrifying. A lich that's gone senile with all their power.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so Simon the wizard says he has only one way to hack the seal, and it's the Helm of
Yeah.
Disjunction.
They need to get the fancy helmet to get through the magic door.
It disables any magic around it, so it would disable the seal, or it disables enough magic. Let's just move along.
I was telling Ryan that any Dungeons and Dragons movie, both these movies are, at the end of the day, when you strip them down, just kind of like, we need the MacGuffin to get to the MacGuffin, so we can open the MacGuffin with the MacGuffin.
It's a heist
Kind of-
movie. It's a
Yeah.
fun heist movie.
This one specifically takes cues from heist movies. Yeah, and that's what makes it fun, because everybody loves a good heist movie.
Yeah, you got to get the gang together. You got to make a plan, and then you get in, you get the loot, and you get out. And
Use all your
there's gonna be
special
some hiccups
talents.
along the way.
Each guy's got an ability that will contribute to the heist.
Well, each guy's got an ability, and everybody in the main gang here has an arc throughout the whole movie too. It's nice. Like all the characters kind of have their goals and objectives, and they change. They change by the end of it.
It's
Unlike
a movie.
the next movie.
Yeah, exactly. Holga says her tribe fought the cult of the dragon for the Helm of Disjunction at the Evermoors 100 years ago. So they decide to go back to Holga's hometown,
Yeah, they're gonna go dig
The
up a bunch of
Elk
corpses and ask
Clan.
them questions.
which is a good excuse to go and see Holga's husband.
It's also a good excuse to go, have some time with some corpses.
Yeah.
So
No
first
excuse needed.
First, they go back to Holga's husband, who they teased ahead was Marleman.
A fun little gremlin man.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
he's
they're
like,
Gnome or a halfling, a very short person played by.
It's a surprise Bradley Cooper appearance.
he's
Yeah.
a tiny little Bradley Cooper. He's a small little man.
He's a
Michelle
real
Rodriguez-
darling sweetheart. He's just like, he's making pies, and he's the home's, like, it's a really funny dynamic that they have where he's just like a sweet, demure little guy who's keeping the home, and
He's kind of earthy. you
yeah,
know?
he's with the provider, and
She's a giant barbarian, and it's a great little clash.
yeah,
You know,
he has a thing,
There's-
and as later we find out, she has a thing. Like they both kind of,
they're kinky for each other.
yeah,
Yeah, they're having an awkward reunion.
yeah. He's like, I
And-
didn't
and
think you'd
it-
get out so soon, or I thought you were gonna be away for much longer.
Yeah.
In comes Gwyn, some other barbarian woman that's even like larger than Holga. It's like, oh well, this is Gwyn, and
She's got like animal blood all over her. She's like, I just slaughtered a deer in the
A
fields. or
bullywag.
something.
She was talking about bullywags.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
bullywag.
Frog people.
Gwyn's like, "What are we having for supper, sweetheart?" He's like, "I cured a goose and gathered some pickleberries."
Pretty much.
Olga's like, "She make you happy?" Well, she doesn't drink like a fish. She doesn't make me weep in the small hours. This scene was fucking hilarious. Bradley Cooper, I don't love, but when he's in comedy, I do love. He's so
Yeah.
funny.
And when he's just kind of sprinkled in a little bit in the movie, he's a lot easier to take. Like his sort of cameo, his small role in Licorice Pizza is hilarious. Where he'll
He's
just like
so
pop in for
funny
like
in that.
5 minutes, and he just
Yeah.
elevates it and takes everything to a place you weren't expecting, and it's so funny here.
Wet Hot American Summer, he's so funny in that. Like,
He's
yeah,
a
when
charming
he wants
guy.
to be funny, he's really funny.
He's got a lot of charm. I even liked him in like Maestro recently. I found him really charming in that.
He kind of channels some of that energy here too, just kind of like that boyish optimism. It's good. At
So Holga leaves, and she's kind of sad about it. Edgin sings her a song to cheer them up. I don't know.
They
I don't
sing
know
a
if
nice
anybody got the
traveling
whole
song.
No, but it's a nice little, it shows that they have a good little friendly dynamic. He starts singing, and then, a bar in, she starts singing along with him. So he knows how to make her feel better. They're good old friends.
They're
It's
best
nice.
mates. They're great traveling chums. They're brave companions.
Yeah, they've
traveling
had
the
so many
roads.
adventures together.
Yeah.
Countless adventures. They go way back. So they make their way to the old battlefield, and they start digging up some of Holga's dead relatives.
Yes,
Old
they have
elk
to,
clan guys.
they have to question these dead guys about where the helm of disjunction might be, but they have this spell that Simon can do that allows them to ask 5 questions. This is a real spell from D&D. It can't speculate on the future. It can't tell
Yeah.
anything that a corpse wouldn't know that before they died or whatever, right?
Just the facts, just what they know.
And
Yeah.
at most they can use 5 questions.
They're limited to 5 questions, and in fact, they must ask 5 questions, or the corpse will presumably remain reanimated for the rest of eternity in some kind of limbo-ish hell state. That's
I think that's kind of a joke for the movie, and it's a good one.
This is a fate worse than death.
a
I've been
nightmare.
brought back to sit in this coffin now until
Kill
the end
me.
of time.
It's very Simpsons, early Simpsons-esque. It's a
Hello?
good joke.
It's like a treehouse of horror
Mrs.
thing.
Pommel Horse.
Yeah.
I'd like to get down now.
Oh yeah, they do every iteration of this joke that they can. The first guy they accidentally ask him 5 questions off the bat, and he just collapses over dead. And they're like, "Ah, fuck, okay,
Yeah, they're
dig
like,
up another guy."
so we can only ask him 5 questions?
Yes.
Wait, did that count as a question?
Yes. Wait.
Okay, only answer when I ask you a question. Okay? Okay.
Why'd you put okay on
I
there?
don't know.
You just wasted another question. Yeah.
Real Abbott and Costello routine
Yeah.
going on with these corpses.
And so they have to dig up one corpse after another, because as they're going through it, they'll dig one corpse up, and they only have enough information to when they died. Like one guy died when he was getting out of the bathtub, and he broke his neck on the day of the battle, and another guy got his head chopped off right before he
He's cut in half.
yeah.
They dig up one person, but it's the wrong family member, and they have to dig up his brother. And he's like, "No, that was my brother who saw that event take place. Dig him up
Yeah.
instead."
You want Sven's Falavin.
This is Sven. I'm Sven's.
I'm the one who died coming out of the bath.
They get great mileage out of this little
They're about
corpse.
they're
smell.
about to leave the guy, and he's like, "But you still have 3 questions." Like, okay, what's your favorite book? Oh, I don't really read much.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food? Oats. No barley.
Do you like cats? Not really. Just drops dead.
Oh, it's good. Eventually, they get all the information they're looking for. They find out that the helm was taken by a Thay named Zank Yendar. And so they're off to go find this guy.
And I like that they have like the little back and forth because Chris Pine's Edgin's like, all Thanes are evil, they're the worst. But everyone else is like, well, actually, I heard that he defeated the evil beholder who was attacking the Emerald Grave. And the other one's like, yeah, I heard he helped some old woman give birth to a baby or something. Like all the stories about this guy are he's great, he's the nicest person around, and he's like the best hero imaginable.
He's like the best guy possible. He's like your girlfriend's ex-boyfriend or something like that. Like like in
He's a parent
Meet the
going.
Parents, he's Owen Wilson, who's just like this amazing guy to like Ben Stiller's kind of,
As a
neurotic
hobby, I do
nutbag.
carpentry, man. Wow. I make a...
I just got in from volunteering at the hospital.
Wow,
helping
I'm
those
a
little
paladin.
kids.
I can help you with your quest, but I gotta go do Meals on Wheels later on this evening.
So, yes, Zank is working with the Harpers at a place called Mornbryn's Shield. And Zank is, like you guys said, he's a classic paladin character, but he's also a classic origin story D&D character in the way that he's broken away from his group. He's from Thay, which is like all evil people.
He's from
And-
Thay. He saw Mr. Zazman turn the people
the
evil,
Lish.
and he fled. He got out of there while the getting was
So
good.
he has to have some tragic backstory, and then instead of being evil like everybody else from Thay, he has to be this paladin.
He's the best.
Which is what he grew up to be, and he's of course this super dreamy guy.
Yes, played by Renee Jean Page, who my girlfriend told me was in Bridgerton,
Yes.
which I have not seen.
My
Bridgerton.
wife said that too.
Yeah, he's
Fanning
super
herself.
hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That show is hot.
Is it?
Yeah.
I haven't watched it.
They're always making love in that show, aren't
Yeah,
they?
it seems kind of like a kind of Harlequin romancy type thing where it's all just like very lofty and regal, but then they go have hot, sweaty sex in the barn somewhere.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to
But
stop time.
you
to
haven't
do it.
watched it?
I've seen like bits and bobs.
Did you find it hot?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The stable master's like, who's been having hot, sweaty sex in my barn?
Oh, he's been having hot, sweaty sex near my yards.
Oh, which cunts have been in here having a hot, sweaty sex?
Oh, servant cunt.
In my barn. You know me sows with child.
I don't think Carl Urban is in that show, but yeah, maybe he just wandered on set one day and started spouting off.
Oh, it smells like hot, steamy sex in here. Nobody thought to invite me.
I think in England they call it meat pie. is their slang for
You've been having a meat pie in here, have you?
Meat pie is slang for what?
for genitals, for lady parts. Yeah.
You two slapping meat pies together in there.
Meat pie or fanny.
I think Mitchell might be making this up.
I think they just like to eat meat pie in England. I don't know.
You could be right. Shepherd's pie, meat cottage
This
pie.
explains why Mitchell's been kicked out of every Sherlock's pub in Edmonton.
Oi, slut.
Hey, I'll have
Give me
the
that meat pie over there.
You mind if I eat this meat pie and here with me pint?
So, yeah, we see Zank right away. He's saving a cat person. What are their names?
I think they're tabaxi. I think that's what they're called.
I never knew that Dungeons and Dragons had cat men.
Yeah, I know in Skyrim there are
They
races.
I
do.
thought that was an
They
Elder
have
Scrolls
the cat people. It's not one of the like traditional races like the bird people.
Yeah, it's in the newer iterations for sure. I don't know it from my old school days.
But yes, the cat persons. There's a cat person, like a fully grown one who's weeping, and then Zank like walks into like a river and pulls out this giant fish and like reaches into its mouth and pulls out a child.
He's like George Costanza pulling a golf ball out of a whale. There's a
Pretty
crowd
much.
around him, and he's doing something amazing.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
look, Costanza.
and everyone cheers, and they're like, "Oh, take this money or whatever."
He,
and
he
he's
does
like,
like the Steve Irwin,
No.
like animal whisperer, like a crocodile Dundee on this fish, where he like looks it in the eye and whispers meaningfully to it, and it releases the cat. And
It's a giant catfish, it looked like.
yeah, no wonder it was eating a cat person.
it was cannibalizing them.
Catfish love the only thing they eat is cat people. But I do appreciate how the cat man looks goofy in this too.
Yes,
like
they look goofy too. You're right.
It's kind of like he's got a big bird kind of feel to him too. Big cat, just that goofy Muppet look.
They look as stupid as cat people should look.
Yeah, exactly.
So he
Vacant
takes
eyes.
them to a Harper sanctuary, and he's part of the Harpers as well.
He's got
and
to flash the secret hand sign to get in.
Edgin right away doesn't like this guy, not just because he's a Harper, but because he's so sanctimonious.
He's
and
better looking than him, and he's more charismatic.
Yeah,
There's a
and
definite jealousy factor going here, too.
He's,
he's
a
like, "You
genuinely
may
good
have-
person.
Yeah.
No, there's no such thing. He's got something to hide.
Edgin's like, "Oh, I'm not a Harper anymore," and he's like, "You may have forsworn your oath, but your oath hasn't forsworn you." He's like,
You are a Harper.
just because that sentence is symmetrical doesn't mean it makes sense.
That's a perfect response.
That's some
Because he's full of
Yoda
those
shit.
like weird wisdoms where it's like,
Yeah.
come on, man.
He's got a twinkle in his eye, like he's got some hidden knowledge about the good in everyone's heart. And
Yeah.
At one point, Michelle Rodriguez is like calls somebody a son of a bitch. She's like, "Oh, so you blame the mother for his temperament?" And she's like, "It's an expression." I see.
so he's
I do not traffic in colloquialisms.
He's a bit like Data too.
Yeah,
that-
totally. Like, he doesn't quite get jokes. He's just very much a.
watched this pot never boils.
He feels like an NPC to me. Like he's not
Yeah.
a character. He only has the lines he can repeat, and he's just there to guide the story forward a little bit.
And at one point, he does just walk off into the horizon in a straight line.
It's very funny.
Like an NPC would, like a computer just walking
This
over
is like
a rock.
the one time the movie gets a little self-referential, but it's like
Yes.
not too much. Chris Pine is just like, there's a rock there. He's just describing it.
Is
as
he
it
gonna
happens.
go around
gonna
it?
walk-
Oh,
Nope,
nope,
right
there he goes,
over
right
top.
over it.
without breaking stride.
But he's been kind of like talking side-eye
I
about
thought
like,
he's hilarious. I
yeah.
think he's
Yeah.
my favorite character in
oh,
this movie.
by far. Me too.
And again,
He's
it's
pretty good.
It's one of those things where it's like you're playing the game, and Mitchell can't make it to next session. Okay, where does Zank go? Well, he just wanders off into the distance. He'll be back
He
later.
walked into the horizon.
We're in the middle of
He's
nowhere.
off.
There's just the ocean on one side and cliffs on the other. I don't know. He just goes off.
He's a wanderer.
But he's clearly a much higher level than everybody else.
Oh,
in
this
this
guy,
movie.
yeah. He's been around. He's seen some shit. He knows everything. He's an amazing warrior.
He has to guide them. Their whole thing is they have to go into Underworld for their next MacGuffin.
And that's the thing, is he does know everything. He sees the monster, he sees the little brains, and he's like, that's an intellect devourer. They do this. And then the intellect devourer sneaks past them, and they're all offended because
Yeah.
it senses mental energy.
That's like the classic dad joke where your dad would put his hand on your head and be like, "Hey, it's a brain eater. What's it doing? It's starving."
Classic dad joke.
Classic. You guys' dad didn't do that?
Yes, mine did, but I forgot about it. I got to bring that one back for my kid.
Yeah.
My kid thinks brains is beards. He can't get those two things straight. So when I'm trimming my beard, he's like, "You're cutting your brains." And I'm like, "No, it's my beard. When you're older, you'll have one too." And he's like, "When I'm older, I'll cut my brains out too." So he always says that.
Given
I'm
the
gonna
old-
cut my brains like Dad.
I gotta give the brain a little trim, hun.
So yeah, he reveals Saz Tam's backstory. Saz Tam is the Lish.
yes.
And he has some sort of spell that he wants to use to turn everybody to wizards. And Zank knows this because he did this in Thay, and Zank was witness to it with his parents or whatever. Zank was a child, and it was like a big, massive red cloud, and it turned everybody into crazy, evil, undead freaks.
It's a big, like, red waterfall mist. Like a big fart. Like a mustard gas attack
you go.
that he does on these people.
Zank goes to Edgin, and he's like, "Swear that you'll give Forge's money when you defeat him back to the people of Neverwinter." And Edgin's like, "Oh, I don't really want to do that." And he's like, "No, promise me you will. I know you will anyway. You're going to give Forge's money to the people of Neverwinter." Like, he foresees the ending of the movie.
I know your character, Edgin.
Yeah.
I see the good in you, my boy. Whatever a paladin calls people.
So they're making their way through everywhere, and they come across this big bridge that they need to get across. And there's a very complicated way to cross the bridge. You need to step. It's kind of like in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where you need to step on the right tiles to make it across. But it's incredibly complicated. It's like 2 steps back. It's like the Contra.
It's like the
hack
Cadillac
code.
Ranch.
Cheat code.
It's like 1 step forward and 2
The
steps back.
Konami cheat.
Up, down, up, down, up, up, down,
Yes.
down,
Up, down,
right.
up, down, left, right, select start.
And
Baby,
that's
baby.
exactly how Zenk describes it. He just stands still in front of everyone for like a minute and gives them this spiel instructing them how to pass this bridge. Like, first you must sidestep left, then you must go forward 1, then you must go forward right, then you must go blah, 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 blah.
Once you get halfway, the whole thing turns backwards, and you can't go right, but you have to go left.
Right? Like, he's just giving the exposition that they need to get across the bridge so that they can understand how to get there.
And while this is happening, Simon puts his foot in the wrong spot,
Fucks
and the
up his
entire
roll.
bridge just collapses, and I'm peeing my pants laughing because it's always funny. If it's in like Fellowship of the Ring when Pippin knocks the bucket down the well, when somebody just fucks things up for
yeah.
everybody, I'm just pissing my pants laughing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, then he has to just kind of sit in his own shame for a minute while everyone gives him the dirty glare. And he has to kind of explain himself. Like, well, I didn't know I was stepping there.
I didn't know the bridge started so soon.
I rolled the critical fail. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, totally.
But then there's another spot here where it's like, okay, this again reminded me of D&D. It's like, okay, these guys just fucked up how to get across, so now I have to throw something at them that will let them get across.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you happen to have in your inventory? That cane that you have? That's actually a super special magic staff.
Yeah,
It's
it
the
turns out
hither-thither
it's a
cane.
hither staff. You can tell it's like Portal. It makes
Yeah.
a portal.
Yeah, totally. Right out of Portal. It does the exact thing that you do in Portal with the Portal guy.
Makes
But it's not
perfect sense.
orange. It's just blue.
Yeah, so now they can just get across. It's a
Yeah, it's a happy little accident.
They're there, they find the helm that they need, and then there's an ambush. So sometime earlier, there's a scene where Safina has some of her buddies come by, and she's just kind of tells them to go and find Edgin and his gang so that they can make sure that he's not a problem. So then this guy comes up. There's a cool magic sword fight where Zenk kicks the shit out of a bunch of low-level people, and then him and I didn't catch this guy's name, have a sweet fight with magical swords. And there's glowing and...
Yeah, the bad guy's got like a glowing green fire sword, and Zank's got like a glowing like kind of paladin aura golden sword, and they're clashing, and it's kind of like lightsabers.
And his sword can shoot out, and it becomes a dagger, and then he can like summon it back or
Yeah.
something.
I don't know if any of these things have names or whatever, but I have liked it.
It's awesome.
It's a
It's
shooty
like a
glow.
summoned weapon or something. I think
Yeah.
is the green one that one guy's using.
It's like his
Yeah.
pact weapon for the D&D nerds.
Yeah, one of my D&D characters had a weapon that could appear and spin around him. That was pretty cool,
Yeah.
like a spectral sword.
Oh, like,
Yeah, mine too.
Like
Yeah, we had the
Yandu's?
spectral sword.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, but Zank he clowns on these guys. He beats them all, hands down. He tells everyone else, like, no, you guys sit back. I got this. We get to see that he is literally the best character. He can beat everyone by
he's
himself.
the most epic fighter ever.
He doesn't need the rest of the gang for this quest. If they were just like, Zank, can you solve this problem? He could deal with it entirely by himself, right? Just
It should be his movie.
the level 20 character wanders in. He's like, yeah, I could save the day. I could do it all, but I'm not gonna for some reason.
You got to learn on your own.
My motivations
Hell yeah.
are mysterious. Goodbye.
So this band of ghouls turns out they're going to come back to life, and so they start to run, and then they awaken a dragon.
A great big fat dragon. Is this a dragon from the Dungeons? and
They
Dragons?
start fat shaming a dragon. In this
Yeah.
movie. They stop for a minute.
They
Can
go
you even
big
fly?
time in on him.
His name is Thembershode.
He must have found a new den. Did he eat the last one?
That's the thing. I don't know if he is from the other thing, like actually from the game, but I do love that. Like if someone was describing, it's like this dragon is just massive, like he's super huge, and then someone's response is like, he's like fat huge. It's like, yeah, okay, fat. It's like, all right, let's roll with this. Like he's not an intimidating dragon. He's a big roly-poly monstrosity, kind of adorable.
He hasn't left the cave in quite some time.
So Thembershad, he's destroying chains holding those volcanic islands aloft above the magma. And it's a very Khazad-dûm-esque scene where they're trying to get away from it, but it's funny. Then eventually they go into a little hole and they're trapped and they don't know what to do. They're in a dead end. They're at some little shrine in there, and they're like, well, this place has got to be full of gas. And so they instruct Simon to use his little candle finger cantrip to ignite
Is
a
it full
boom.
of gas, or is the dragon like
I think the
breathes
dragon's
gas
breathing
and
gas.
then sparks it somehow? Because I feel like that's one of the things I noticed is like,
The dragon's breathing gas.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
breathing gas and he can't get his spark to activate.
The hole is plugged by the
Yeah.
dragon, which,
Yeah.
before long they would run out of air. They
And
had one
they're in
chance.
an underwater cave. They find out the walls start flooding in, so they blow the cave apart with dragon fire and a little finger candle, and then
Dude.
they swim up to the surface.
Do all dragons breathe gas, or is it
No,
just a big fat dragon thing?
and that was
Is it-
actually a fun thing because earlier in it, you do see like when they do the flashback, there's the black dragon flying over, and each of the dragons breathes something different.
Oh, that's
And
right.
he does breathe acid. So the black dragon does breathe its acid when it's flying over and killing people, and the red dragons breathe their fire. So
I like the
I
acid
like
dragon.
that.
Which
Yeah,
color?
man, so tricky, dude.
Just puff the dragon, man. There was a battle here, and then the dragon came, and then we all had acid.
That dragon can't fly either. He
Man,
drives
I'm
a Volkswagen
tripping.
van.
I've been chasing that dragon for the last 300 years, man.
So what color is the dragon that breathes gas? Was he like yellow?
Well, he was red, but he breathes fire, but he uses gas to light on fire, right? He couldn't get his spark going.
It's in a roundabout.
He never
way.
got his
Yeah.
groove back
Yeah,
after he moved
exactly.
into his new
His
cave.
pilot lights out, man. Maybe he needs to like get some of that green gas, get his third eye squeegeed or something, man.
I was just going into the kitchen to put a pizza in the oven. I noticed the light wasn't on, man. This place is filled with gas. Well, we use that dragon.
5 minutes of gas riffing.
What comes out of the green dragon's mammary glands?
Poisonous mammary juices. Milk. Poisonous milk.
It's
Wait a
kerosene,
minute.
man.
Dragons lay eggs. They don't have mammary glands.
Dragons don't make milk, man. At least not in our
But
reality.
roosters don't lay eggs, so the egg's not gonna roll off any side of the barn, man.
It's so true. It's so true.
Oh, but
So yeah, they blow up, and they go through and this is just stuff that's like, who cares? It's magic. This is exactly like when you're playing a campaign. Be like, what if we blow ourselves up and threw the fucking ocean and swam out to safety?
Roll
and your
for
team
it.
would be like, roll for it. Exactly. You roll a fucking 16 or better, chances are maybe you'll make it out.
And they make it to the surface, and Zank says basically he's very proud of them. He says a line, I see a harper shaking off his slumber. And then instead of offering to help them anymore, he says, no, I'm done. My part is done in this quest. And that's it. He wanders off into the distance. They're nowhere near closer to finishing the things. They do have the helm. They could still use his help, but no, Zank is done.
I love that. I love that he just pops in, pops out. Is the best part of the movie. My favorite part of the movie too. Like,
There's a
I'm
part.
surprised. I thought I was the only one who loved Zank because
No,
I read
Zank's-
the reviews of this movie and I saw criticism of Zank. People were like, Zank is bad. Zank's an NPC. I don't know. Maybe they just have a hate on because he's on Bridgerton or something. I
I don't
thought
know.
he was
Who
super
gives a shit if
funny.
he's an NPC? There should be NPCs
He's
in here.
perfect straight man.
Here's the thing. There's a part in the next movie where they basically say the same line. And when they say it, I'm like, fuck you. Like that that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But when Zank basically says the same thing because it's like it fits in with the story and the way they've been doing it, I'm like, yeah, okay, it works for me. That the super overpowered paladin's like, all right, I'm out. Like, you guys have to figure this out yourself. But it's like,
Yeah.
it works because it fits within like the narrative that they've had going so far, where it's like this is kind of like a non-character who is clearly not there to help them throughout the rest of the movie, right? Like they have to deal with the problem themselves.
Gave them a little guidance, and
Yeah.
off he goes.
He helped them out with their impossible task. If he wasn't there, they would have died like half a dozen times. Well,
Yeah.
at least twice.
Yes.
They would have fallen in the lava for sure.
The assassins would have killed them. The dragon would have beat them. I think there's one point where Zank saves them all from falling off the bridge. It's like, yeah, he's here for this one scene.
Yeah.
All the reviewers who hate Zank are obviously just experiencing the exact same thing Chris Pine's character is experiencing. Where you're like, here's this perfect guy who I'm jealous of him. I hate him.
Man, my
They're
girlfriend says I
insecure.
should be more like Zane. And I don't like that.
He's got muscles.
Oh, what
and
girlfriend?
He's got dreamy eyes, and he's a
Yeah.
paragon of virtue.
I watched this movie with my wife. I've seen it before, but I watched it again the other night with her. She really liked it too.
Same thing. Me too. She just like came down in the basement. She's like, "Oh, what are you watching?" And she just sat down and watched the whole thing.
I
She saw
told
the
her, I was
paladin
like, I
on
gotta
there.
watch one of 2 Dungeons and Dragons movie. One of them you're gonna probably like. Do you want to sit down with me and watch?
This movie's so
They were
watchable.
both awesome.
You gave her your own Faustian choice. Pick one movie to watch, wife. Choose wisely.
Choose wisely, wife. For it may be your last.
This choice is no trifle.
I'll pick the good one.
She's like, did you not get the divorce papers?
I'll sign them when we're done watching this.
Sign them, I may be.
You are quite cunning.
Critical fail.
So Zank leaves them all, and Simon now is attempting to attune with the helmet, but he's having troubles. He can't get past some sort of seal inside. And then they find...
It's an apparition of his great-grandfather that's like, fuck off, you're not worthy, bye.
Yeah, Simon comes from
yeah.
kind of a bit of legendary bloodline, or at
Yes.
least, his great-grandfather was a wizard or a
Elminster.
sorcerer.
Elminster, a very famous wizard in the D&D lore.
Yeah, he's like the Gandalf or the Dumbledore of D&D lore in the Forgotten Realms universe. Yeah.
He's like the most famous of the wizards. He's super powerful, and Simon is a descendant of him, so everyone assumes Simon should be a great wizard as well, but Simon's a bit of a fuck-up. A little
Yeah.
incompetent sometimes.
And here we find out that Simon was always doubtful of being able to attune with the helmet, and Edgin brought everybody along for no reason. So it's the down point. Everybody's feeling down. They think it's hopeless, and then Edgin begins to have a big motivational speech and gets everybody back on board, and says, "You know what? If we can't go with Plan A, we'll go with Plan B. We'll figure something out." But
Is this...
It's a pretty heartfelt scene.
it's good.
Because he's like, well, what are you going to do? And, it goes one by one through the group, and they're all like, well, I guess, I have to stay into this. And he's like, and they're like, what about you? And you're a loser. And he's like, well, yeah, I'm a champion of failures. Like, I lost everything I've ever loved, and it's my fault. Like,
Yeah.
And everybody's
It
on
hit.
board. Yeah.
This is kind of his come to Jesus moment where he reveals
Come to Jesus.
Saying the word Jesus
Excuse
burns
me.
Mitchell's throat. It's like looking at a Bible.
the airways are closing. What's happening? Well, this is where he reveals his complicity in his wife's death, where he stole some kind of special rock that belonged to the Red Wizards, and that's why they killed his wife. And so he,
A special rock, also known as gold.
Yeah. It was just
it's
some
like this special shiny rock people use. I don't know.
Yeah, they
people
mark
draw
their
like
gold.
faces on one side and
So they know where the gold is, and they're able to track
birds
it down.
on the other.
I'm not a geologist.
what is this magic piece of paper? William Lyon Mackenzie.
There's some
$5 Canadian.
What does it mean? So yeah, it's because of him that his wife died. So he carries a heavy guilt with him, and he convinces everybody to go ahead with the plan. So then we're getting really geared up for the final heist of the movie.
It's a very involved plan.
And it's Holga. So earlier in the movie, Chris Pine's character talks about what he contributes to the party, and he's like, "I'm the planner. I come up with the best plans." But it's Holga here who actually comes up with the best plan, where it's like, well, why don't we sneak something in with the hither thither staff, and then we can teleport in? And it's like, oh, great idea, barbarian.
Yeah, so they go and find some portrait, and they put a portal on one side of the portrait, and they cut it out and cover the portal, and their plan is to sneak this painting into the wagon that's going to go into the safe, the vault in the city. So that's how they're going to get in.
And for the D&D
Genius.
nerds, it is a portrait of Volo. So that's another character.
Oh, I didn't notice that
Yeah,
was Volo.
when I was
Well,
like,
you
when I
didn't
was
tell me it
looking
was
it up.
Volo.
Volo is kind of
I would expect you to tell me that off mic.
Yeah.
Who or what is a Volo?
Mitchell doesn't know Volo. This guy doesn't know Volo. You don't know Volo.
I cast thee out.
Well, he looks like a fun-loving guy.
Yeah.
He looks like one of those Renaissance paintings. He's like
he's a big deal. Let me tell you.
He's a recurring character.
He's
in
like the
D&D
Fonzie of
lore.
the Renaissance. Mitchell was doing finger guns.
Yeah.
For those of you who couldn't see.
He kind of looked
Volo
like
Volo is the chronicler of the D&D universe.
Yes.
He's kind of
Okay.
like the journalist. He keeps track on what everybody's doing, and he
Yes.
writes all the books.
Well, he looks good. He's got a nice, like a big hat on. It looks like he's got a
I
good
can't
look
believe
to
I
him.
missed that detail. I was too busy furiously typing my notes.
I didn't know specifically who it was either, but when I was like looking things up, that's what they said, that it was a portrait of Volo. So
Now that
I'm not
think of
that much of a nerd. I can't pick him out just by looking at that portrait.
Volo. I'd recognize him anywhere.
Volo's big. It's like Elminster. Like these are like the biggest archetypes.
When
in the
I see
universe.
Volo on screen, I feel like I'm greeting an old friend. We go way back.
Pretty much. So yeah, they sneak the Volo painting into a chariot that's full of treasure that is going into Forge's vault. So they'll use that as like a teleport way to get in.
Yeah, it's done through a sequence that's exciting. They need to catch the chariot on the go.
Hijinks.
Yeah, they almost get caught a couple times. They
Yeah.
manage to get it in there.
Some soldiers see Holga up on the ridge there, and it looks like she's doing something weird with a body or something.
The hanky panky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hinky pinky.
One of them is like halfway through the portal, and she's trying to pull him out or something, and
Yeah.
it looks like she's banging him in the
She's
butt.
doing the wheelbarrow with him.
Oh, is she having meat pies up there?
This whole sequence is really funny and really impressively staged, but talking about it, we can't do it justice.
No, it's a good action.
It's
set
highly
piece.
visual.
It's kind of like the Wild Bunch scene.
So they've successfully gotten their portal painting inside the vault. They go into an inn and go into a little room there, and they find out that their plan isn't working because the other side of the portal is now facing down on the bottom of the vault.
The painting tipped over when they brought it in the vault, and it's
Clumsy
face down,
guards.
and
Yeah, they can't just jump through it into rock, solid rock.
Turns
it's pretty miraculous that the portal is like the exact size of the painting. Or is there some kind of magical reason for
Well,
that?
that's what they were shopping for. They had to make sure they got the right dimensions.
Oh.
They didn't show the 15-minute scene where he perfectly measures it and calculates its circumference. That would have been too much.
That would have been better in a better film.
Only Lord Volvo's painting is the proper size to put the portal inside of.
It's
Lord
Volo.
Volvo.
You nitwit! It's Boldo.
I'm no historian. I'm a mere rogue. A half-elf rogue.
So they're like, okay, Simon, you got to sneak in. And they introduce these sending stones, which are like walkie-talkies. They're
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
They talk about how the helmet will turn off all magic, but it doesn't turn off the sending stones.
Because
So
sending
I am
stones are an artifact. Or
Furious.
Yes, that's part of the old magic. That's not affected by the new. That's part of the. Your little exception there is a new magic.
You must still be
clause.
working with the 5th edition. We got a sneak peek at 6E.
Sorry, Ryan. This is like not a safe space for you. You're so triggered by it.
So
I got nothing.
they decide to kind of all hatch separate plans. So basically, Doric is going to try to chip away at the stone and make a big enough gap so she can turn into a little worm and crawl through there. Edgin is he does like a bit of a Total Recall type plan where he dresses. Wait, no, this is a simulacrum. So
it's an illusion.
It's an illusion. So can an illusion suck your dick or
gives
not?
himself a blowjob. That's his part of the
An
plan.
illusion cannot suck your dick, unfortunately.
Yeah, they send in an illusion of Edgin doing a song for a diversion, and it just glitches out hilariously because Simon's not that good of a sorcerer.
Yeah. The heat is on now. Edgin's on the run. Simon's trying to frantically attune with it. He's trying to get in near the vault and frantically attune with the helmet. Doric's trying to get in there, and it's a nice little three-way action sequence where everybody's just in an intense situation.
Holga-
It goes bad, and Holga has to fight a whole bunch of guys.
Yeah,
yeah.
and she ends up in like an armory or something. So it's like, all these weapons just laying around, and she's like doing the Jackie Chan thing where it's like, oh, here's a helmet I'll beat someone with, and here's an axe I'll beat someone with. And
Awesome soundtrack
Yeah.
here. The music's really pumping, and you're feeling it.
Yeah,
And
people are getting wrecked.
yeah, and Holga gets into a big fight, and then her axe winds up inside of in the forge or something like that, and it turns into a sweet new magic or
Scary looking axe.
scary looking axe.
She's like, I don't hate that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's cool. The whole sequence is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine
Yeah.
fun in a movie.
I don't like it.
And so Edgin's on his way, and then he finds Kira. And he, kind of apologized to him, and then Kira starts laughing and and turns into Safina. And Edgin's been tricked again.
So I thought of it more as like a Dr. Evil laugh, like, because that is kind of what it was. She turns into this bald lady.
She just loves her job. She hates working with Forge, but she loves tricking people with her dark magics.
Born to do that kind of work.
Yeah, she's never worked a day in her life.
Yeah, she turns into Sinead O'Connor and she rips up a picture of the Pope. She says, "I never loved you, Father."
And she hasn't been invited back on SNL since.
Mm-hmm.
And she summons her big black tentacles. They wrap around Edgin.
And and then Forge comes in and
Hot.
just kind of says that he knows. Yeah, I had to pause the movie for a minute when the tentacles came out of the floor just to kind of compose myself.
Yeah, I was like
Yeah.
that guy at the Love Lies bleeding, screaming, just jacking off, doing coke.
Fell asleep with your pants down.
You said you watched this movie with your wife, right?
Yeah.
She had to pause it when Zank was there. You had to pause it when this came up. We get it. It happens.
Yeah. Something for the ladies and the fellas in this movie.
But at this point, Hugh Grant, I think, has one of my favorite lines of the movie. He's sitting there and he gives like his spiel about how he's not going to let Kira die and you don't have to worry. And he's like, I don't want to see you die, which is why I'm going to leave the room. which to me is like, that's just the perfect line. It's like, okay, I don't want to see it, but I'm not going to stop it.
Now I'm in a pickle because I don't want to see you die, which is why I'm going to leave the room.
Oh, Mickey Blue.
So Edgin pleads with Safina to let them fight in the arena.
And she's down for it. She's like, "Fine, let's do it." And Hugh Grant's kind of like,
They kind of frame it like, well, how about this, Hugh Grant? If you let us fight in the arena and we win, then we can go free or whatever.
Hugh Grant's like, well, there's
They're
no
like, okay,
point.
fine. They're like, okay, if they do win, we'll just kill them anyway. Doesn't matter.
And yeah, so also at this point, what the fuck, the wizard, the sorcerer, Simon, he manages to attune with the helmet, and his grandpa appears and is berating him like, you're a fuck up. You're not a has-been. You never was.
It's like,
So-
get me a switch.
Yeah, so he punches out his grandfather, and that lets him use the helmet. And at the same time, Doric has managed to wiggle her way through the hole,
Yeah.
and she's in the room with all the treasure. So like they all think they're about to converge on the treasure, but when Simon and Holga go through, they're just in an empty room. And it turns out that Hugh Grant has done the old switcheroo.
yeah. So basically, he's been planning to fleece everybody who's leaving all of their bounties in his vault and sail away while Safina does her Joker gas plot. And what's interesting with Simon, when he was finally able to attune, his grandfather turned into him. It turns out that he was blocking himself the whole time.
Of course.
The power was within him.
He just had to roll that 20.
Yeah.
That's a little
he
like...
he rolled a high confidence check,
Yeah,
a
he had
critical
to pass
confidence.
that skill check.
That's kind of like Luke Skywalker going into that tree in Dagobah and seeing Darth Vader, and then he like smacks it with his sword, and it turns.
Don't put the helmet on.
It looked like me, Lord Yoda, or whatever he says.
Lord, Yoda.
Destruction on you, Will.
Put the helmet on. Take
I'm
off the rest of your
someone you
clothes.
have.
must.
Only what you bring in.
Put on these robes.
When 900 years old you are, let's see how good you look. Now take off your clothes.
There's a line like that in the 2000s D&D where that sexy, foxy elf is like, "How old are you?" "Well, I'm 220.
Exile on Dagobah has made me very lonely. Has made me
220 for an elf. Too young.
too old.
She's too old. Can't teach her.
So yeah, they find out Forge's master plan, and then they're all put imprisoned together, and they have to go through this big gladiator type obstacle course, hedge maze thing. It's filled with traps. Everybody's
They're like in it's a giant Roman Colosseum, and then like a bunch of things pop up through the floor. You can kind of
the
see
tiles,
the layout of the dungeon. Like there's treasure chests, and then the walls start filling out, and it turns into like a labyrinth type thing.
And
It's
so,
pretty sweet.
Yeah, the release. If you get to the center, then you live, you survive. For that round, at least, you don't really know what happened. Nobody really makes it to the center, or the idea is you won't.
There's all kinds of fucked up shit in this maze. There's a rattle cat. That's what I call it. It's that panther with things that come out of its ass, tentacles.
Oh, I call that a Venus flycat.
They called it a displacer in this.
It's a displacer.
Yeah,
piece.
you see the noble people being like, "Have you tried displacer meat? Oh no, too tough, too gamey."
And I do quite enjoy the when they actually hit this illusion monster. I like the way it's just the illusion starts to fade. I found that was a good effect.
Yeah.
In my own world, the world of MacIsaacium, I call them rattle cats.
And that's fair. You make it your own.
So yeah, the maze is filled with traps. The rattle cats are after them, can project illusions. There's some treasure chests that have weapons. Everybody's unarmed. Some of the treasure chests turn into monsters.
The Mimic, a classic D&D monster.
yeah.
The chest that turns into a monster.
That was a great for me as a middling D&D player. I was like, yeah, that was a clapping and laughing moment. Mimic, I recognize Mimic.
That one and the gelatinous cube. I feel like those are
Gelatinous
two
cube.
kind of
Yeah.
classic D&D things that I'm really glad they
there were some
included.
sweet
Yes.
classic dungeon monsters in this scene.
It's like the people that made this movie have
Yeah,
played D&D before.
Well,
our fans.
that was one of the things on Freaks and Geeks is they all played D&D. So I'm sure that John Francis Daly has been playing it since
that's
for
right.
the last 20 years at least.
Yeah.
That was a plot element for a bit in there in Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
matters. So the stinging gel cubes, I don't know what they're
Gelatinous cube.
called. Doric sticks her arm into it, and it takes her magic suppressor off. All the magic users got these cuffs on their wrists that suppress their magic.
Yeah,
Aptly named.
Wow.
So she can transform again.
that was a bit of a gamble on her part. She's like, okay, we're all going to jump into the gelatinous cube. Everybody jump in, and I guess she just kind of had faith that it would take her bracelet off so she could turn into a snake.
Well, her bracelet was already off because she gets stuck in it originally, and Holga pulls her out.
Okay.
and then
gotcha.
she's like, "Oh, now I have a plan."
So as all this is going on, every so often a gong will bang and the outer layer of the maze will just sink into the floor. So they
That's
realize
right.
that they don't actually want to go to the middle because it's just going to they'll probably get killed or something like that. So they decide to run back
Yeah.
and jump into the gelatinous cube just as the gong is ringing, so then they can escape the maze from underneath.
Genius.
Yeah, and it works. Doric turns into a snake and she wriggles free and she's able to pull everybody out of the gelatinous cube.
Clever.
Can I get some gelatinous cube for the table, please?
That was a very popular dish in the 70s. Every household had a
Yeah, all the
gelatinous
old
cube
cookbooks
mold.
with hot dog chunks.
They come
in
out looking
there.
like they sink to the bottom. They look like your aunt's dessert that she would bring to Thanksgiving.
You cook it
Like
in the
cherries and
microwave.
Jell-O.
Ain't nobody touching that.
It's in microwave cooking for one. That's that classic cookbook. Gelatinous cube.
And we also
Single
see,
people know. In David Tell's new special, he's like, "You want to know what loneliness looks like? Your own reflection in the microwave glass."
It's so true.
So the party makes it to this boat, and Forge and Kira come and confront them. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're just about to go, and they have a bit of a showdown. And basically, Edgin lays it all out and basically
jig is
says,
up.
"Yeah, he's like, I didn't really want to bring your mother back. I wanted to bring my wife back. I'm sorry for abandoning you." And he just kind of has a heart-to-heart that he's had to have with his daughter for pretty
Yeah.
much her whole life. Or
He's
at least
like,
the
"I
last 2
kind of
years."
wasted it on Safina earlier."
I actually
is
wasted my
funny.
apology. But
I wasted the good apology on you.
he pulls out because
It's so true. It's like when we're podcasting and we have a good conversation or have a bunch of jokes ahead of time. It's like, shut up, we gotta save this for the microphone.
But as they're they've cornered Forge, and he's like, "Oh no!" and he pulls a knife on Kira, and he's like, "I'll do something evil if you don't, because I'm not really a nice person." And the way they defeat him, of course, is Holga looks over and she sees just a stack of potatoes.
Yeah.
She just chucks it at his face, and it goes in
Man.
slow motion and just
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, potatoes have played a big role in this whole movie.
She's loved potatoes the whole movie. She loves to eat them. She loves to use them as a weapon.
They get Hugh Grant, and then they're sailing away with all of the gold. And as they're leaving, they look back and they see these very ominous, dark, swirling clouds descending on the Colosseum, and they decide that they're going to be heroes after all. And they turn back and they hatch a plan to stop this whole zombification thing from happening.
But it's also great at this point because you cut back to Safina, who's like standing in the middle of the room with all like the wealthy elites, and she's like chanting like,
She's such a buzzkill.
and like the rich people are like, what is she up to? You stop that right now. And then they go back to gambling, and she's just like cackling with darkness.
Yeah, whatever that is, you stop it. You. Yeah, then she fills the room with her mustard gas.
And
Red
she kills all the
smoke,
rich people. Luke, how do you feel about that?
I'm on her side.
But don't they
So
turn
far,
into
so far.
licks? Don't they come back? Liches?
Is it I always thought it was
liches,
lich.
It's a
likes-
lich.
A lich.
I feel like they're
lich.
just like zombified monsters. Like she's a lich, and Zaz Tam is a
Okay.
lich. They're
And
just
her,
like her.
thralls.
Yeah.
Is it like as you kind of bring more liches under you are like, is it like Amway, where if you get in, you have more people who
Yeah.
can come in underneath?
I mean,
you?
maybe it's
Well,
like
no,
a
this is
pyramid
a scam. Amway is for real.
right.
Yeah, I've got some I'd like to sell
It's
you.
a real
You're
good
lich.
business
Just-
opportunity I'd love to tell you about
You're
later
over in
off
Baldur's Gate. Someone starts knocking on your door, and you open it, and it's just Kane corpse. Like, have you heard of this product? It's like, get off my property. Oh,
I wouldn't even know if a decaying corpse was weird. I'd be like, I saw a dragon man earlier and a cat person. If a decaying corpse came to my door, I'd be like, oh, come on in, man. Let's have a drink.
Don't you hate it how your burlap sacks always give out at the harvest time?
I do
Now
hate
these
that.
burlap sacks, they're double woven. Door-to-door sales.
I am so glad this lich visited me.
You have a bag of holding? Well, have you tried this bag of holding?
Shown to hold twice as much as the competitor.
Man, I thought.
I don't really
what's
need
infinity
one.
times two? That's what my D&D character had in his knapsack, was a bag of ball bearings.
That's
so I feel
useful.
like that's a pretty standard thing to have in a bag.
The
of
Kevin
holding.
McAllister setup.
Yeah,
Classic.
exactly.
Slingshot ball bearings.
I never got to like put them on a staircase and make a guy slip though. I don't think, or maybe I did, but that was my ultimate goal.
We've been ambushed by a wild Joe Pesci.
Put them over.
That's what the next villain you guys were gonna face before we cut the session short. It's like you're gonna get sent to the Underdark,
man.
and you're gonna meet a Joe Pesci who's trying to break into a castle, and you got to stop him.
I would've
He's armed
tried.
with a pencil. Look out.
Man,
Play notepad.
I would have put my sword on a string and then it would have hit a paint can and knocked it into his face. It would have been the ultimate.
Okay, let's get through this stupid fucking movie.
Yeah, okay.
We're nearing the end.
So they're on their way back, and they have a plan, and it involves finally this hot air balloon that they keep cutting to every time you see the town. Just Hugh Grant's big fat head circling around everything. It pays off. So Edgin decides that he's going to make good on his promise to Zank, and so they make a portal reluctantly, but he's a reluctant hero. And so they make a portal in Hugh Grant's big ass mouth, and at the bottom of the boat
Yeah.
filled with all the treasure, and then it
Again,
starts spewing gold.
Perfect shape. It's the perfect shape for Lord Volvo's painting, and it's the perfect shape for Forge's balloon
Volvo.
face.
I mean, it's a big ass blimp. It's gonna fit on there.
Yeah, true enough. But it looks like a really nice mouth hole size.
Yeah, it's a good looking mouth. Yeah, I was admiring the size of the mouth hole too. It's really
fine
giving me
mouth
some.
And the gold starts falling from the giant mouth hole from the boat out of the balloon, and all the people are like, "Oh, it's Lord Forge's promise!" And they all start fleeing from the temple and avoiding the
Yes.
toxic
Yeah,
gas.
and
And
it's a,
so
leading
it's
them
a
away
mega
from the
douche
game.
chill for Safina.
she's like, "Oh,
she's
fuck,
super
I was so
pissed.
close."
What a shitty plan she had if it was so easily foiled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, why did you stop? Like, just keep letting it expand. Like, it's going to take the entire city. You don't need them all in the
Yeah,
one
just
place.
Keep going. Power through. Keep trucking.
Yeah, she gave in like a fucking quitter, and she gets all pissed off about it. So then we have a big showdown
Yeah.
between.
Probably on her period or something. Guys.
Jesus.
What are you on
Dude, can
your
you imagine
period?
a red wizard on their period?
It might sound a little
I don't
bit
want
something like this.
I could imagine.
Spells, magic spells.
So she's launching fireballs at them like
Yeah.
crazy.
So I
Like
have
she
a,
would.
I have a list of all the spells that are cast in kind of order.
Hit us.
She's like, okay, she calls down the meteor storm, and then Simon counters that with like a shield. Then the owlbear jumps on her, and I'm pretty sure she uses a thunder wave. And then she brings the golem to life and starts teleporting with Misty Step.
And now she's distracted.
Nice.
She needs to stay focused on the golem.
And that's the thing. They do the old Rancor trick. The golem's about to chomp Holga, but Edgin jumps in and shoves the thing in its mouth so it can't do its chomp.
Can't close its jaws.
And then Doric does something clever because she grabs, I think it's a piece of garlic out of like a like I don't know what it is. Like it's a small thing that's like with a bunch of vegetables, and she shoots it as a slingshot, and that's enough to like distract this super powered evil witch.
Is that a weakness for witches?
No,
Garlic?
no. She gets hit in the head by a little ball. Like I don't think it's garlic. I don't.
I
know.
kind of thought it might
She
have been a
also-
throwback to the gourd statement from earlier.
Maybe it is, but it breaks her concentration, and the golem turns to stone, and then she's like.
That was a Drake statue, right?
Yes, and then she summons her her creepy hand, which is I
That's-
think a big
Yeah,
hand.
just
Big Toronto
It was a-
artist.
it was a
Begbie's
statue of him.
crushing fist, right?
it was a statue of him sending DMs to Millie Bobby Brown.
It was
Different Drake.
it was about to defeat them, and then Kendrick Lamar's statue came to life and started rapping at it, and it was like, he's too powerful.
Dead instantly.
There was beef.
Yeah, so the Bigsby's hand, and then there's
Yeah,
two
ask
of
your
them.
grandparents, people who hear this from months from now, be like, what are they talking about?
Drake was a rapper before he got incinerated.
Yeah, so they have the two hands, like they're facing off with each other, and of course you get the classic tumbleweed just rolling through.
Hand-to-hand combat.
The look on your face, just so happy. Like
I
you're
made
like,
I made that joke to Ryan earlier when we were watching it, and he was like, "Write that down."
he's just like, just wait till they hear this one. Just his
I
eyebrows.
was like,
were-
"I am writing it down."
his eyebrows came clear off of his head. They were raised so high up.
Oh, wait, Ryan had a good pun too, though.
I don't remember.
Oh, I can't remember
But
either.
the two hands go at it, and like her hand is like made of like viscera and like flesh, and his hand, Simon's hand's like a rock hand, and they start mercy fighting. And then at this point, she gets like the Kratos Atreus like treatment at the end of God of War, where there's like all the people just start running up and like fucking punching her in the head and like smashing loots over her head, and she's like, what the like they're all beating the shit out of her, and then she does the big trick. She stops time again, and they are fucked. Game over. Nothing you can do about it. They're all frozen.
That's such a cheap
Or is
move.
there?
Dun dun dun.
And that's when she's going up and she's talking shit to Edgin.
She's
and,
doing her parlor speech.
and he's like, oh, were you saying something? And she's like, what? I thought I time stopped you. She looks down at her wrist and she's got her fucking magic suppression cuff on.
Yeah.
Guess what? Kira, Edgin's daughter,
tricked her.
she snuck around with her invisibility pendant and put that little magic suppression cuff on her wrist.
Everything pays off in this movie. It's so good.
Which was it's good that they did this, because time stop is totally the move. Like if you use that move in a fighting game, that's the move that makes someone rage quit. you
Time
know?
stop with some night vision goggles. That's a combination I wouldn't want to go again.
It's so cheap.
Well, the point is that Simon has improved enough that he could counterspell it. She's not smart enough to realize.
Yeah.
So Owlbear then comes up.
Yeah.
This is
and
like
straight Hulk smashes her.
it's totally biting
Yeah.
the Hulk Loki thing at the end of Avengers.
Totally.
But it works. It worked for me then. It worked for me in this one. I appreciate somebody getting pummeled like that.
I didn't hate it.
And it's good because she gets
No, I
like
liked
she
it.
gets smashed. The shit gets smashed out of her, and they're like, "Okay, you've done enough." And then she like starts to reach out with like her decrepit hand, so she just smashes her a few more times, chucks her through a wall,
Get her
and that's
good.
the end of it.
Yeah, she's buried in a pile of rubble.
Yeah.
Bye bye, Safina.
But
Puny red wizard.
what happened? Something
Hulk has
terrible.
been stabbed by Safina's red wizard's blade. I didn't see it happen. So they're singing their song, "Let's tip the tankard and waste the days."
Very touching.
It's
send-off.
very emotional sucker punch here, because it shows a bunch of flashbacks of like Michelle Rodriguez like playing with Kira and having fun and, and stuff like that. It's like it just really jams everything in here for an emotional sucker
Well,
punch.
this is where you like realize, like Edgin realizes that that Holga is
Is the
Kira's
mother, yeah.
She's she doesn't have her birth mother, but she has Holga as a mother.
I may
Never
not
knew her
be your
birth
mother,
mother.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the other
but
thing.
I
like,
am your mommy.
we didn't mention that, but like literally at the beginning of the movie, she's a baby when the mom dies, so she literally has no idea who her mother actually was. So, you know,
God,
they,
this movie actually the feeling parts hit me a little bit. So
Yeah.
so they whip out the Tablet of Reawakening, and they realize that it's best to use it on Holga.
They wasted
and
on Holga.
There's one thing we didn't mention that popped up repeatedly throughout the movie. There's just this little dragonfly flying around, which is a reference that, like, the very beginning.
It's a real if you love something, let it go metaphor where basically instead of trying to catch something, he keeps trying to catch a dragonfly, but really you just have to open the door, and that's the best way to deal with a problem sometimes.
Good. That'd be weird if it landed on him and he just swatted it by accident.
It's his wife's soul.
Oh,
They didn't
My
kill
wife.
me. They trapped me in
Dang
this body.
bugs.
my wife.
So they bring Holga back to life, and it's a very touching moment. And she's like, "You used it on me, you big dummy." And then they just kind of, they go off as friends.
And Ed has one last cheesy line where it's like they're all at a tavern or something, and he's like, "I am with my people," and I'm like, "Yeah,
We are family. They all hold up a Corona, and they say,
yeah." Vin Diesel comes walking. There's nothing
It is like the
stronger
end of
than
it.
family.
It is like the end of a Fast and Furious movie where they're just like the end of any heist movie when you get together and
They
just
should have been pulling Coronas out of a cooler filled with ice.
And
A
then
wedge.
We cut to
Coronas.
Forge, who is now in the prison they're in, and he's giving them, like, he's telling the story to the council, and Jonathan is there, and all the other people are there, and they're like, "Oh, we're not going to pardon you," so he tries to pull the same move they did.
Jonathan.
The old
Exactly.
Jonathan.
The Jonathan classic, but they've bricked up that window, so Forge is still stuck. That
Yeah.
son of a bitch.
Jonathan's a
That's
liability.
a funny mid-credits scene. Really
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, that was Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. We're gonna take a little break, and we'll be right back with Dungeons and Dragons.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
All right, welcome back. We're here to talk about Dungeons and Dragons 2000.
We're here.
We're here. We're clear. We didn't like this movie.
Get used to it.
Yeah, it's Dungeons and Dragons 2000, directed by Courtney Solomon. A bit of a passion project. He had bought the rights for this movie like 10 years before they made it.
Years prior. Yeah, he was like a teenager.
Yeah.
I don't know where you get the money for this. Like, I looked up his bio and I couldn't find anything about it. Like, his dad isn't an owner of an emerald mine or anything.
Like, honestly, back then, like in 1990, he probably could get this for like a song. Like Dungeons and Dragons wasn't nearly as popular in the mainstream as it is now. Now we've had things like Stranger Things that are like have really normalized it, and people think it's cool now. Nobody thought it was cool in the 90s.
It's normalized now.
Yeah. What edition
Well, like,
was Dungeons
For
and
the
Dragons
worst.
on at this point?
third edition. And the other thing I was thinking was, did you guys ever see that Tom Hanks movie where, like, I don't know what it's called, but it's basically it's a,
Mazes and Monsters.
yes, where it's like
yeah.
it's the
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
basically like, the scare where it's like Dungeons and Dragons is making your children devil worship.
Yeah.
Like, that's the premise of the movie.
They had the satanic panic in the
Wow.
80s around Dungeons and Dragons, and this Tom Hanks movie was all about what if that was real, and Tom Hanks and his group of friends play Dungeons and Dragons. He gets his mind corrupted, and he can't tell the difference between reality and fantasy anymore, and he's about to jump off a pier, and his friends are like, "It's not real, Tom Hanks. It's not real." And he's like, "I'm not Tom Hanks. I'm Robespierre the magician," or whatever his name is.
Coming attraction.
Yeah.
Big time. I gotta
Let's put a
see
pin
this
in that.
movie.
Like-
I have not seen this.
I've never seen it, but I've heard about it.
Well, growing up, my family's very Christian, and that was like a whole thing. It was like, oh, you can never play Dungeons and Dragons. My dad, to his credit, was always a fantasy guy. He wasn't quite like that. Like, we played Hero Quest. and
Yeah. Big board
he's
game
a
guy.
big Tolkien guy and all of that. So, like, it wasn't like total panic about fantasy properties in my house
Just
anyway.
Dungeons
But
and
like,
Dragons. It had such bad PR.
we were aware, of the Dungeons and Dragons being totally satanic.
Oh, my mom wasn't in for it either.
She's super Christian
Yeah,
too, right?
she still probably doesn't like it. I don't know.
She found your
Don't talk to her about
character
Dungeons.
sheets in your bureau, and she was like, "Vaughn, we need to have a serious
Who
talk."
taught you how to do this?
I
Where
found
did you get
these
this from?
nestled amongst your stacks of pornography. What are these?
This is not wholesome. This is satanic shit.
A half-elf ranger? You are not my son.
Crossbreed.
But elves are from Santa's workshop. They're Christmas.
Santa helps Jesus.
Santa's
Ma.
an anagram for Satan.
Ah!
So, yeah, Courtney Solomon is the director of this film. He was aged 29 when he directed it. And he created Sweet Pea Entertainment. Yeah, when he was 19, like you said.
Fucker.
How did he fucking do this?
Yeah.
Also, like the previous guy who directed the other movie from Freaks and Geeks, like, how do you get to be a producer and a director of major Hollywood films before you're even 40? I'd sure like to know.
Nepotism?
Talk about imposter syndrome. Imagine being a 29-year-old giving direction to Jeremy Irons. It's like, it's your first movie, too, and you have no experience before or after, really.
Jeremy Irons he was cast late, and he's on record for just doing this because he was renovating a castle he just purchased.
That was my
That
fun
was
fact.
funny.
Good
Yeah,
for him.
That's happened a few times in high and low movies now. Roddy McDowell in a Laser Blast, his whole thing was he took the role so he could get the $300 to repair his car. A guy in Above the
slightly
Rim.
different caliber in what they need the money for.
I'm repairing my castle. Yeah. There was an Above the Rim
Yeah,
guy,
Irons
too.
had that Disney money already. He
Yeah.
had a working car.
He had that scar. He doesn't need a car. He has like a driver. He has a pickup service.
He's like a horse and buggy. So I don't know. When I found out about that, I'm just picturing whenever he's screaming and overacting like he is, he's just really channeling the energy of yelling at his contractors for putting the wrong grout on his bathroom
Yeah.
or something like that.
It needs to be historically authentic.
This portcullis should have been painted copper.
Empty my chamber pots.
As you guys know, I am a fan of villains who are just over the top villainous. There's no reason, like, they're evil and they love it. I love Emperor Palpatine, I love Scar, and I fucking love Jeremy Irons.
Yeah, me too. If they're
He-
reveling in their evilness, I'm having a good
Yes,
time.
like cackling like a madman. Like there's no nuance. He's not like, oh, I believe in this aspect. He's just like, I want the power to rule.
I'm a bad guy
We
and I
don't-
love it.
We don't have enough of that in movies nowadays.
No.
Every villain nowadays has to be conflicted.
Yeah.
We
I
gotta-
had an upbringing.
we got to see their point of view.
Saw backstory.
Cry.
I don't want my
Yeah.
nuanced villains being like, oh, Wakanda could have helped the world. Nah, none of that bullshit. Profion wants to control the world because he's evil. I'm on
Yeah.
board.
The bad guys in this movie are fully in the realm of camp, like a Joel Schumacher frame of mind, like how he did Batman. They're just fully camped out, mustache twirling villains.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, okay, well, Blue Lips, I almost feel for like a second he's like not as evil as he's.
Damodar.
Well, I'm going to call him Blue Lips.
think-
I had to type out Damodar's name 100 million times in my notes, and I still had to check it every
Yeah, me
time.
too.
I hate it. It's a shitty name.
Blue Lips is fine. I'm fine
He
with that.
will forever be Mr. Blue Lips in my.
But there's like one
Notes.
point where he's
Why do I
like,
gotta be Mr. Blue? You get a cool name like Mr. White. It's easy for you to say.
Mr. Blue Lips sounds a little too much like Mr. Pussy Lips.
well, like you can see like the mutation, and he's like, "Look at me! Look how horrible my life is! Please, you have to help me!" And I'm like,
I think that was a ruse he was pulling on
I think
her.
it was, but also like as soon as he, well, we're jumping way ahead, but like as soon as he gets the chance to get like the thing out, like, that's like his priority. He's like, "I got you what you want.
Get,
What about my head?"
get the brain worm out of my brain, please.
But right off the bat, take it away.
2000.
Yeah.
New Line Cinema.
Just 1 year away from another much more successful release by New Line Cinema in the fantasy realm. Like, and honestly, like, I think that if production on this got held up until after Lord of the Rings came out, this movie would have been way better because they would have juiced a fantasy movie so much harder. Like,
Yeah.
this one had a budget and stuff, but I think they would have been paying more attention. But their attentions were rightfully focused on Lord of the Rings.
I think maybe it would have just made this movie look more pathetic. If it came out after Lord of the Rings, they would have been like, oh my god, these dragons look
But they're
like
like,
shit.
well, we got Courtney Solomon over here. Let's write him. What's the budget on this? Anybody get that?
I have it, actually. I wrote that down. Budget, $45 million.
Yeah,
Box
okay.
office, 33.8.
Here's $45 million for this first time nobody that we're going to let make this fucking Dungeons and Dragons movie.
So at the time,
What did they write to Peter Jackson? Whatever it wasn't enough. But
Just an
also,
infinity sign.
it was exactly enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the biggest budget independent movie at the time. So this was like independently financed.
Yeah.
New Line like put it out, but like
Yeah, they distributed it.
yeah.
New Line taking some massive gambles with the fantasy genre, which has never, as far as I know, been really financially successful. Like, there's never
Not
been
a bunch,
a
no.
ballpark. Like, Lord of the Rings is really the only thing that's been a super slam dunk fantasy movie, as
Yeah.
far as I know.
New Line made their name on horror.
Yeah, the house that Freddy built.
Yeah. They're the Nightmare on Elm Street.
So it's smart. It's cool that they got a horror director to do Lord of the Rings, and they gave him so much money.
Well, they know
Yeah.
because horror makes money. You
Yeah.
can make a fucking horror movie for $10 million and clear $200 million at the box office. No problem. It still happens today.
So they are kind of genre meisters, New Line. So it makes sense that they might be able to take a gamble on a fantasy movie.
But imagine if this movie had done like really, really well. And so instead of having like Viggo Mortensen playing Aragorn, you had Justin Whalen. And instead of having, like who played Elijah Wood as Frodo, you had Marlon Wayans.
Marlon Wayans.
And all the time, Aragorn was like, "I'm a ranger princess. That's my class." Everyone is very class oriented in this movie.
Yeah, they keep talking about it, and they don't really pay off the classes too much. But
So the movie opens with narration,
yes,
And it's
anybody
a
get
which,
that?
as a rule, I have to
Yeah.
read the entire narration. The Empire of Izmir has long been a divided land, ruled by mages, an elite group of magic users. The lowly commoners, those without magic, are merely slaves. Izmir's young Empress Savina wishes equality and prosperity for all, but the evil mage, Profion, has other intentions.
Cut to soaring music as it pans down into the city.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's
like, what
really-
is this back of the box VHS box narration like?
That's a lot
It's-
better than my summation I wrote down. I wrote, like, the land of Izmir is ruled by mean mages. And the mages use their nasty magic to make the people obey them.
So it's basically it's like it sets up off the fucking top. First off, it doesn't present it in an interesting way. We get that shitty, uninteresting narration, but also
It's
you're
done
like,
with a regal voice to make it seem
But it's
important.
Whoa.
looking at like clouds. Like it's not showing
Yeah,
anything.
They could have
No.
thrown some cool animated thing in here or something.
There's so much you could have done better, but
Yeah.
also just the idea of the world. Like you're walking into this Dungeons and Dragons movie like I was in the year 2000 at the age of 15 or whatever.
Poor soul.
And being like, Izmir, what the fuck are we talking about? Why aren't we in Faerun?
Yeah.
Like why aren't we in the Forgotten Realms universe?
Man.
And now you're telling me about this world that's just a complete bummer. There's mages and there's non-mages, and that's
So this whole class struggle is like the entire backbone of the story. Like there's the mages and then the poor non-magic folk, and that is like the fulcrum for everything. There's
But
this
the
huge
Empress
political
wants to
discourse.
help.
Yeah.
It's the most bare bones. It doesn't delve into the politics at all.
It doesn't
Just, Empress good.
They
Mage
Profion
bad.
evil.
They very clumsily try to like
In the narration, does it say the evil mage Profion? Like, does it just call him an evil mage?
yes, it
They
does.
fight. Yeah.
Like, there's no
But
nuance.
the evil mage Profion has other intentions. That's the quote.
Profion's like, that's a matter of perspective, isn't it?
I am not evil. Your Majesty.
I need to eat more baby hearts so I can cast my spells.
Some people find me quite charming. Ah.
I don't know. When he's giving his speeches in front of the council, I'm like, this guy's got it. I'd vote for Profion.
I am very interesting at dinner
I'm an
parties.
excellent orator.
You
Listen
can
to
rouse
me.
the crowd pretty good. Oh God, yeah, it's embarrassing when
I have Kendall Jenner's support.
oh God, him and Thora Birch will both be giving speeches to councils and against each other, acting, and she's like so flat and affectless, and then he's so over the top and campy. It's the weirdest clashing performance I've ever seen.
Very
It's
poorly
like-
directed. Very few of the performances actually match what anybody
Yeah.
else is doing in this movie. You got Marlon Wayans in here. He had a deal with he had a deal with Solomon where basically he got to do 3 improv takes for every 3 takes as scripted. So he's like,
Really?
yeah, he's just
It
off.
makes sense.
He's
There's a
ripping.
lot of Wayans.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
And-
doing a lot of physical comedy stuff.
But like
and
nobody else
things
is on
like
that level either. Like everybody's.
My opinion, Marlon Wayans is the best part of this movie. Welcome back to the pod, Marlon Wayans.
Yes.
Marlon Wayans
yeah.
and Jeremy Irons' performance isn't good, but I love it.
But he's having fun.
He's bringing
Yeah.
He's
something to
giving
it.
her.
yeah.
Okay, he's described as an evil mage, and he is playing an evil. Like he's nailing his role. Like,
So what does the script say? Evil mage. I can do that.
right?
Yeah.
Do you want the script, Mr. Irons? No!
Boy.
I got it.
I will improvise on the day.
I'm pretty certain the director
Your
like encouraged them.
Majesty.
Him and Mr. Purple Lips, they're out of control. Mr. Purple Lips is very weird and over the top with his performance.
I call him Mr. Blue Lips, but they are the same person,
They're-
just so everyone knows.
Those lips
Yeah.
are blue.
They're
yeah,
blue.
they're as blue as the day is long.
We're coming in on the city. The water, everything's just really bad looking CGI. They couldn't even be bothered to, like, I think they filmed this in Serbia or something like that. They did some on location castle shooting, but they couldn't fucking shoot a moat or anything that I can
Yeah.
only imagine they have in abundance there. But so anyways, we're in there and Jeremy Irons is fucking pontificating about this and that, and he's like staring at this gyroscope like the way that I look at like an Italian sandwich. He's just very intense.
Yeah, he wants to.
Well, the thing is, like, they come in and he's not there yet, but like they show the lair where there's like all these shittily costumed guys in robes, and like there are like skulls just like randomly distributed. And he comes sauntering in with like all of the flair you expect. He's like flicking his robe back as he
Yeah.
marches into the room.
He's a Jafar type.
Yes,
wizard.
exactly.
Yeah, all these anonymous henchmen are arbitrarily turning knobs. There's like a guy, there's water rushing down, and he's shoveling water from one place to another.
Button pushers.
He Jeremy Irons is in like Hugh Hefner's red pajamas.
Pretty much.
He pulls a wand with a green gem out of the device in the middle.
At last, come, Damodar.
This is clearly an object of great
I,
power.
I have it written down. He looks like he's about to arrive when he goes, and he's like,
I'm arriving.
Dude, he's about 2 pumps shy of coming half this movie. He's just
So Damodar is blue lips, as you
Yeah.
said. He's
Blue
a
lips.
guy, he's bald. He has some crazy looking armor on, and he has what appears to be blue lipstick on this entire
Yeah.
movie.
Blue Lips
What
was
up with
played
that?
by Bruce Payne, and as far as I know, he was the only actor to return for the second movie.
Wear blue lips.
yes, they did make a second movie.
He's a pretty famous actor in England. He has a lot of credits, but I haven't seen him in anything else.
Which D&D race has blue lips? Oh God, is that elf
I-
thing?
I-
Nobody. This is fucking nonsense.
elf.
I actually looked it up. Like, why is Blue Lips blue? And I guess it's like there's some sort of.
He's very cool.
I think it was like there's some sort of like drug that like will turn your lips blue, like some sort of weird morphine type thing.
Bruce
So-
Payne was on morphine.
That sounds like a stretch to me.
Like Brad Dourif in Dune. Like the Mentats drinking their
I think they
blue
were just
serum.
like, okay, he's in a magic world. We need something to make him a little bit different.
We have
Give him some
another
blue
we have
lipstick.
another more famous bald actor. We need something to differentiate him against.
That's the thing with this movie. It goes all along with the Sci-Fi Channel aesthetic. Everything looks like it's straight out of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Like,
I don't remember
Yeah,
if
that
I was
era.
reading, like, I thought I was reading something where this originally was planned to be like a mini series. And that was kind of like the shitty sci-fi series was the vibe I got from this.
It's better they made it a movie.
If it had been a Sam Raimi produced series, like along the lines of Xena, Warrior Princess,
something
like,
It could have been fun.
there might have been something here.
Okay, so they are bringing out a dragon. So with this scepter, he has the power of the immortals. You can control dragons. So he's going to try to mind control this very, very bad-looking dragon.
Yeah.
It is atrocious CGI.
some of the most horrible CGI you'll ever see.
It's
in
like
worst
5
we've-
triangles kind of glued together.
Yeah, the worst we've seen on this pod so far.
I think so. The worst and the most obvious.
It is some of the worst CG you will ever see. And I know we clarified this because I asked these guys before. It's like, well, it was like 25 years ago. Is that how it was at the time? No, it was shitty for the times, right?
I mean,
Yes.
it is what it is. When you look at it today and it looks shitty, like they were using it, their eyes were bigger than their stomach. They thought they could make some giant dragon creation, but they should have been using it the way a Jurassic Park would and using it as like an enhancement to make certain scenes better. And you can animate a T-Rex in the dark, but if you're going to have like a big CGI dragon in the light of day, it looks so horrible.
I'll just say that Star Wars Episode 1 was a year before this, and The Fellowship of the Ring was a year after. I'm not going to say Episode 1 has the best CGI in the world, but
Better than this.
yeah, a lot better than
Yeah.
this.
And
It also overextended its reach with it, but
The Matrix
Yeah.
had been out already. These are larger
The Matrix
budget
was
movies,
a
but
few
there's
years
lots
before.
of good examples of much better CGI.
and
Titanic came out before now.
Jar
They used a
Jar,
lot of CGI with the boat and stuff. That looks way better than what's going on here.
Jar Jar Binks looks better than any creature in this
oh,
movie.
absolutely.
Yeah.
one
By
other
a mile.
thing.
Jar Jar Binks looks pretty good.
He's pretty sophisticated. He holds up.
So at this point, Jeremy Irons basically, I don't write down what he says. I've just written down, let me have an evil monologue about controlling dragons. But one thing I noted, and this was just kind of at this scene and a little bit later on, but like I was like, holy shit! And I paid for I rented the movie. I was like,
I
holy,
didn't have to do that.
I know, but I was
Big
like,
mistake.
holy shit! The audio is so bad. Like he's monologuing, and I can barely hear what he's saying, and I'm like, this is just so terrible. Like, nothing about this is good.
The only version I could find of this movie was a German version. And
The
the
dragon.
and the video quality would often just drop to such a low level. I would have gladly paid my legal dollars for a legal version of this movie if I could find it. They have buried it.
This
New
movie
Line
does not
Cinema.
exist.
You know what? As I watched this as a kid, and it's one of those memories that's still jammed somewhere in the back of my brain, like an ice pick. And I remembered kind of enjoying it, and then I remember looking up one scene from this movie because I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna watch this, and it's like a 1 minute scene, and I was like, oh, fuck, why did I agree to this?
It's like having your eyeballs scratched out by a cat. It's just painful to look at throughout the entire movie. It doesn't look good, even on the
It kinda won
totally
me over.
legal, legitimate American version that I watched.
This is one of the hardest movies we've ever had to watch for me. For this podcast, it took me 5 fucking hours to get through this last night. An absolute struggle. I could not stay focused on the screen. It was so terrible and boring.
Okay, so
I powered through good.
yeah, I managed to do it in a sitting.
There was at this point there's one effect that I thought was good, and it might be the only effect that I thought was good throughout the movie.
Oh, yeah.
They have the gold dragon under control, except it doesn't. The dragon's like, fuck this shit, and he lights up someone instantly, blasts someone with fire. And this is the only point in the movie where I'm like, okay, that's a good effect, because they actually, I think, lit this guy on fire, and
There's
he's
a
like,
man on fire.
and I'm like, that's good. That's a good effect.
You know you're in trouble when you peek 2 minutes into your movie.
What does a gold dragon breathe?
So
Is that urine? Like a good gold shower kind of scenario?
So in this movie, there's a big distinction between gold and red dragons and what it is. I don't fucking know because the movie doesn't explain it.
yeah, so Prophylactic here wants to control all of the gold dragons with this scepter of his, and the young empress wants
They're just
can
different
control all
dragons.
of the red dragons.
No,
Or
no,
so
no.
she
She
wants.
She
got
can
it backwards.
she can control the
whatever.
gold
Yeah.
dragons with her scepter, and he thinks that the weird gyroscope scepter he found will also let him control gold dragons.
Oh, he
as well.
didn't find the gyroscope scepter yet.
Well-
He's trying to create a
Okay.
scepter that
Yeah.
will allow him to control the red dragons.
And Mitchell,
His scepter is lame and green.
a
so-
gold dragon
he
can breathe
sucks.
fire and weakening breath,
Oh.
which I imagine weakens people.
That's like Godzilla's Limburger cheese breath.
I think somebody's been blowing weakening breath on me for a couple of years.
I feel faint.
I'm weak.
It's just like an old hand dryer in a bathroom from like 20 years ago. It just feels like an old man breathing on you.
Jeremy Irons is genuinely upset when he loses control of his dragon, and he does another Rancor move on it, and he crushes it with the portcullis.
That's the first of a million direct Star Wars ripoffs in this. That
This
is
movie
straight
is
out of
really-
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, taking a lot from Star Wars. Blatantly.
Yeah, he does the Rancor gate crush on that fucking dragon.
Jeremy Irons has the cane on this dragon, and he's controlling it. And then it starts to go out of control, and it's like raging out. And Jeremy Irons is like, "Good, I can use every ounce of your rage, dragon."
Oh, and so, I had that line. It was,
And then he loses control of it, and it like backs up into the room, and then he crushes it with the door.
So my question for Mr. Solomon here is, could you not just get a bucket of red corn syrup and just use
Yeah.
that instead of using the worst looking CGI blood this side of
yeah.
Blade? Like, it looks so fucking awful.
It was hard to do liquids back then, and they were way too ambitious to
and-
make that blood. Try to
We
do that
hadn't
blood.
invented liquids 24 years ago.
It's like just do a corn syrup with red dye.
I only recognize 2 states of matter, Senator. I don't want these liquids
Yeah.
being taught in my schools.
Let's not even get into plasma.
And the shitty blood sets the river on fire. That was one of the things that I noticed, because you go straight from the kind of good fire effects to the super shitty fire effects. Where I'm like, now I'm out of this again. Come on, guys.
You were in it, yeah. I
For
guess
like
you were-
4 seconds, I was in it. You had Jeremy
You almost
Irons
had me.
hamming it up. You had someone being set on
Yeah,
fire.
you had a weird guy with blue lips.
But
Yeah.
hey, if you thought that was cool, now you meet Marlon Wayans
Dun, 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 dun.
Who is
playing Snails,
Yeah.
the thief, and Justin Whalen playing Ridley Freeborn. How's that for a name?
That's a good name for a thief.
Ridley, we need to go do a robbery, Ridley.
I'm a
So-
freeborn man.
I don't know if you guys watched Lois and Clark. Did you guys watch that show?
No.
maybe seen an episode or two?
Oh man, my mom and I were big fans of that. That was that Superman show.
Yeah, with Dean Cain, who had played Superman.
Dean
and,
Cain and Terry Hatcher as
Yeah.
Lois and Clark.
Yeah, my
Justin
mom was
Whalen was
super into that.
was Jimmy Olsen.
Oh, okay, interesting.
It seems like he would be fine at that.
Yeah,
He's the right energy for that. He doesn't really have the right energy for a swashbuckling hero.
he's kind of a
He's a charming guy.
doughy, mushmouth nobody. I think he
Yeah.
really sucks in this movie. And I don't want to be mean because I know his career never really took off.
Dude, I just think that everybody involved in this movie was just hung out to dry. I think that there could have been something here,
Yeah.
and the blame lies solely at the foot. At
The
feet of Courtney
material
Solomon.
definitely didn't serve them.
I don't know. Like at the very beginning, like he seems to have just a little bit enough of like the cocky energy that I'm kind of like, okay.
Well, he's the Chris Pine. He's doing this, trying to do the same energy as Chris Pine in the other
man.
movie, where there's both the Han Solo character, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's not.
This movie couldn't be so blessed as to have a Chris
No.
Pine in it. Jesus Christ.
They got a James Whalen.
Any Chris. If you had even a Pratt,
yeah,
it would
exactly.
be so much better.
Christopher Plummer.
The movie depends so much on this Ridley character. He does everything in it. Everything's focused on Ridley in this movie.
He's just flat and
He
lifeless.
is the
and
hero
Sucks.
in this hero's
sorry.
journey.
Don't add us.
So they're onlookers outside Profian's castle. They see the river getting lit on fire. And Ridley's like, "Oh, I'd love to get those mages someday."
Why am I gonna get them? We're gonna get those mages.
Go get him. Come on, Snail. How could we get the mages?
That
Snails-
mages think they're better than us just because what they can make the river on fire, just because they can
have
control
godlike
dragons.
Let's rob their special treasure room.
Snails is of the mindset that nothing changes. You
Yeah.
can't change the fact that there's two classes, there's the mages and there's the poor people, and that's the way it's always going to be, which is
He's
such
like
a
the
depressing
apathetic guy.
and narrow Dungeons and Dragons universe, in my opinion.
It's a very poorly flushed out caste system here, and
But he's right.
yes.
Yeah, especially when the
Well,
master
no,
class
not
is
at the end.
mages.
Not to spoil the end, but we do hear everybody's equal, so they solved that problem.
That's right.
Yes. You hear someone
Just like
say,
when we elected Obama, everybody was
no
equal.
more racism. we solved racism in the United States.
Empress Thora Birch gets up on her podium and she says, "Racism is over." And
Off,
everybody,
off screen, it's done in voiceover, and that's
Delightful.
oh.
happy ending.
God, this movie sucks so much.
So while
One of the worst we've covered.
it's bad. So Ridley and Snails, they're doing their heist, and Profion's meeting with the Council of Mages, and he's
Yeah,
planning
they're
an
breaking
insurrection.
into the magic school.
Yeah.
He's poisoning everyone's mind against the Empress constantly. He's talking to this council. They're all a bunch of stereotypical wizards in this council, like guys. with
This is
big
straight
beards.
out of Star Wars Episode
Yeah.
1, a fucking council scene with the Empress being like, I think all people should be equal. And everybody else in the council is
Boo!
like,
But then we won't be better than them.
Well, the Empress isn't in this scene. It's Jeremy Irons being like, oh, she wants socialism, so we must take away her powers and take her magic scepter, and I think I should have it.
We have all watched the Empress growing up, but we must snatch the power. From
She's an evil child.
She's got a good
Nasty woman.
like. She's got
Are
a
you
good
embarrassed?
wizard who talks to her too, though.
Yeah, they cut to her talking to old man. I just have old man. And she delivers this thing like, her line is, I think, all people deserve to be free or equal.
She's so
Or,
horrible.
I will die to have this delivered. Literally, she's like,
Yes.
I'm willing to die for this cause. Delivered completely monotone.
So
Laura
those of you-
Birch is fucking terrible in this
Yeah.
movie, and
To
I
those
think
of
she's
you-
great in other stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
To people who haven't seen this movie, her performance is dialed down about 5 notches from the energy Ryan was just putting on the microphone. Like, it's so bad.
This dialogue is just not working for her. She cannot make this work. I don't know. Yeah, she is great in a lot of other movies, Ghost World, tons of stuff. She's
American
really cool
Beauty.
in American Beauty. She is just like really, really bad in this in a way that sticks out, unfortunately.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
So that's all going on, laying down the political strife of the kingdom, and this heist is ongoing.
Yeah. The old guy says there's a scepter that also controls red dragons.
Oh, yeah.
And it's called the Rod of Sevril.
Yes.
Right?
It's you can give up your power, but you'll also still have power. So the Rod of Sevril, but there's a little shitty CGI imp who's like
Yeah.
fluttering about, and it's like, I see. And it cuts to Jeremy Irons and
This
Blue
guy
Lips.
pops up
So
throughout
that
this movie.
that
the
CGI imp, that's I think Damida's familiar.
I mean,
So-
at one point they mentioned that he is a mage, but we never actually see him doing like outright magic. So I guess maybe this is how he can summon an imp.
He's yeah, that's the thing is this is a Dungeons and Dragons movie that is not set anywhere in the Dungeons and Dragons lore. It's completely a fucking made up place for the movie. Why? I don't know. All they did was rip off Star Wars on every fucking scene.
Yeah.
Damodar is the commander of the Crimson Guard, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about them as we go forward.
Yeah, so
I
the
guess-
thieves.
Another movie like the Dragon Ball movie that didn't have any faith in the intellectual property, where it's just like, let's make Star Wars a fantasy Star Wars, and
Exactly.
we'll sprinkle maybe a little Dungeons and Dragons flavoring on.
Exactly. That's the perfect
But
analogy.
yeah,
So yeah, they're robbing the magic school, and Snails gives a few of the classic Marlon Wayans high-pitched screams when something goes wrong.
I can't do it.
But
Yeah.
you know, his buddy's like,
he's being a bitch. He's like, I thought that you said this would be easy. And Ridley's like, no, I said it wasn't impossible. He said, that's the same thing you said when we robbed that halfling's house. And who'd he catch? Me. And who'd he beat from the waist down? Me.
which is kind of funny.
Yeah, it's Marlon Wayans and he's riffing. And
Yeah.
they let him riff in this movie.
Yeah. Him-
Doing
He's bringing
classic
some energy.
Marlon
Yeah.
Wayans.
from the waist
Yeah,
down.
straight from his scary movies.
So they make it into the vault. There's a big dragon skeleton there.
but it's just an illusion.
Yeah, there's
Snail-
all kinds of
dragon's
Snail,
skull
shit.
is real.
Snail touches some illusion box. That pops out a big dragon illusion.
Like a bone dragon.
And he goes, "Wah!"
It's kind of like a Halloween decoration of the Dungeons and Dragons world, I guess. You like touch it and a big skeleton dragon comes out and
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of weird treasure in here. Marlon Wayans is trying to take like a dragon's tooth, but it's so big, and Ridley's like, "Hey, put that down. We can't take that. That's way too big."
What about
It's
this
a
gold
magic
dragon tooth?
It's a magic
Snails.
school.
Yeah.
You can imagine there'd be tons of fucking
Everything. There's all
Crazy
kinds of
stuff
crazy
there.
artifacts in here.
So I guess the plan is just to take the best,
shiniest
smallest
stuff.
thing you can get.
They don't have backpacks.
No, they don't have any sacks of any kind. It's an ill-conceived plan, and it's
They're
Some thieves.
bad things.
the bad thieves. They're bad thieves.
I burped. I wasn't crying. But I want you to know.
Then we cut to we cut to the bookish librarian, and she's in the library. An old man from earlier is there.
Marina.
Yes, Marina and Old Man are there, and Old Man is lecturing her about how she misfiled a book, and they hear some rattling going on in the
Fucking
background.
typical fucking boomer energy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she's like, I'm sure I filed it in the right place, and he's like, well, you clearly fucking didn't.
Well, she probably did.
I-
He's probably just a doddering old man.
Somebody else probably
that-
picked it up and moved.
I know. I get the impression that she's coming across as a
Yeah.
little bit of an incompetent.
He's
Les incompetents.
Maybe.
he's definitely laying into her.
Yeah.
She's like, I just felt like I could be more useful than like filing a book. I don't know. I'm a mage. And he's like, no, you must learn patience, and you got to learn how to file the books good before you can help me on my quest. He's not from Brooklyn. I don't know. I'm doing he's a wizard, but
Yes. And they hear Snails screaming at the top of his lungs. And it's like, oh, go deal with that woman. And she runs off. And what does she like blast them with ropes or something?
she
She shoots
a
cum
rope.
ropes all over.
She shoots thick, juicy rope around them.
Yeah.
And
And she makes a joke about not dating them. I can't remember what it
Yeah,
was.
they're all tied up.
It's a
Marla
meet
Wayans
cute.
is like, that must be the only way she can get guys to come home with her. And she's like, I'd have to put a feeble mind on myself to go home with you.
Yeah, it's real fucking stupid.
I was like, well, feeble mind at least is a real spell from D&D.
Yes, it was a
I'll
real
accept that.
spell, but she just had such a hard time getting those words out of her mouth.
She is terrible. Did anybody get
Zoe McClellan, I think she went on to be an NCIS New Orleans and JAG.
She's
And
bad in this, and
I'm sure she's fine in the other stuff.
wildly miscast once again. Like she has complete 21st century face, and that's the thing with this
She's got
movie.
lipstick.
Everybody has lip gloss
yeah, full on makeup.
and full on makeup. Yeah, exactly.
She
Perfect
doesn't have
teeth.
blue lips.
There's
She has red lips.
something I noticed in this movie is that, like, for the main core party, there are 2 points where they change their outfits. Like, other than that, they all have the exact same thing from like the beginning to the end. And one of them is hers. Like, she has her wizard robes up until the druid place, and then she switches into like slightly druidy robes. And what's his name? Ridley. At the very end, he switches out his
Oh, yeah.
brown leather jacket for a fancier black leather jacket.
God, the
hero
costumes
jacket.
and the makeup in this are so shitty. They're sub sci-fi channel par.
They look
Yeah.
like party Halloween shit. Like,
Not even, like-
worse than that.
Yeah, like if I went to Spirit Halloween and wanted to dress up like a fucking dwarf or something, I would look more like a dwarf than the dwarf does in this movie.
Fuck, he's the tallest dwarf I've ever seen in my life.
I would get fucked up teeth. That's not that hard to do.
Yeah, that's easy. I can do that for free.
So basically, she's capturing them, and as this happens, Blue Lips shows up with his Crimson Guard, and they kill Old Man, and they're like, grab her, and she's like, oh, no, master, and she opens a portal, and they flee into the streets.
Yeah, Blue Lips has Wolverine claws, and that's kind of cool.
Yes,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
super cool Wolverine claws.
He's got like a crossbow and stuff too. He's got a few different cool weapons, and he's a good swordsman.
So-
He's talented all around.
So cool.
He's so cool.
Post brigades at every sewer entrance and exit. I want them found.
I wish I had
now.
blue
But
lips.
that happens next because she runs through the streets and the rope drags them along, and they fall into like
Cum ropes will do that.
well, yes, and they fall into like a pile of trash. And here's the thing: do they know the dwarf? Because the dwarf is in the pile of trash, and he explodes
This is
out of the
weird.
trash.
This was so baffling.
right.
I guess he's like a homeless
And
man.
on the trash, it also says no, dwarves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
He explodes out, and
Well,
he
you don't throw dwarves in the trash, so that makes sense.
And they used the Tolkien.
You recycle them.
Yes, so
Or
the
VES.
dwarf attacks Blue Lips, who pops out his bitchin' Wolverine claws. And one thing I made a note of throughout this movie is Blue Lips fights like Michael Keaton in the Batman costume. He can't move his body properly. So it's like it's really awkward, but he gets tripped by the dwarf, and then they all jump into the sewers. And instead of sending his minions after them, he's just like, all right, we've chased them enough. Like,
They've disappeared into the sewers.
Post guards, they've gone an extra 5 feet away, and I'm tired. His costume is
The
too
classic Lion
uncomfortable.
King. If you ever come back, we'll kill you.
Yeah.
Well, they won't be a problem anymore.
Yeah, that should take care of that.
It's quite
So-
beneath a mage to go into the sewers.
This wacky dwarf they encounter, I like if they say his name, it's thrown away so quickly that we don't catch it. I sure didn't catch
Elwood.
it.
No.
I made a note of that because like he doesn't introduce himself, he doesn't talk to them, he doesn't explain why he wants to work with them, and like I think it's like 6 or 7 scenes later, like the 33-minute mark. So like probably like 5 scenes later, as they're going down a hallway, someone says the name Elwood. So that is the only
Who the hell is
time.
that?
He's
They
just
must have deleted all of
Yeah.
his
Yes.
introductions.
he's just
He-
hanging out, and
Exactly. That is the only time in the movie they say his name.
he's pretty much like that in that joke in Community where Jack Black's in the episode. And he's like, "No, I'm here the whole time." And they just like show him popping out in the background while they're doing memorable.
It's me, buddy.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like he's
But this guy, he's I don't know the actor's name.
Lee
he was in
Ehrenberg.
he was in Pirates of the Caribbean. I think he's one of them guys who go, "Hello, Bobby."
Yeah, that's the guy.
One of them
I mean,
bad
he's just kind
Pirates guys. He's way better in those movies. I don't know what the fuck he's doing in this movie. He sucks so bad in this
He
movie.
can't move in his costume. He can't move his face with all the makeup. He's
He's also in Once Upon a Time, where he also plays one of the 7 dwarfs. So he was typecast as a dwarf.
He found his niche.
People were like, "Hey, we need a dwarf. Can we get a good one?" No.
Let's get this
Well,
crappy
can
one.
we get the worst dwarf actor I've ever seen in
Can
my
we get
life?
like that guy who's like 5'6" or something like that? Like he's just short.
God, Tom Cruise? No, the one who's way cheaper.
Oh, can you imagine if they had Tom Cruise playing the dwarf?
Just get Bradley Cooper. That was
Yeah,
funny.
That was
You
funny.
have it as
How
a
old
half-
Bradley Cooper would have been like 12 at this point.
Oh, and every time they show him, he's just standing right next to everybody that he's the exact same height as. Like, just have him stand like 3 feet behind them, and he'll look a little bit smaller or something. But
He's like the Shaquille O'Neal of the dwarf world. He's a very tall dwarf.
God damn it, though. This character, Elwood the Dwarf, was the most baffling thing about this movie for me.
he's
because
just a nothing fart.
there's no character here. He just tells jokes that aren't funny and looks at the camera like, what is going on? Who is this?
He could have been lifted
Why
out
is he
entirely,
with them?
and it wouldn't have changed the plot at all.
I would delete him entirely from the movie.
They basically were like, we need a dwarf. What else do we need in this movie? A dwarf. Okay. Put Dwarfo in.
And,
Where do they find him?
Elwood.
I don't know. They find him in the trash.
It is as if they added him in post.
The next,
You're right.
The next scene is like a town crier with like posters of all the people, and she's like, "Oh, wizard girl has killed this guy, and these are her accomplices." And that's like the only explanation we get for why Dwarf has decided to join their group. Right? That's it. That's the only explanation. I
At
don't
one
know.
point, he asked them, they're like,
He says he wants gold. But
Yeah.
why would you want to just shack up with these fugitives if you want gold? Is
Yeah.
that the best way to get gold? Is to like deal with a bunch of fugitives that you just met?
and they just kind of brush it off where they're like, oh, well, we'll deal with gold later, Dwarfo. Join our party.
And he's like, okay.
That makes sense. Durr. I'm a dwarf.
I hate this fucking character.
Okay, so Prophylactic has decided that he wants to get those thieves.
Yes.
Galdramidon's all into it. He's like, yeah, let's get them.
So now Jeremy Irons is kind of recounting the plot to Damodar, Blue Lips, in case anybody was confused.
We got to stick
You
with the same
allow a
terminology.
slip of a girl to escape you. And now Norda, the Empress's finest tracker, is pursuing them. And you tell me not to concern myself.
And it's like, okay, thanks, I was lost. He casts the spell on Damodar, which looks like stuff like shooting through his skin. It's like crawling under him, and some weird tentacles popped out of his ears. I think it's a mind flare.
It's a
or
mind
something.
flare, but
Is
it's not mind flayers the way that we all
Yeah.
know and
Yeah.
love them.
They don't call it a mind flare, and it's mind flares, are their own kind of beings. This is just another scene that's just straight ripping off Star Wars, like Darth Vader.
Doing a little torture.
Force choking someone who's let him down. I don't remember Darth Vader ever shoving tentacle monsters down people's ears. But
No, but
He
it's
would've
like
if
a
he
force
could've.
choking scene.
Yeah.
Well, the weird thing is that Jeremy Irons doesn't shove tentacles down this guy's ears. He does like magical
It's
spell
weird
on
that
his
he doesn't
head.
Shove tentacles.
and then the tentacles burst out of
The
his
tentacles
ears.
come from within his ears, and you're like, "Oh, were they there all along?"
You had the tentacles inside you all along, Damodar. You never believed in yourself.
There should have been a scene of him putting like little eggs in Damodar's ears or something. But you never see that.
He's shoved some sort of devil creature into the guy's ears, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll pull him out when you finish your job, you worthless bum."
Bruce Payne is doing some A-tier face acting to pretend that he actually has these worm things coming out of his ears.
And there's very weird S&M homoerotic subtext in this scene where Jeremy Irons is like leaning over him from behind, like, if you have to obey my every command if you want my ear tentacles.
I
to
must
leave you."
mount you to give you my ear tentacles.
I mean, I said you guys
The
got
safe word is Begbie's crushing fist.
All right, so then we cut to the cantina scene.
Yeah, it's
Straight to the cantina from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They pan through showing all the unique monsters. Oh, here's an orc. Here's
Which
a
is
halfling,
actually, this
here's
is
a-
the coolest scene in the movie to me.
I appreciated it.
It's loaded with these practical effects. They're goofy looking, but not unlike the other Dungeons and Dragons movie.
There's
Like,
a bunch of doodads and whatchamacallits just everywhere here.
Yeah.
It's jam-packed with
latex creatures and every kind of malformed and gobbledygook is in this bar. They're crawling all over the place. There's midgets and very
Little people.
abnormally large people and all kinds of strange things going around in this bar.
Midgets.
This is
All the
like at one point, the person
pinheads.
making this movie realized, okay, I'm making a Dungeons and Dragons movie. Let me grab this monster manual off the bookshelf, look through. Okay, here, and here. I'm not going to buy this book. I'm just going to make a mental note. These are creatures in this game, and chuck this book away.
Yeah.
And that's about the extent of D&D in this actual movie.
I feel like nobody who made this movie had any awareness or anything of D&D.
There's really weird critters in this movie. There's like weird purple things with like dinosaur crests and
Straight out of
there's some jizz whalers on the stand there.
Yeah, Sai Snubu is in this or whatever that Star Wars jizz whaler.
Max
is called.
Rebo in the background. So we learn a little bit more about the characters. We find out dwarves are only interested in gold. Ridley drops, he says, there's honor amongst thieves, foreshadowing a movie 23 years in the future.
a better
Yeah.
movie.
And we find out that Mariana is a classist because she's basically like, mages are better than you.
Yeah.
You are scum. You should be licking my boots. Not
Yeah.
quite as
It's a real
upfront about it.
like monotone argument back and forth between her and
I'm a mage and I'm a thief.
I don't like mages. I think thieves are good, and like
Yeah.
that's kind of the extent of all of the dialogue that her
Thieves
and
like to steal, but we
her
have
and
other
Ridley
good
have.
things. Yeah.
Elwood's chowing down on a roast chicken here, like I would on,
making-
on one of them Safeway rotisserie chickens.
Man,
It's
getting
like,
paid
what
to
am
be
I
here.
supposed to think he's a disgusting pig? Because what I'm looking at here looks really good.
he's taking full advantage of this bar. He's drinking ale. He's eating chicken legs and all kinds of things.
he's eating the whole chicken.
That's the way you should be. Everybody is doing their class thing in this. You've got Marlon Wayans and Dylan.
Ridley?
Ridley. Marlon Wayans and
You
Ridley.
son of a bitch.
They're inspecting treasure. And like they're thieves.
Elwood's, he's talking about how he doesn't like elves. And the problem with elves is they're too thin.
And I got no meat on the bone.
They got no meat on the bones. You got to get yourself a 250-pound dwarf with hair you can hang on to.
He's trying so hard to be funny.
But the other thing is,
It's like, who is this fucking guy? What is he talking
All
about?
I know is
Why is he in our party?
when they do that, like they make the weird sex thing, it's literally right after Ridley and Mage Girl get sucked into a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Snails is just like, all right, well, here's a hot elf. I'm going to go see if I can get some
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. They're arguing, and then Ridley says, Alinor Salabedara. And that's when they're drawn into
that's
this
like my
scroll.
favorite
Yeah.
early 1970s prog rock band.
Alan.
Yeah.
Alinor Salabedara.
Life is just a
Today's Tom
fantasy.
Sawyer, mean ride.
Yeah, he's like, my dad was something or other, and he used to do this. And he puts his hands on it, and he gets sucked into the scroll, and then she does the same thing. She gets sucked into the scroll, and then Snails is like, oh, my best friend in the world just disappeared.
Let's
Yeah.
get some pussy.
Let's get some pussy.
To be fair, he disappeared with a babe, so, you know.
True. You like some
Yeah.
strange?
Yeah.
They absconded.
This is
into
probably
the
like
map
this is
together.
like their Top Gun routine. It's like, okay, so you do the little scroll parchment trick, you get her sucked in, and then I'm just gonna go find some wench in the brothel and take her
Yeah.
upstairs.
some foxy elf.
And then this is one of my favorite parts.
This movie is so baffling. I just don't understand how anything goes from A to B in it.
This is a recurring thing in the movie that's about to happen. So the Crimson Guard, Domidor's army walks in. There's like him and like 10 of his dudes. They are all like decked out in their like plastic armor. They are the most obvious
It's a
fucking
bad
thing
approach.
visible. And he like puts his hand up to like his buddies and he's like, wait. It's like, you guys stand out like a fucking like there's no way
Let's just
anyone is
blend in.
missing you. But they do this like 3 times in the movie. He comes in with 20 people and no one notices them. Right? That's like a recurring theme about this movie. He sneaks an army into a room and no one fucking notices.
Nobody notices.
And it's always the worst approach because they're always after something. Like they want to get a scroll from Ridley or whatever. And then as soon as they all barge into the room, like 20 men, a mob comes in. Ridley's just like, I'll burn the scroll if you don't let me out. Or there's always some easy workaround to get by them.
How did he know that I wanted the scroll?
Should I try subterfuge next time? No. 20 men walking into a room again.
But the Empress, she has her famous tracker, Norda, looking for them. And that's who
That's the sexy
Marlon Wayans is eyeing up. She's got this breastplate on that's super crazy. It's
take an eye
it's
out
pointy.
that.
It's like Barbarella, Jane Fonda. Like,
Yeah, it's like Madonna's breastplate.
yeah,
From the
she's really, really, really hot. Marlon Wayans can't even fucking stand it. how
Marlon
hot
Wayans'
she is.
codpiece is going out of control with how good that breastplate is.
And he tries to pull the classic. He orders the best wine and then Soto whispers, the cheapest wine. Like she's not going to hear that half a foot away from him. This fucking elf with like super
Yeah.
hearing isn't going to notice that.
He runs game on her. He's like, "Oh, you looking for somebody around here, lady? I'm gonna take you into the bedroom, make romance
try.
on you."
It's a good try. Hey, man.
Shoot your shot.
Shoots a shot.
Yeah.
But the dwarf starts a bar fight, and do you guys remember how he does it?
The chicken bone? No. I
No,
don't-
he
I
just
don't
Walks
know
down
what
with his
happened
axe,
here.
doesn't he? He
nope,
just starts swinging an axe.
He walks down, he pushes someone, and he says bar fight, and everyone bursts into a fight.
That's kind of like a food fight.
Yeah, it's like Animal House.
Yeah.
And
Bar fight.
he grabs Marlon, and Marlon says something like, "She's the love of my life." And he's like, "No, she's not. You just met her." And he says, "Yeah, I lied. I just want to hit it." And I'm like, that line is so out of place.
Hit it.
But it's like, oh, at least he's being honest. I
Hit
would
it?
say that too. Yeah, he says, "I just want to hit it." Like,
Maybe he means like
All right.
literally
riff, Marlon.
like hit it with a club or whatever, as you might expect from a Dungeons and Dragons setting, rather than a.
I'm hungry and I want some mince pie.
Yeah, meat pie. You got some meat pie, love?
Oh, Bobby, have you any meat pie for me?
You're sexy, Alf.
So they escape the tavern and they go and meet up with the others, right?
I don't know how they knew where to meet up, but they just kind of
It's
did
completely random. They just end
Yeah.
up next to the others who were sucked into the map.
At first, I thought the dwarf went and Marlon Wayans went to the map as well, but I think they just went somewhere in the woods and waited for Ridley and the librarian to come out of the map.
yes. And they wander into the forest, and there's like 5 scenes in the forest throughout this movie, and it could just be the exact same set. I'm sure it is the exact same set.
Yep.
Like, there's like 4 sets in this entire
the
movie.
cheapest looking movie I think we've covered on this podcast yet,
Yeah.
which
Hamlet?
is saying something.
Yeah.
Oh, cheaper than Hamlet. Hamlet had like 5 sets.
Right.
Or
And
Macbeth.
Macbeth.
Oh, sorry,
yeah,
Macbeth.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
what you meant.
But yeah, they burst out of the scroll, and this is something that was kind of weird to me. I guess while they were in the scroll, they met with a wraith, and the wraith told them the plot of what they need to do. And I'm kind of like, well, why wouldn't you show that? And it's like, okay, you want to avoid exposition, but now you're doing it again. Like,
Don't show it.
yeah,
Oh my god.
The finger thing means
Double
the money.
show.
right? Like it's.
Double show.
I
It
don't know.
was so confusing.
It was a weird scene to me. Like I feel like you were saying earlier, it's like they clearly just cut out a bunch of scenes that they were gonna do, and it's like, okay, we were gonna do these guys escaping, and then we were gonna do these guys learning about the future.
But the whole gist is, I think that
The movie feels wildly unfinished.
this
Yes.
this magic red dragon staff they're going after. Ridley's like, oh, why don't you tell the truth about what it is? And it's like, oh, this caused a great war before.
And this is the point where they tell the dwarf, like, oh, you're gonna do, she'll pay you, and then she's like, oh, we'll do it after. I'll figure out the price. And he looks directly at the camera and says, that's a terrible way to do business.
That was wild.
That was a
He's
weird.
sitting there in the tree, and like the camera just zooms in on his face, and he goes, and he looks directly at the camera. That's a terrible. I was like, what?
Yeah, I
What
think
the fuck am I watching right now? Like, I've never seen anything like that in a major movie.
I think they thought that it would be really cool to like zoom into his face, and then he drops out of frame, and you see the wood elf behind him in the tree, and it's like, oh, there was layers of people watching what's going on or something. But it
was
doesn't
so
work at
cool.
all.
It's not even a good joke. It's not delivered well.
No.
It makes no sense. It's crazy that it ended up in the final cut of this movie. I can't fucking believe it.
It's very much feels like a first-time director who had something in his head that he just had to put on the screen that just didn't work out the way he had it in his head. I
My
don't know.
head exploded when I fucking saw it. I'll tell you right now. So then they're back on the streets of Sumdal, I guess. Who fucking cares what location it is?
We're in
This
Izmir,
isn't
it's
Forgotten
Sumdal.
Realms.
I'll have the cream of some dull guy.
They wander to the other city where the Eye of Agamotto is the thing they need, or whatever it is, to control. Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To do this, they're going for this MacGuffin so they can get that
Yeah,
MacGuffin.
yeah.
They got to find a dragon staff before Prophylactic can find a dragon staff.
Yeah. So they can fight their staffs together against each other.
So they got to go to the Thieves Guild Master. That's who they got to find. His name is Zillis.
Yes.
Basically, they find this purple-headed.
Triclops.
That's not a thing from D&D that you know of, is it? It's not for me.
It's I think they called it a hyphen, But I'm like, I have no fucking
I could
idea
not
what
give a
this
fuck.
thing
I
is.
know the captions didn't work for me because all I could find was a shitty German version of this movie that had captions that didn't match.
I don't know how many of these things are in D&D. It sounds like not a lot, but I do appreciate that there is a lot of like freak jobs in this movie, like a lot of weird looking creature things.
Cantina creatures.
I don't
You
know.
could have lots of weird looking creature things, but you could make them in the D&D universe, which has more than you could name, more than you could fucking think of.
I will also throw out to the
Make it a kobold.
the old school nerds. This is like, I got into D&D in 5th edition, so if this is something from like D&D 2nd edition and you're like, he doesn't know what a hyphen is, I apologize.
I'll tell you it's not, because I'm from the D&D 2nd edition.
Okay.
This
Make it a gnoll, make it a kobold, make it something real from D&D.
As,
These guys don't realize that this creature is from D&D 1st edition, and it's called Paralosauraphorax.
It's fucking nonsense. It literally just looks like a reject from Deep Space Nine that wandered onto the set.
yeah, pretty much. Like,
It's doing like a lizard thing with its tongue or some weird speech impediment.
Yeah, a
thing.
lot of like little
It's
interesting
like
ticks
flicking
with the
its
tongue.
out.
Yeah.
And-
Just finished having some ribs, getting the last bits of barbecue sauce.
Shitty Ferengi.
and
They're
Even
like-
shittier than a normal Ferengi.
Let's follow this thing. It's going to take us to the guy we want to find.
yes.
So they follow this fucking purple three-eyed guy, and he tells them basically to fuck off, and doesn't matter. They meet Xylus, the head of the Thieves Guild.
Yeah, he's some kind of master thief, and
Yes.
he has possession of the red jewel that they need, I guess.
It's
He's
at the
played-
center of his booby trap maze, though.
He's played by Richard O'Brien. He's actually the guy who wrote the Rocky Horror Show.
And he's a
I
very...
think he uses they, them pronouns, actually, now that I'm saying
Okay.
it. And it's coming out of my mouth. I could be wrong. But famously queer
Yeah.
person. And that's cool that they're in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got...
A real English arts and theater legend.
Yeah, good get.
Yes,
So,
Xylus is there. He has his harem of beautiful women, but they're also PG, so it's okay.
yeah,
This
and so
movie is
basically,
painfully PG.
oh yeah, completely
Yeah.
sexless.
No blood, no sex.
So Xylus gives them a deal where basically he's like, yeah, I've got the eye. You just got to get through my flamethrower axe maze thing, and you can take it home with you. And they're like, fine. That's what they do for fun in this particular Thieves Guild, is they take these people and just watch them die. And, you know, what else are you going to do on a
it's
Tuesday
sort of
night?
like a
Yeah.
Mad Max Thunderdome scenario where you've got like a group of people like betting, placing bets, and watching the action go on, and then you've got a guy trying to go
it's
through
nothing
the death
new.
maze.
It's just how we pick our podcast guests.
Yeah.
Exact same thing.
But
you made it through the gauntlet.
I like this sequence. It was all done practically, and it was pretty fun. It's like really biting on Indiana Jones with getting through. He has to get through a sequence or a series of booby-trapped rooms.
And it shows that he's kind of clever and he's
Yeah.
agile. Like, he figures out, oh, I'm going to jump on top of these swinging blades.
You like this sequence?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I thought like it's there's something here. There's
Probably his most charming scene when
Yeah, Ridley's doing detect traps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
He
you
almost
get a
gets
bunch of
roasted.
cuts where it goes from Justin Whalen to some Olympic gymnast swinging and jumping between
Pretty
things.
much.
yeah, incredibly acrobatic, but
Yeah, there's a room with a bunch of ocular kind of carvings. They look like eyes, and they shoot fire.
yeah, there's some
And
weird
then the
like
walls cave in, and it's like, can we just throw every cliche possible into
Oh,
this
yeah.
fucking room? This is the cliche gauntlet.
yeah.
Look out.
I'm
There's a
watching
room where
something-
spikes come down from the roof. Yeah.
It's basically all the old-timey traps that Vonn loves, like the quicksand and the piranhas.
Oh, I would have loved
It's
for some
like,
quicksand.
There is quicksand later in this movie, though.
Yeah, but it should have been here.
No, yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
what
it
the
was
hell?
it was fine because there was actually, whether it was a bad looking stunt double or not, it was somebody doing something.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
there was some like a little bit of action, and
I love a man running in a maze,
I love
doing
maze.
things.
Again,
They should make a movie about a man running through
Yeah.
a maze, like people who run through mazes.
runner maze.
Yeah.
Runner.
The Running Man.
The Running Man.
That'd be sweet.
The Running Man.
Sub-Zero.
So through all of his wits, he's able to get to...
Hope you leave some room in my stomach for your fist. Go to punch it through your stomach. Rip out your fucking spine.
Break your goddamn spine. Classic.
So yes, they make it through the maze, and he grabs the eye, and Xylus is all like, "Oh, no one's ever made it through my maze," which is why I've never been able to get this eyeball. Thank you. There's no honor amongst thieves.
No.
So
That's
like,
literally what he says.
how did he? So he just found this booby trap maze and built an establishment. He built like a roadhouse over top of it, or what's going on here?
I don't know.
Apparently.
My headcanon is that like each thieves guild has their maze, and like the old thieves guild master must have put it in there, and Xylus just wasn't good enough to get it. So that's my headcanon, but that's just in my head. There's no reason to believe that at all.
This red ruby is the key to a red dragon door that the red dragon staff is hidden inside that you can use to command the red dragons.
But
It's almost coming home to roost.
yes, so Xylus has taken the red eyeball from him, but fortunately, Blue Lips has managed to sneak in 50 of his guards
Once
without
again.
anyone fucking noticing.
Damodar is there.
I shall not try a different tactic.
Yes.
Shall we take the back door? No, I think the front will suffice.
There's 50 of us. We don't need to do
Did you phone ahead? Did you phone ahead and have them make us make sure there's enough ale on hand for us?
And a fight breaks out.
Steven is a vegetarian. Make sure you have baby carrots.
Are there gluten-free
And
options?
So yeah,
I don't know how they're not ready for Damodar and his giant fucking gang to just appear in the most secretive society in Neverwinter.
I can't
Or
believe
no,
this
it's
happened
not
again.
Neverwinter.
Salvador, or whatever the hell they are.
It's some fucking bullshit made up city.
We're in Bleed Bloop Ishmark's prime. They're coming for us.
Damodar, a big fight breaks out. Xylus isn't too pleased that Damodar just walked through the front door of his house with his gang, like anybody can, apparently.
How did you
Yeah.
find my secret lair?
Yeah.
They have a showdown like, two fighting cocks, like two prime roosters, ready to lay it down. One guy, Mr. Blue Lips, he's like the king of that faction, and then you got like they're two alpha dogs, man. They're pecking each other here, and we find out who's the real alpha cock.
And this is the point where Mr. Blue Lips catches Mage Girl, right? Like,
yeah.
because I seem to remember she's like dramatically reaching for the scroll on the ground, and it's like, well, there's nothing holding you back, and there's nothing stopping you from crawling forward an extra foot. Why are you acting like you can't reach this thing?
It's
Yeah.
magic.
But Blue Lips here steps like about a foot away from the parchment, and she's all of a sudden unable to move any closer. I don't know why they shot it that way.
The perfect strategy.
Yeah, he does nothing to stop her from getting there. He just is standing in the same room, essentially.
Master tactic.
But it works, and so then Damodar takes Marina to question her. And he's like, look at me. Look at me! And he starts, his earbuds starting going fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Well, he's like trying to convince her, like, I don't want to do this. Look what's happened to me. And honestly, I feel like if I was in her position, I'd be like, oh, fuck, I feel bad for this guy. Like, someone shoved these weird tentacle monsters into him.
It's a pretty meaty performance.
Oh, that's a good, that's good interrogation. He's doing the good cop, bad cop thing. But he has both inside of him.
in a weird schizophrenic way. Like a guy with multiple
He says
personalities.
it's Profian's desire to dethrone the Empress, but not his. And that's when he just, like, draws the information out of her forcefully using the mind flayer thing.
He's really sketchy, though. He's like all sweaty. He kind of seems like a weird crackhead that approached you. He's like, I love the Empress, but my neck bulges. Do you see my neck bulges? I'll die if I don't betray the... You have to help me live. Don't you? He's very... It's not convincing energy. It's not diplomatic. It's very much like, I want to.
I'd believe him. I don't know.
I'd believe he'll hurt me if I don't do what he says.
An unhinged lunatic. Can you help me out?
But here's the thing.
I have worms in my brain.
She's like, no. And he's like, all right, fine. And he busts his tentacles out and like, they jam onto her ears.
Yeah, he's like,
and it's like, he just sucks the memories out. It's like, why even try?
All along, I could have sucked your memories.
I could have just taken these memories. There's nothing you could do to stop me. I don't know why we're trying to
He probably
pretend
doesn't want to be...
a weird tentacle rapist.
Actually,
Okay.
he's kind of like an out-and-out villain throughout.
I think it
This
matters
is violating.
to ask your enemies what their plans are before you even can force them out of them. I think it matters to know who you're sitting across the table from to see what they actually want to tell you versus what they actually think.
That's how Luke deals with all of his enemies.
I think that was
Then
in,
he breaks out his mind tentacle.
that was in Sun Tzu's Art of War. I'm pretty sure. You must know what your enemy
Know your
thinks.
enemies before you send your earworms.
I am a student of Sun Tzu. I work in business, so it's like actually like a big part of my personality where I'm like, I am a Sun Tzu Art of War.
So yeah,
So Nodar and their entourage, they end up apprehending Snails, Ridley, and Elwood, and they're like, "Oh, we gotta." Snails is like, "What are you gonna do? Like risk your life for a mage?" And they tell
He never risks his life for nothing.
they tell Nodar, the Elven Ranger, that Damodar captured Marina and took the scroll. So Nodar, she consults with the Empress, who tells her to seek Damodar. She's like,
she pops out a magic mirror.
yeah, exactly. She just FaceTimes with the Empress, and she goes, "Okay, well they'll travel with us, but should they try to escape, kill them."
Basically.
And so then we get a bunch of scenes of them walking around, which are really exciting. Like the dwarf guy being like on a horseback, being like, "Can't I just walk? Don't you people know dwarves are terrified of horses?" Wah, wah.
I'm not afraid to show my true feelings. Some dwarves are, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And
He's just crying like a baby.
and Marlon Wayne.
It's not funny. We're making it sound like it's funny.
It's not.
It's so flat in this movie.
And then Snails tries to hit on the elf again, and she's like, I'm 234.
Yeah,
He's like, well, I'm 23. Oh, okay. It's like, all right.
And it's not a funny
deterrent.
joke either. Like, it's doesn't land with any punch. He just
I
goes, I didn't think there was that much difference. And, like, that's the end of the joke. I'm like, that's not...
I think that's an original and as-written joke without
Marlon.
any of Marlon's embellishments.
Try harder, buddy.
He should have done a pratfall at the end. That would have been like the perfect punchline to that joke. I could have got behind that.
Oh, geez, I fell into a tray full of pies.
Cream meat pies.
Cream pies?
Hey, you turning a meat pie into a cream pie over there.
Oh, you got a cream pie, me, Elven Ranger.
I had my meat pie. Now let me have some dessert. Some cream pie.
Let me suck the cream out of this cream pie. And I'll stick me meat in this meat pie.
You know what? Despite your terrible impersonations, I kind of like that no one did affectations. Like, they weren't doing the English voices in either movie, were they?
No.
Like, Hugh Grant was,
Not
because he's
really.
English, but, like, Chris Pine wasn't trying to do one.
Yeah, I was
Everyone's
like,
doing
Hugh
their
Grant,
own
turn
thing.
it off.
It's not
Turn
like
it
Game of
down,
Thrones.
buddy.
So they go from dark, it's the dead of midnight, and they're going through the woods. And then they cut to broad daylight, and Snails and Ridley have to break into this castle. This
There's
prison.
not much build up here, and there's
No.
no explanation. They're just having to break into a castle, and it's like, okay,
Yes.
where is everybody? What's happening?
And this is, we mentioned earlier, this is the scene to me where, like, the reverse of the Zank thing. Because when Zank wandered off and didn't want to help, I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. But the dwarf is like, all right, we got to go help them. And the elf lady's like, we were not meant to enter this place. I'm just like, what? why the fuck not? You're the best tracker in the Empress's army. He's a decent fighter. You have an army.
We are not meant to.
Why are you sending in?
We're not meant to enter.
Enough said.
Nonsense. You're right.
Right? Like, there's no explanation, and it doesn't work. It's not fun.
Everything is baffling. Yeah, there's no fun. No fun in this movie.
What about that joke we just talked about where a 23-year-old man is trying to get with a 230-year-old
With the meat pie?
And the meat pie. What about when the dwarf was fucking a meat pie 2 seconds ago?
Actually, there is a fun part here where Ridley and Snails are about to split up, and Snails somersaults away for no reason. I was like, hey, I don't know why I find that funny.
That's a thief move.
Well, Marlon Wayans is funny.
Yeah.
He's not funny a lot in this movie, but he is a funny person, and I like him a lot.
And he's not going to be funny for much longer.
No.
Is that a threat? You're gonna
It
go.
is a threat. The movie
So-
just takes out its most fun actor to watch.
I thought he was threatening Marlon Wayans.
Yeah, I
Like
thought you
guys
were gonna give him the
threatened
Rob
Reiner.
Reiner treatment.
No. Long live Marlon Wayans, right?
We're a pro Marlon Wayans podcast. Sure, yeah.
No harm will befall you.
And this is the
I'll
point
make sure.
where they introduced like one of the most iconic D&D monsters, the Beholder. The Beholder is
Yeah.
in this prison. It is one of the most iconic things from D&D. It's
You see it for a couple
a heartbeat. It's like it's a pretty powerful monster. It's outwitted by the old. I'm gonna throw a rock that away and just run the
Yeah.
other way.
And this monster in Dungeons and Dragons is like a genius level intellect, right? Like the Beholder is
They're
like
smart,
a really smart,
and
like,
they can see everything. They can see through all illusions. They have many, many, many eyes. They're one of the most powerful and dangerous
yeah.
enemies in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. They split up. Snails is like, oh, I'll go after the map. And he's going to Damodar's chambers, and Ridley's going to rescue Marina.
And along the way, he gets snagged by a quicksand rug.
Yeah.
Well, there's one thing I found kind of funny because
Snails does.
Snail sneaks into Damodar's his bedroom, and he's like walking around his bedroom, like poking around in the shit. And he sees this giant hookah, and he's like, "Nice, nice, Damodar. Like, I can dig it." But yes, he goes
It's
to.
another treasure room, and he's looking to help himself as he goes through it.
Where does he keep it all?
Maybe he has a bag of holding.
It's-
Prison wallet.
Yeah, the old prison pocket.
My bag of holding.
But yes, he goes to grab the scroll, and the carpet he's standing on, it's quicksand. He sinks into it. He's done. He's done for.
It's kind of a cool effect. He falls into the quicksand rug. This happened in the 2023 Dungeons and Dragons as well. Holga and Chris Pine are walking across a rug at one point, and they get sucked in. I was wondering if it was a reference to this movie.
I think it's just a reference to a trap.
Yeah, maybe it's an actual D&D trap, but
I think that the 2023 movie was keeping as much distance as possible
Yeah.
from this movie.
Yeah.
see, if it's an actual D&D trap, it doesn't make sense it would be in this movie.
That is true. And then we cut back to Ridley, who is, I don't know, maybe they cut a scene because for some reason he now has a ring of keys and he's able to open the prison door. I don't know if it's like his magic master set or if they cut a scene where he finds these keys and Marina's like curled up on the ground sobbing. And
It's a dark scene.
pretty
He finds her in
intense.
the dungeon and she's like rocking back and forth in the dark, and then he comforts her and she looks up and she's got her full face of makeup on and she's fine.
She's fine.
She's fine.
Yeah. She doesn't look that rough.
No.
She's got like a little bit of like ashes and stuff smudged on her face, but she still looks like she just walked off the set of Party of Five.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like all the fucking actors.
She
in
just
this
got out of
movie.
church for Ash Wednesday. That's all. She's like, I was just gently mind flayed. My mind is
My
barely
line is
flayed.
semi-flayed. I'll be okay. Give me a big hug.
I just got to
We'll
walk
be
it
fine.
off. Give me a bowl of ice cream,
Pretty much.
a pint of Ben and Jerry's.
Be good to go.
And then we're back to Snails, who, for some reason, Dramador has pulled out of the quicksand. Like, he could have just, crushed his skull while he was stuck there.
Then he doesn't get to kill him in front of all of his friends.
I guess. But the running away scene to me is great because they're fighting and Snails is getting his ass kicked. But he pulls out a knife from his boot. He gets a slash in. And it reminds me very much of like a Michael Myers scenario. Snails is running as fast as he fucking can. And Damodar is slowly walking after him. And Snails ends up on this like balcony. And like he just falls to his knees and like screams no, or it's like so upset about this.
Oh God!
As Dramadar slowly makes his way over, it's like, dude,
Justin Whalen is asked to do way more acting than he's capable of here.
Yeah.
This is a bizarre. It's a hinge point of the movie in a weird way where the comic relief character Marlon Wayans is very brutally dispatched by Mr. Blue Lips.
You realize that he was the only thing holding this movie together and making it even remotely watchable.
He gets the Wolverine claws, and then he gets thrown off a fucking cliff.
He breaks Marlon Wayans' arms. He's like taking his time breaking his limbs, and then he like splays them out and displays him for Ridley, and then he gives him the Wolverine claws and the base of his his like cerebral cortex. I don't know. Throws him off the edge.
And yes, Justin Whalen gives this like the Darth Vader no scream. And he goes at the Blue Lips, and he has a sword, and I don't know if you guys noticed this, he gets him right in the chest, like clear overhand swipe, and it just like ping bounces off his armor. So yeah, well, if you can't get through his armor, you're fucked.
I thought he was toast.
So what's his name? Blue Lips grabs the sword and stabs him with the sword, and is like torturing him. And I'm like, this is getting pretty dark. It's like, tell me what I want to know. And it's
Are
like,
we having fun yet?
never. And he starts like twisting the sword. He's like, I killed your friend. Now I'm gonna kill you, and then I'm gonna kill your girlfriend, and then I'm gonna.
Your fun-loving friend who was so
Fuck
full
your
of
mom! I'm gonna fuck your uncle!
Then I'm going to mind flay the dwarf.
I'm gonna fuck your ancestors
Pretty much.
with my sword.
Where's that stone of resurrection?
I'll bring you back just so I can do it all.
Look at all these blue rings on the dwarf's cock. How do you think those got here?
Those are forged from mithril. A dwarven metal.
So, Justin Whalen, Ridley, he's wounded, and Marina makes a portal, and they flee through it.
Yeah.
And then we get, guess what, guys? Another exciting Congress.
Smash cut to a committee scene.
Committee.
The Empress has to justify herself to the committee, and she's like, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll just kill everyone with these dragons.
Well, Jeremy Irons' plan this whole time was he's been poisoning the council's mind, where he's like, if the Empress won't give up her green stick that controls dragons, then it means she's against us, and it will be war if that happens. And they're like, yeah, that makes sense to us wizards.
Yes, in the most monotone voice possible, she calls him an unscrupulous charlatan, and she storms out of the council hall.
Prophylactic. Do you have to be such an unscrupulous charlatan?
She refuses to give up her golden staff, and she leaves.
She's got nothing going on performance-wise. She can't muster anything. She's just like delivering. It's such a rote delivery of the dialogue, and meanwhile Jeremy Irons is jumping around and just camping it
He's
out.
channeling Scar. and yeah, it's like Vonn said, in like literally the next scene with the Empress. Like, she's like, I don't feel like we should. I'm going to give you my staff. And the next scene, she's like, all right, get my fucking dragons together. We're going to fuck these people up. It would be like if someone went to Biden and was like, hey, maybe we shouldn't hurt these people. And he's like, all right, where's my nuclear bomb button? I'm blowing this entire goddamn country into dust, right? Like, no hesitation. And all I could think at that point was like, hey, you know what? Maybe giving a teenage girl the ability to just kill everyone around them with no consideration, maybe that isn't a good idea. But that is it's an excellent scene where we finally understand the true nuance of this political system. They have their debate.
Yeah.
She gives very strong, powerful rhetoric, and he gives equally powerful, and he's just a little bit better, though.
This is an important movie.
Okay,
It
we
really
know who you'd
dissects-
vote for. Got it.
I'd vote for Jeremy Irons every single time. He is a treasure.
The politics are very
Better
ambiguous, I found, but she is very much for the common man and social equality.
But everybody's got to
It's
back
so
your-
vague.
It's
like,
so vague.
I say social equality, hands washed, everybody's equal now.
Does
That's
every-
all there is to it.
Does
The
everybody
peasants
get a
should
gold
feed their
dragon?
families.
No. She's the only one with the gold dragons.
Yeah, man, she's a dragon rider.
She's
I wonder if a dragon girl's like a horse girl.
she's been good in other things, you said, because like
Yes,
Yeah,
Thora Birch is good
fucking
in other
awful.
things.
She's
Yeah.
talented.
She's so bad.
like
at this.
this.
It's one of these movies where it makes you look at other movies that you've seen with her in it that you've enjoyed, and you're like, was she shit in that movie? And I just enjoyed it despite her performance. Because
No.
like it's a lacking performance in this movie.
This is like anytime you watch like a cartoon or like anything where someone's given like I don't know like Ritalin, where like it just completely drains all emotion from them. Like I'm like, how stoned was she during her performances? Because like her face doesn't even move. She's got no emotions.
I
Throughout
think
this
it's
movie.
tough to do the regal thing. Like if you look at what's her name who played Daenerys in Game of Thrones,
Amelia
like,
Clark.
everybody liked to shit on her performance, but like that's a really hard part
yeah.
to play that where she has to be strong and she has to be sexy and she has to be believable in all of these parts. I
Sometimes
think she
vulnerable.
did a fantastic job. Yeah.
I always liked her. Yeah.
Daenerys, not this
Fantastic
person.
in that fucking show. But, you know, it's like a thankless role. Anyway, you have like whatever 16-year-old Thora Birch.
Yeah.
She just can't cut it in that.
And I'm sure it's a bit like you always hear this with the Star Trek actors trying to do like the sci-fi jargon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Jargon?
Jargon.
Jargon. I am Jargon the dragon. I'm sure doing like this weird like fantasy dialogue doesn't it's not naturalistic for an actor. It's probably a bit like doing Shakespeare. I'm sure like Shakespearean actors could do weird D&D stuff.
She's not
no
given
problem.
a ton of random jargony words, though. It's like,
No.
we want equality and we control. She's talking about dragons. That's
Yeah.
a pretty.
You are bad, Jeremy Irons.
And that's the other thing. Like when you're across from Jeremy Irons, who's like hamming it up as only other people can, but he's at the top of his hamminess. It's like, okay,
He's a peak villain.
maybe if it was like someone who's a little more subdued as the villain, she wouldn't look so subdued.
Dude, the guy's like an Easter dinner. It's just the table's laid with ham with this guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. I feel like if I'm sitting across from Jeremy Irons right now at this table, I'd be at his level or like approaching his level at least. Like if he's going crazy like that, you have to like match
You
that.
gotta match his energy. You gotta energy match.
I feel like if I was just holding the script and reading it, I would have delivered it with more emotion than she does.
I'm trying to remember if Jeremy Irons is ever really in the same room as her. I know that they are, but it's like watching it, it really seems like he's kind of doing his own
Doubtful.
thing for the most
Yeah.
part. So
Right at the end, they have a conflict, but it could have very well just been them in separate rooms with CGI putting them together. But they do have a face-off eventually.
We don't see them in the same frame at any given time.
So
No.
yes, he
Anyway.
very easily convinces the rest of the wizards, hey, let's go to war against her.
we don't. She doesn't want dragons. We want dragons.
Exactly.
The Empress won't relinquish her staff. That means she's against us, and the war is on.
Exactly.
And the war is
Like,
on.
hey, remember all them scenes from Star Wars Episode 1 that everyone loved? So glad we rehashed them
Yeah.
once again here, because that's what the kids want, right?
This was definitely
That's what I
the
wanted.
Empress's scene of, I will not discuss my kingdom's problems in the committee. And then the mages turn on her.
Yeah.
So-
So they end up some elven healer.
They go to Elf Town and
So
Tom
very-
Baker, who is a previous Doctor Who, is helping
Oh.
Ridley get better. and he explains how the rod can destroy the fabric of magic. He said, "Oh, well, you humans, you merely use magic, but elves like us, we are a part of it."
We were born into it.
You're
molded
part
by
of
it.
magic?
Essentially,
Yeah.
Yes. That's
Wow.
right.
I've only lived in
That's
this
so
universe
cool.
for 30 years. How do you not know that?
This elf village very much looks like a Star Wars, like a Wookiee village. If you've
E-
seen one
Ewok
of those in the
village.
games or something like that, it's just like they're living in roots hanging from a giant forest and stuff
Very
like that.
Lothlorien
Yeah.
adjacent too, but it
Like
predates the Peter Jackson.
Yeah, yeah.
When-
Elves live in
Anyway.
tree elves live in trees.
When Ridley gets the magic sword, I did right. Ridley gets a Lothlorien sword to help
Yeah.
fight the forces of evil.
Okay, was this where he got the magic sword? I missed that.
So he gets healed, and then he's out on like the balcony, and Marina walks up to him, and they try to have like an emotional. He's like, "Snails died for nothing. You wizards don't understand." And she's like,
This
"The
was again
Empress."
the tone going very dark in this movie where they killed snails in a very dark scene and now they're having this emotional conflict. They're both crying. Ridley's crying, the librarian's crying. They're like and it ends with them smooching.
Well,
It's-
so she basically
The kiss came out of nowhere. They had no chemistry
At all.
beforehand
you're
or
a
after.
smart mage after all.
she basically
They're
admits
just ripping off Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
You're just having Luke and Leia kiss. That's all it is.
and we find out later on that they're actually brother and sister. So that was the real weird twist.
So it's
Do
even
not.
hotter.
But
Oh, stepbrother.
that's the thing. She's very much like, I always thought commoners were scum and they weren't worth my time, and I'm better than them. But then I met you, and my lady boner makes me realize commoners are people.
That's
Yeah.
honestly her arc in the movie, and those are the words she uses. She's
Like, I supported the Empress, I guess, but I thought her dumb commoners are good idea was stupid.
So yes.
but then I met a commoner.
So 13 seconds earlier, they're talking about this guy's best friend getting murdered. They start smooching, but who's jacking off watching them? It's the imp. He's still there.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me watching the movie.
No,
yeah, the gremlin's
other
there.
little freakish imp.
Yeah.
or me watching Mitchell watch the movie.
And
It was a
then
chain.
we cut to them leaving, and they're like, "Here, take this sword." And he's like, "Oh, thank you." And they just leave. Like, I don't know what to say about this whole little sequence because it's
It's very much like the hero needs his fancy sword.
yes.
Nothing about this was earned. It
or really
sucked.
explained at all. So then they have to go do a bit of a dungeon crawl to get the last little MacGuffin to
Yeah,
get the
and
dragon.
it's like, sweet, we got the whole team together. Let's do a dungeon crawl.
Can we see a party work together and utilize their
No, fuck
strength,
you.
yeah, great.
their
That would
strength?
be great.
you.
That's Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah.
No, only the white man can cross.
Oh, and the dwarf's still there, in
Yeah.
case anyone's wondering.
I'm still here, he says.
Directly to the camera.
Yeah, so they go to this dungeon, and then a force field blocks the entire team from coming in except for Ridley.
Yeah.
Justin Whalen, the main guy.
The
I'm
mage
like,
is like, this is
why
very
even-
powerful magic. We can't get through this one.
Why? Why even have a fucking party at this point? Because
Yeah.
nobody else in this movie has anything to do.
No.
He has a very interesting lamp. I don't know if you guys noticed. It's a weird like circular thing that stood out to me for some
Like
reason.
a fleshlight?
Like
Yeah, basically. And then
was it an orb?
and then he falls down a hole, and there's
Yeah,
this is-
that's the dungeon crawl. It's
Yeah.
like, oh boy, I'm in a dungeon. And then,
Yeah.
because we haven't seen this in a million movies,
Yeah.
like Indiana Jones or what have you, he falls through a tunnel. That's always thrilling.
Yeah.
A good 20-second sequence of a guy going, ah, going down a slide.
Yeah.
and what's at the bottom of this hole? It's a weird, goofy red dragon statue with a big old smile.
It's the thing I was looking for.
Yeah, and he puts the eye in it, and it opens the door, and it's a room filled with treasure. And it's an Aladdin.
Nice.
It's basically an Aladdin scene, right? He shows up and he's
Cave
like,
of Wonders.
yeah, he's like, oh, this treasure's for me. And then he's like, oh, I'm sorry, snails.
Yeah.
Can't steal. I have more important things to do.
This was
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Then we get the skeleton of Sarville.
Yeah.
Who talks in the skeleton voice. He's like, "Be warned. Anyone who wields the power of the rod shall suffer a horrible fate. For the evil it creates cannot be undone unless its spell is broken."
How do you break it?
It's
That you must discover.
You must discover.
it turns
It's
into
like, well, why would you even tell me any of that? Because that doesn't matter then.
And I do like how
I'm just an animatronic. I'll be saying the same thing to the next person who comes tumbling through here.
Be sure to stop at the gift shop on your way out.
so he grabs
We
the
have
staff.
keychains.
He grabs
Photographs
the
of you
staff.
coming down the slide can be purchased for an additional fee.
On Tuesdays.
He grabs the staff
Tuna
from the
salad
skull.
and chicken salad sandwiches are half off.
powers down. Just hangs
Well,
limp.
that's exactly it.
Basically exactly what it
gives
is.
its monologue and stares at him for a second and then it just slumps.
It's so
done.
anticlimactic. He just grabs the fucking rod from it.
I did think this scene was kind of very coolly, randomly gothic horror in a way, where you've got like the talking corpse. I was like, oh, I can kind of get behind this vibe.
There's a
I
little
love
bit,
a skeleton with the skeleton accent.
It reminded me of like an Evil Dead thing. Like Ash would be talking to the skeleton trying to retrieve an artifact or something.
This is another thing that kind of worked for me too, where there's something there. You get a little talking puppet. I'm okay with that.
And he basically says that he sees in Ridley some kind of a good thing. He's like, you could be the hero to wield this. Ridley gets the red dragon stone, the staff, and he's looking at the mural, and it kind of like nails home how powerful this staff
This
is.
staff looks like if you go to a dollar store and buy like a bow and arrow around Halloween.
This is very
time.
powerful
Yeah, you just
staff.
like spray painted gold. It's
Yeah.
cheap, flimsy looking plastic.
You dare insult the wizard staff? You'll pay.
You are not worthy of the staff of the Red Dragon.
Saville.
I lay the curse
Saville.
on you.
Apologies, that staff was one of the gift store replicas. The real staff is over in the corner there.
But be warned.
But be warned, all sales are final.
As always with magical items.
So he runs out and he's just screaming. He's like, I got the rod, I got the rod. Just like, the guy has no tact. I don't know. He's been hailed and hounded by like 50 guys this entire movie. And he just runs out and just starts screaming his head off without even looking around.
And once again, old Blue Lips just wanders in with his 50 soldiers.
Yes. Again.
Enter frame right.
But before that happens, you do cut back to the city, and you see Profion. He's gathered his like 10 wizard buddies at the top of the mountain, and the dragons are attacking them.
They're in a tower.
And Jeremy Irons kills one of them, and he's like so happy with himself because he's like,
Dragon blood.
Kills one of the dragons?
yes.
Yeah. He's got a big ballista.
And the sky turns black and like it starts to storm and the Empress says, "What have I done?" Summons the dragons back to her. But in her next scene, she's sending them back out to murder everyone. It's like,
Yeah.
did you have a change in like the way you were gonna do
She
things?
got so sad when she saw a dragon die that she had a little moment of doubt. But next thing you know, she's dragon riding over
She
to
is
that tower.
no tactician.
And then yes, Ridley storms out of the cave. He's screaming at the top of his lungs, "I finally did it, you guys!" Blue Lips has snuck his 50 guards through the woods again. He's captured Ridley's gang. And
I guess she's basically a Targaryen, eh? She's like the one who controls dragons in this setting. So
Yeah.
she's the Empress, and if somebody else gets control of the dragons, there could be a little dance of dragons going on, you know?
To use the parlance of a fantasy series that has internal logic
Yeah.
and stakes.
I need to relate this to something that makes sense in some desperate way.
Forget that.
Don't look for that here.
So the dragon is a triangle spork in this one, eh?
So yes.
So Ridley tosses the rod to Damodar because they've got knives at all of his team's throat.
Yes.
Oh,
We're just
look.
standing there helplessly
her.
because
I've cut her.
yeah,
What a shame.
bunch of useless fucking morons. The entire team, everybody who isn't Ridley sucks in this movie.
Well, and again, yes, he gives him the staff, but then like his team just beats all of the guards, right? Like it's not even a challenge. The dwarf picks up his axe, kills 5 people. The ranger picks up her whatever, kills 5 people. Ridley's sword is now like a lightsaber. When it hits things, it's like.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
It's
it
like-
has to be like a lightsaber.
Why did you give him the staff? Like we trounced these guys.
Yeah,
give them
he
a
gave
staff.
him the fucking stupid staff, and then Damodar was like, I lied. Killed them slowly. And they just
He's so
literally
bad.
just, yeah, like you said, they just beat the shit out of everybody.
And he just like walks through a portal, right? He just like has he been able to
He's like
summon
a-
portals before?
He's out of here.
Lips just
He's
casually strolls through a portal and disappears.
Lips.
Hey, Lips, why don't you make a portal and come on over to my place?
Hey, hot lips. What
But
you doing, Blue
Ridley
Lips?
dives
Lips,
through
legs,
the portal. after
breasts,
him.
and ass.
Damodar's got the whole package.
So he goes, yeah, he goes straight to Profian. And Profian is like, yes! And he takes the red dragon rod. He releases the mind flayer thing from
What about my head?
Get
Yeah,
the
he makes him think that
brainworms.
he's not going to do it. Like, Lips is really wanting this thing out of him, and he's really starting to lose his cool.
Yeah, he's had about enough of a parasite inhabiting his brains.
Who can blame him?
He's been sweating and frothing for the last 40 minutes. He's
But,
like,
like-
get this brainworm out of my ears, please.
But what's my motivation? Well, you have a brainworm in your ears, and you don't want it there. Got
It's
it.
very uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable sensation.
So, how did Ridley and the gang get there? Did they just walk through the same portal?
Ridley followed through the portal. I don't know how the rest of them did. I guess they did. They just kind of show up
I
later.
feel like the girl mage must
okay.
have created a
Sure,
portal.
because she can do that.
Ridley
Yeah.
follows Damodar through the portal, Lips, and he has this fight with him, and it's okay, whatever. They're having a big Star Wars-esque fight with the blades clashing with the light, and then he does like a big backflip off the railing, and he pulls out a dagger and he stabs Damodar in the back, and it's like, like it's so intense and evil. Like,
And Ridley gets his moments like, oh, look, I've cut you. What a shame. And
it's
it's so unearned, too, because when has Ripley ever been able to do that? I guess he can kind of do backflips, but he's never been shown to be competent with a sword
No.
in his entire movie.
There were a couple scenes where he, like in the prison, he like fought like 5 guards or whatever. But like,
he fought a couple guys.
This
but
is like
this
the
is
king. This is
crazy.
like he's like the top henchman.
yeah,
And then he's just straight murdering a guy and just being like completely psychotic about it. And
Doing
I'm
like the badass lines and
stabs him in the back and throws him off the tower.
this was upsetting how fucking brutal this murder was.
think
I know
took a
he was
picture of
trying
this
to
as well.
it's vengeance.
redo what Damodar did to snails, but it was too much.
It's like watching a person being broken on a wheel in medieval torture or something. It's like, no.
I don't need this in my Dungeons and Dragons movie.
And then we cut to our Jeremy Irons, and he delivers like 3 lines in a row that I really love. He's like, "You can run, your ladyship, but you'll never run far enough." And like, "Let the blood rain from the sky. I'll
Yeah.
invent a new destiny, especially for you,
man.
full of pain."
That's so metal. I wish blood would rain.
You
from the
think you
sky.
can take away my destiny? I'll invent a new destiny, especially for you, full of pain,
and what's-
new kinds of pain, and new senses to feel them with.
New senses.
It's like a Cenobite.
Yeah, I've got.
Not so talented, eh, Mr. Ridley? I've enjoyed our little chat, but now it's time to die.
Ridley's response: Not if I kill you first.
Wow,
like
he's
a-
a real charismatic dynamo.
So-
When Luke's doing the Jeremy Irons, he's got the Hitler gesticulation. It's perfect.
well, I learned
from the
from my
best.
idols.
So Jeremy Irons summons a staff out of thin air. He smacks Ridley around for like 3 seconds and literally just tosses the staff off to the side. Like, okay.
And so now he's controlling dragons, and now at this point there's entirely too many dragons in the movie.
There's a
'cause-
lot of crappy CGI dragons floating around in that
And
skyline.
his dragon's just like, he like holds up the staff and there's like a flash of light on the horizon and the red dragons just appear. Like, are they summoned creatures? Do they like really exist?
They're here now. When that weird old elf resurrected Ridley earlier, he was like, I had a fantastic dream. I saw a dragon being born, and it was like a fantastic explosion of stars and stuff. And the old elf was like, well, there must always be balance with dragons. If a dragon dies...
There must always be balance with dragons.
There must be balance in the Force. There must. We elves are part of magic. So, I don't know how that ties in here. Elves. It's like if too many dragons die, the world will be out of balance and self-destruct or something. That's like a
Something
weird,
like
like
that.
Yes,
side
yes, yes,
stakes
the magic
happening.
goes out of the world.
So
Yeah, that's kind of a ripped off of Song of Ice and Fire too.
Yeah.
So Ridley's friends appear. I don't remember how, because like
They just appear. They
Okay,
don't show
but-
them getting there. They just show them
We're here now.
here's the
in
thing.
the background, like they always pop up.
I remember Jeremy Irons going through them like a hot knife through butter. I don't remember how Ridley gets his hands on the magic dragon staff again. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it's-
not a fight. Like, it's not a fair fight. Jeremy Irons just like trouncing these guys, but somehow he gets the staff. Does anyone remember how he?
Well,
steals
Jeremy Irons has the drop on Ridley. God, I can't remember any of the names in this fucking movie. They're so shitty. And yeah, not so talented, eh, Mr. Ridley?
Calls him Mr. Ridley.
Was that a talented Mr. Ripley reference? I don't understand.
Patricia Highsmith.
But yeah, then that's when the gang shows up. And Profian just stands there because the gang comes after him and he kind of just like shoots them away with force lightning. And then Ridley just gets up and grabs the rod and he's like, you can't use it. You can't possibly use it. And he's just standing there like an idiot
It's too
while
powerful.
Ridley's trying to use the rod. And he's like, well, maybe I'll just try. And it's like,
Oh, I can. Look at that. Turns out I can use it.
that's all.
He goes through a whole thing, like a whole emotional spectrum here, Ridley, while he's got this rod where he's like, you can tell he feels the absolute power of being able to control red dragons coursing through him, and there's like a moment where he's like going a little dark with his facial expressions, like I
Luke
could be the next
Skywalker,
emperor.
He's
you're
like, no, I won't become you.
Yeah.
Smashes the staff.
And then this is when the Empress shows up. And he's like, Your Majesty. He's doing the
I will
exact
supplicate
Scar
myself.
thing where he like sucks up to him for a minute before he like,
He shoots a weird skeleton monster at her. Ah!
yeah.
The battle may be over, but not the war.
And like he has her like pinned down with his weird skeleton monster. And then a shadow appears and he turns around and Dudley the dragon is just sitting there. And it just gone fights over. He gets swallowed by this shitty dragon.
Yeah. He
A
gets
fitting
chomped
end.
up by that shit dragon.
As soon as his character raps, he's phoning up his wife. Yes, we can retile the third bathroom on the second floor.
We can live in our European castle now.
And
You
the
think
Empress
Jeremy Irons just talks like that, like to his wife?
probably. Oh, and the Empress
Tonight we will have
Any rule,
chicken.
any rule where he doesn't sound evil, is where he's actually acting and putting on a voice. For Scar or for Dungeons and Dragons, he's just doing his normal voice.
Yeah. Anyway, he gets chomped up. You see the CGI dragon swallow him. You see the lump go down the dragon's throat. It's like, okay, good. He's being digested.
And the Empress has successfully killed all the other leadership of her country. Like a strong leader must. Anyone who
Good for her.
disagrees has to be fed to the fucking dragon.
Good for her.
A
Kill them all.
1,000 years of benevolent rule under the new monarchy.
We get Thorbridge's ADR monologue, and she's like, "People of Izmir, at long last, I do declare that you are now all equal. Let the celebration begin."
The peasant in his farmer's field is like, "Oh, guess I'm equal now." Goes back to hoeing the land.
There's a really weird music drop where can't be remember. Just like everybody parties down, everybody's equal.
Earth, wind, and fire.
Yeah.
So Ridley is now wearing his new fancy vest that's black. He's at a gravestone that says snails, and he's like, "Buddy, we did it. I'm Ridley the Savior. I'm going to miss you."
Know that you did make a difference.
But then an ominous wind blows, and Snail's name disappears from the
Yeah,
gravestone.
he places that ruby on Snails' grave.
Yes.
And it glows.
And it
turns
glows.
red. This ending made no sense to me.
And Norda's like, "Do not question your gift. Your friend awaits you."
And they turn into
The group
fireflies.
all puts their hands together like,
Like a team putting your hands
Yeah,
in, like,
yeah.
"Go Tigers!"
And they-
kind of thing.
and then they all get turned
disappear.
into pink mist.
They turn into fireworks and shoot off into the sky. It doesn't make sense.
What the fuck was that?
And I made a note. The adventure continues. Definitely not because this movie is a piece of shit. Except apparently there were 2 sequels, so
Yeah.
maybe the story does continue.
That shocked me. I never got a whiff of those sequels. I
Okay,
didn't know they
listener, we're
existed.
going to talk about those sequels right now.
Special.
Buckle up
remix
for another
bonus.
4 hours.
God.
Oh, so that was.
I don't know what the fuck that ending was.
No,
I'm
I've no
seriously
idea.
baffled by that.
It's
They
I
thought they
feel
were
like
going to get a
something
sequel.
was missed there. Like, I feel like they were supposed to be disappearing into another realm for an adventure, but that didn't come across. At all.
is that the vibe you're getting? Because like that doesn't
Well-
read like a sequel setup at all to me. It reads like your characters that you just followed in this movie disappeared and turned into mist.
They're constellations now. They're like Greek mythology.
They're
turned
up
into
there
a
up there in the
star.
sky with all the other lions.
They're Ursa Minor now.
Just a terrible movie that was unfinished from the beginning. It
I
made
loved
no
it.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Bravo.
Yeah, that was 2000's Dungeons and Dragons. Highly memorable. Let's go around do some final thoughts. Mitch, what did you make of all this?
Yeah, the 2000s Dungeons and Dragons was coming at a very particular time in the fantasy genre. It was pre Lord of the Rings as a new line release. I feel like they didn't have a lot of faith in the intellectual property, and they were just like, let's make it as a generic fantasy movie, and we'll throw like a Han Solo guy in there, and he'll have a love interest, and they'll smooch and stuff, and there'll be like a blue lips guy. Everyone loves that. And it just didn't quite work out. But when you watch the 2023 one, it's just so chock full of, if you've played Dungeons and Dragons, you'll recognize a million references in it and stuff like that. But it's not just about that either. It's not an excuse to go from reference to reference. It's actually a pretty good, pretty funny movie overall. So it's a solid recommend.
Right.
It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it's like a great, fun action adventure movie.
So your vote is for?
The 2023 Dungeons and Dragons.
Right on. What about you, Luke?
Yeah, this is just an easy down the middle shot. I mean, the 2023 Dungeons and Dragons is much truer to the 2023. The 2023 Dungeons and Dragons is much truer to the Dungeons and Dragons style and ethos and mythos. It's kind of I wouldn't say it's fucking Citizen Kane. It's by far the best movie from... This isn't even close to the best movie we've covered on this podcast so far, but it's quite enjoyable.
Yeah.
2000s Dungeons and Dragons might be the worst or among the worst, in my opinion. It's fucking damn near unwatchable.
Probably-
It misses the mark on every single thing that it's going for.
Like, relative to budget, Probably. Like, Macbeth is pretty crappy, but it was like a zero-budget movie, whereas this had some millions poured into it, and it didn't turn out too good.
Macbeth.
I'd put it below Wheelie.
Oh.
Anyway,
I'd put it on par.
I'll pass the torch on to that one. Ryan, what did you think, our esteemed guest?
Well, this was the best movie I've reviewed for this podcast.
I've ever watched.
And the other one was the worst movie I reviewed for this podcast. No, so the one from 2023 it's a fun movie, right? Like, I see the influence from like the Marvel things and that kind of stuff, but it's more true to the source material, which I love. And the people who are in it, like, I think they're having fun with the content. I think they enjoyed it. It just seems like an all-around fun romp. Obviously, that has my vote for the better movie. For the 2000 one, like, in like an alternate parallel world where they just tweaked like a few things, like maybe you cast a couple better people, maybe you invest a little bit more in just certain things. Like, could it have been a good movie? Maybe. But like, yeah, well, I know, like it's like, it's
your piece.
It's a shitty movie. It's not true to the source material. It looks like it's as acted as well as, and it looks as well as a really crappy sci-fi channel series, right? Like, there's nothing about it that really stands out, that really makes it unique or special or great. The only thing I can say about it is I love a villain who is over the top and revels in being a villain. So Jeremy Irons fucking nailed it, but that movie was dog shit, and I feel bad having watched it.
Here for uncomplicated evil villains.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
I like that part. So 2023 Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, I had a blast with. It's the second time I'd seen it. It's a lot of fun. I don't even care if it's biting Marvel style a little bit, because it's biting like early Marvel style, and it's not really up its own ass with everything else that's going in. It's not trying to have any tie-ins. It's just straight ahead fun, and you know what? It plays with tropes well. It subverts genres well. It's funny. It's a good time. This one from 2000, Dungeons and Dragons, is a critical miss. It's just bad start to finish. I don't really have anything else to add to it. Don't watch it. It should be forgotten in the sands of time.
Mm-hmm. It's too bad 2023 was a critical hit, but box office miss.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope that we get more of that.
I do hope we get another movie or two. I'm sure they'd run it to the ground if they could.
Yeah.
But
But you know what? If we get another, a couple, 3 good movies out of it before that happens, that would be fine, because it was fun. It was lighthearted adventure, and I feel that that's really missing in the cinemascape of today.
yeah.
It's just
Amen.
imagine if, like, when they made Lord of the Rings, they had been as untrue to the Lord of the Rings source material as the D&D people were, and that's kind of making me laugh now.
Yeah. I mean, they had some deviations, and a lot of people just killed themselves over it. There was just mass suicides of nerds, which is always good.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of mass suicides, what are we covering next?
Oh, guys, have you heard about racism? It's a problem. So we decided as a podcast we need to address this issue and solve racism by covering 2018's The Green Book and comparing it to Oscar nominee, Oscar-winning The Green Book, and comparing it to 1995, The White Man's Burden, starring John Travolta and Harry Belafonte.
Nice.
You guys have fun with that.
Stay tuned till we end racism next week.
In the very special final episode of the High and Low podcast, we'll be tackling racism.
Yeah. Light up your torches and subscribe.
Yeah, so if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe it, and share with any other lowlifes you might have. Until next time when we solve racism, I'm Vonn.
I'm Mitchell.
I'm Luke.
I was Ryan.
Smell you later.
Not fortune found or fate divine come close to toping the juice of the vine. No cherry crew, we sip and sway. Let's tip the tankard and waste the day. Re-wrong well you can, our toils can wait for a time. We saw the folly of men rather than rebel repine. Re-raw, well you can, our toils can wait for a time. We saw the folly of men rather than rebel repine.
Hello? Can somebody please ask me another question? Anyone?